Chapter 1. Heaving a sigh of relief, Lu Ping slowly stopped his cultivation and absorbed the spiritual energy that he had just gained. He threw away the spirit stone in his hand and felt his heart beating vigorously. Lu Ping could almost hear the sound of blood flowing through his veins. A pair of eyes suddenly opened in the darkness. They were like two bright stars in the deep night sky, shining brightly. Lu Ping smiled as he looked at everything in the house. As expected, after breaking through to the 7th layer, his eyes gained the ability to see in the dark. Of course, this ability was still very weak. As far as Lu Ping could see, he could only see everything in the house clearly. After fetching a bucket of water to wash away the layer of dark red impurities that had been squeezed out of his body and blood after breaking through, Lu Ping lay on the wooden bed. Finally, he could have a good sleep tonight. It had been 16 years since he came to this world, but Lu Ping did not feel uncomfortable at all. Especially after he found out about the wonders of this world, Lu Ping's curiosity was stimulated. At the age of 6, Lu Ping successfully awakened the true spirit bloodline with an extremely ordinary aptitude. The Master Immortal in charge of the island at that time was amazed by this and was then accepted as a disciple by the Zhenling Side Hall. For the past 10 years, Lu Ping had worked hard to learn everything about this world. Although his aptitude was ordinary, he cultivated diligently. Today he had finally broken through to the 7th layer. As for his own bloodline, even the Master Immortals did not know the reason, let alone himself. On the morning of the 2nd day after the bell rang 3 times, Zhenling Courtyard was suddenly filled with people. The 50 people of the 2nd Class 7 squad quickly came out of their courtyards and rushed to the 7th platform of Morning Sun Peak. They were like wild horses that were out of control. If a martial arts expert saw this, he would probably be stunned. These people might not be as fast as the top Qigong experts, but there were thousands of them in the mountain. If every one of them had such a Qigong, what would the martial arts masters think? If these people were to come out, the martial arts world would definitely be in chaos. Lu Ping moved unhurriedly through the crowd, appearing to be at ease. When he arrived at the 7th platform, he saw 2 silhouettes on the platform from afar. They must be eldest senior brother and second senior brother. Both of them had reached the 9th level of the blood refinement realm and were only a step away from the blood condensation realm before they could become Zhenling's inner disciples. Just as the crowd was about to reach the platform, 3 silhouettes overtook the crowd and leaped onto the platform. They were the 8th layer blood refining realm 3rd, 4th and 5th senior brothers. Seeing that everyone had reached the platform, eldest martial brother Yao Yong shouted, "Line up!" Everyone rushed to their original positions and in an instant they lined up neatly. Lu Ping was ranked 2nd from the left in the 2nd row, which meant that Lu Ping was the 12th disciple in the square team. Yao Yong shouted again, "Blood condensation bone melting fist begin." Everyone raised their hands and punched out, shouting in unison, "Ha!" There were 72 styles of the blood condensation bone melting fist. The first 36 styles were used to refine one's body and stimulate the true spiritual energy in one's bloodline, while the last 36 styles were used to protect one's life. After a round of punches, Lu Ping's bones began to heat up. It was indeed the effect of reaching the 7th stage. In the past, his forehead would be covered in sweat and he would be panting heavily from the blood condensation bone-melting fist. But this round was just a warm-up. Lu Ping looked at eldest martial brother Yao Yong, and Yao Yong shouted again, "Welcome, Master Immortal." Outside the Yang Peak, a red light flashed, and 3 silhouettes appeared on the stone platform in front of the platform. The disciples below the platform greeted in unison, "Greetings, Master Immortal Lu." Standing among the 3 was a middle-aged cultivator with a dignified expression. He waved his hand and said, "Dispense with the formalities. You've all worked hard in your cultivation, but the True Spirit Courtyard's Level 2 disciple assessment is about to begin. If you don't want to become an outer disciple, you'll have to continue working hard." After Master Immortal Lu finished speaking, the people in the square formation all had different expressions on their faces. Basically, the people in the first 3 rows were calm, but the people in the last 2 rows began to whisper among themselves. Some were anxious, some were disappointed, and some were in despair. Master Immortal Lu looked at the last 2 rows expressionlessly, and the crowd immediately fell silent. Master Immortal Lu snorted and looked at the first 3 rows. When he saw Lu Ping, his face lit up with joy and he said, "Good Lu Ping, you've broken through to the 7th level?" Master Immortal Lu's words immediately caused a commotion in the quiet crowd. Even the senior martial brothers in the first row turned their heads to look at Lu Ping. Lu Ping was calm and didn't show the slightest bit of nervousness or excitement. He bowed politely and said, It's all thanks to Master Immortal's guidance. I was lucky enough to break through last night. Good. 3 months from now, when the second disciple assessment is over, you can participate in the second disciple ranking competition. The True Spirit Courtyard's disciple assessment was to eliminate disciples who didn't keep up with their progress, while the ranking competition was for outstanding disciples of different levels. The winners of the ranking competition would be heavily rewarded and their cultivation would greatly increase. Both were to encourage the courtyard's disciples to work hard in their cultivation. The True Spirit Courtyard determined one's status based on one's strength, and the competition was fierce. The cultivation resources of each group depended on their team's annual winning rate and elimination rate, and the immortal masters of each group would also be rewarded by the sect. Therefore, when Master Immortal Lu saw that Lu Ping had broken through, he was very happy. A second disciple's cultivation had reached the 7th level, and they already had the strength to enter the top 10 of the group. This undoubtedly increased the strength of Group 7's strength in the ranking competition. Our True Spirit Courtyard determines one's status based on one's strength. Lu Ping has broken through and become the 10th disciple of Group 7 to reach the 7th level. As usual, Lu Ping will become the 10th disciple. Lu Ping had experienced this a few times before. He just silently walked to the far right of the first row. Lu Ping could clearly feel the gazes of the people behind him. Some were angry, some were envious, and some were jealous. The original 10th disciple, Li Qing, glared at Lu Ping and walked to the far left of the second row. The original 11th disciple, Zhang Zicheng, smiled bitterly and took 2 steps to the right, taking over Lu Ping's original position. Lu Ping ignored all these expressions and stood at his new position in silence. Master Immortal Lu glanced at Lu Ping and said with a smile, "According to the rules, when a disciple has a breakthrough in his or her cultivation, he or she can challenge a senior brother of the same level to occupy a higher position and obtain better cultivation resources." The 4 7th layer disciples on the left looked at Lu Ping in unison. Lu Ping bowed to Master Immortal Lu and said, "I have just broken through and need some time to consolidate my cultivation. I am not a match for any of you, so I give up the right to challenge you." The crowd thought to themselves as expected. Every time Lu Ping's cultivation improved, he would never challenge a senior brother of the same level. If it weren't for the annual group ranking competition, Lu Ping would probably be ranked last among the disciples of the same level. Although Lu Ping did not cause trouble, it did not mean that trouble would not come looking for him. However, after a few failed challenges from new disciples, everyone knew that Lu Ping was not a pushover, and the number of people who challenged him decreased. The reason why Lu Ping was able to reach the 12th position among the 6th layer disciples was because he was passively replaced by someone who had failed to challenge him. With that, Lu Ping will be our Group 7's 10th senior brother. Master Immortal Lu made the final decision. Greetings, 10th senior brother. Greetings, 10th junior brother. After Lu Ping returned the greeting, Master Immortal Lu said solemnly, "Good. Now that the chores are done, all disciples shall meditate and cultivate." Chapter 2. Lu Ping returned from the spirit warehouse with more than 10 spirit stones and 8 blood purification pills. Spirit stones could be used as a form of currency, while blood purification pills were used to purify the blood of the true spirit and improve one's cultivation. As a disciple of the Zhenling Side Hall, Lu Ping was in between Zhenling's outer disciples and inner disciples. Zhenling raised them from a young age for free, unlike the outer disciples who had to earn their own living. This was to nurture Zhenling's reserve power. If they couldn't reach the 9th layer of the blood condensation realm within 15 years, they would be demoted to an outer disciple. Apart from earning their own living, they would also have to serve the sect. The Zhenling Side Hall had a batch of grade 3 disciples every 5 years. Lu Ping had been in the side hall for almost 10 years, so he was a grade 2 disciple. The lowest requirement for a grade 2 disciple was to reach the 4th layer. If he couldn't reach the 6th layer by the 10th year, he would lose his qualification as a grade 3 disciple and be demoted to an outer disciple. When a grade 2 disciple reached the 4th layer, they would receive 2 spirit stones per month. 5th layer would receive 1 blood purification pill, 6th layer would receive 2 more spirit stones, and 7th layer would be a major turning point in the blood refining realm. It was extremely difficult to break through, but once one broke through, they would enter the late blood refining realm. Their cultivation would improve tremendously, and their monthly allowance would increase to 6 spirit stones and 3 blood purification pills, which was double of the 6th layer. The sect would also reward disciples who broke through to the late blood refining realm with 10 spirit stones and double the reward for those who reached the late blood refining realm before the age of 18. It was said that disciples who reached the late blood refining realm before the age of 18 had a higher chance of breaking through during the blood condensation realm. Lu Ping didn't know if the rumor was true, but he knew that only 1 out of 100 disciples could reach the blood condensation realm from the blood refining realm. It was like a dragon's gate. If one managed to jump through it, he would become an official inner disciple of Jinling, learn Jinling's official cultivation technique, and become an existence that the outer disciples could only look up to. There were thousands of disciples in the Zhenling side hall, but only about 100 of them reached the 9th layer every year. Only a few of them managed to reach the Foundation Establishment realm. Every successful Foundation Establishment realm disciple would become a major event in the Zhenling side hall. Lu Ping exchanged the 10 spirit stones for 5 blood purification pills. Lu Ping now had 16 spirit stones and 8 blood purification pills. In the past, Lu Ping had always used up all of the benefits he received during his cultivation. This time, apart from the basic cultivation for this month, there was still some left. I should make some preparations for the second-class competition, Lu Ping thought. Every competition was a process of fighting for cultivation resources. Not only was it a competition for individual rewards, but it was also a competition for the distribution of resources for the teams. If the teams performed well, they would receive more resources. Half of these resources would go to the leading immortal elder, and the rest would go to the disciples of the teams. This was also the reason why Master Immortal Lu was so happy to see Lu Ping break through to stage 7. The competition only allowed the top 10 disciples from each team to participate. This was only the basic requirement. Disciples who had reached the 7th level could participate regardless of their ranking. The more powerful teams had more than 10 people who had reached the late-stage Qi refining realm. Lu Ping returned to the small house in the side courtyard. As usual, he swallowed a blood purification pill, held a spirit stone in his hand, and started cultivating. After a period of time, the spirit stone turned into dust, and the blood purification pill's medicinal energy had been refined. Lu Ping was not in a hurry to increase his cultivation. Instead, he started from the 1st layer of the blood refining realm all the way to the 7th layer, strengthening his foundation. Every time Lu Ping made a breakthrough, he would do this. Naturally, his foundation would be very solid. Even so, Lu Ping could still feel that his cultivation had increased significantly. Lu Ping exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. This was normal for a cultivator who had just broken through. As he progressed, it would only get harder and harder. Every layer in the late-stage blood refining realm was a bottleneck, and it was normal for one to be stuck for 3 to 5 years. Lu Ping opened the wooden box on the table and took out a piece of charm paper. He unfolded it and placed it on the table. Then he took out a piece of graphite and some strange wooden tools. He started drawing on the charm paper according to the elementary appendix. Mastery. Using the graphite, he lightly drew on the charm paper. Talismans were difficult to draw, and it was even more difficult for blood refining realm cultivators to do so. The strokes of the talisman paper were complicated, and there could not be any mistakes. Otherwise, even if the talisman was successfully drawn, its power would be greatly reduced. Lu Ping used these tools to solve this problem. This is one of the advantages of transmigrating, Lu Ping thought with a smile. Lu Ping knew these were just petty tricks. After reaching the blood condensation realm, a cultivator would be able to extend their divine sense and these tools would become useless. Cultivators with divine sense would be able to draw charms with more precision than using these tools. Lu Ping took out a brush that was used to draw talismans. It was made from the tail hair of a top-tier class 1 demonic beast. There was a simple spirit gathering formation on the shaft of the brush, which could better transfer spiritual energy to the brush. Lu Ping dipped the brush in spiritual ink mixed with spiritual spring water, cinnabar, and the blood of a class 1 demonic beast, earth spirit turtle. He slowly infused spiritual energy from his bloodline into the brush and started drawing the talisman according to the markings on the talisman. When the last stroke was completed, Lu Ping let out a long sigh of relief. It was a success on his first try. It seemed that the increase in his cultivation would affect the success rate of his talisman crafting. Lu Ping felt the spiritual energy contained in the talisman and the power it emitted. He was both surprised and delighted. It was actually a top-tier talisman. This was the limit of a blood-refining realm cultivator. Lu Ping thought for a moment. He pricked his finger and dripped a drop of blood essence onto the talisman. The dark red talisman shone brightly and turned bright red, as if it was about to burst out of the talisman. This was a method Lu Ping learned from the scripture pavilion in the side courtyard. It could increase the power of a talisman by 2 levels, but the loss of blood essence came at the cost of cultivation. Fortunately, blood refining realm cultivators had their bloodline as their foundation. Their cultivation was contained in their bloodline, so they naturally had more blood essence than other cultivators. If it wasn't for the fact that Lu Ping had made a top-tier talisman, he wouldn't have wasted a drop of blood essence. Lu Ping meditated to recover the blood essence he had lost. He continued to make 9 more talismans. Unfortunately, there weren't any more top-tier talismans. There were only 2 high-grade blood refining talismans, 2 mid-grade and 3 low-grade talismans. The other 2 talismans were scrapped due to a mistake during the crafting process. If other blood refining realm cultivators were to learn of this success rate, they would probably cry out in shock. This kind of success rate was already enough to make people gasp in admiration. Lu Ping thought for a moment. He also dripped his blood essence onto 2 high-grade talismans, turning them into blood talismans. He then placed the 3 blood talismans into another box. This box also had several blood talismans inside, and they were all high-grade blood refining talismans. As for the remaining mid-grade and low-grade talismans, Lu Ping placed them into a bag. Inside were dozens of mid-grade and low-grade talismans. This bag was the result of Lu Ping's 1 month of hard work. Although the monastery's cultivators could enjoy the benefits of the sect for free, it was still far from enough for cultivation. As a result, the monastery's cultivators all had their own methods to earn spirit stones. Talismans were one of Lu Ping's methods. Lu Ping had started crafting talismans every 3 days from the 4th layer of blood refining realm. He hadn't stopped for several years. Relying on his constant practice and some small techniques, he had passed the initial stage of losing spirit stones. He had gradually turned his losses into profits, allowing him to accumulate cultivation resources. Otherwise, with Lu Ping's mediocre cultivation talent, how could he have joined the ranks of the monastery's high-grade cultivators? Chapter 3. Because he had successfully crafted a top-grade talisman, the excited Lu Ping spent the next month continuously trying to craft top-grade talismans. Unfortunately, he only succeeded twice, but his success rate in crafting high-grade and mid-grade talismans had greatly increased. Early in the morning at the end of the month, Lu Ping took the bag full of talismans and walked towards the market outside the side courtyard. Because the side courtyard competition was imminent, the market was extraordinarily lively. There were even many foundation establishment cultivators flying across the sky, attracting a lot of envious gazes. Lu Ping handed over a spirit stone and found a spot in the market. He put on the mask he got from the manager of the market and opened the bag. 36 low-grade talismans, 36 mid-grade talismans, and 6 high-grade talismans were placed separately on the bag. These 6 high-grade talismans were mostly supportive spells. How could Lu Ping be willing to take out powerful offensive and defensive spells? As soon as Lu Ping took out the talismans, it attracted the attention of others. Soon, a green-robed cultivator came to inquire about the price. 3 low-grade talismans for 1 spirit stone, 1 mid-grade talisman for 1 spirit stone, and 1 high-grade talisman for 3 spirit stones. Lu Ping changed his tone and replied coldly. Since 2 years ago, a middle-aged talisman crafting cultivator he met in the market disappeared for no reason. Lu Ping had been acting cautiously in the market. That cultivator's skill in crafting talismans was very high. He had the magical power of an 8th-layer blood refining realm cultivator. He was very famous among the blood refining realm cultivators and had given Lu Ping many pointers. However, after he accidentally crafted a top-grade talisman, he accidentally spilled the beans in the market. Since then, Lu Ping had never seen him again. His relatives and friends searched for him within a radius of 1,000 miles, but he was nowhere to be found. After advancing to the 7th-layer blood refining realm, Lu Ping believed that his skill in crafting talismans had surpassed that of the missing cultivator. Naturally, he was even more concerned about his own safety. The green-robed cultivator smiled bitterly and said, "Fellow Taoist, isn't it a bit expensive?" Lu Ping still replied coldly, "The quality of this talisman is a bit better than other talismans of the same grade." When the green-robed cultivator heard this, he picked up a mid-grade talisman and felt the spiritual energy within it. He said, "As expected." After saying that, he wanted to say something else, but seeing the cold expression on Lu Ping's face, he shook his head and said, "1 middle-grade Vajra talisman, 1 golden sword talisman and 1 swift wind talisman each. 3 low-grade talismans of these 3 types. A total of 6 low-grade spirit stones." Lu Ping was happy in his heart. This was a good start, but his mouth still coldly said. The green-robed cultivator reluctantly took out 6 spirit stones, then took the 12 talismans from Lu Ping and turned to leave. However, he suddenly turned back, gritted his teeth and said, "One of these high-grade ice spike talismans. This month's benefits are all given to you, fellow Taoist." Lu Ping was naturally happy to get 9 spirit stones in one go. With the green-robed cultivator taking the lead, the other cultivators bought 2 or 3 talismans one after another. Lu Ping looked at the increasing number of spirit stones in his hands. He was also very excited, but on the surface he still pretended to be cold. Among them there were quite a few courtyard disciples that Lu Ping knew. Even his own group's first disciple Yao Yong and fourth disciple Shi Lingling each bought a high-grade talisman, 4 mid-grade talismans, and several low-grade talismans from Lu Ping. This made Lu Ping speechless. Originally he thought that since he had reached the late blood refining realm, his benefits were already very good, but it seemed that he still couldn't compare to the 8th and 9th layer seniors. Not to mention, according to rumors, the 2 of them came from good families, and their backgrounds were much better than those of ordinary people like him. In just one morning, Lu Ping had earned 66 low-grade spirit stones. This was a fortune that Lu Ping had never touched before. Lu Ping used 10 spirit stones to buy the talisman paper and spirit ink he needed to craft talismans. The remaining 50 or so spirit stones would be used for the competition. Lu Ping arrived at a pavilion at the center of the market, the multi-treasure pavilion. This was a place that Lu Ping had never been to before. He couldn't afford to come here. The cheapest magic tools sold here were low-grade magic tools that could only be used by late blood refining realm cultivators. Most of the customers here were blood condensation realm cultivators. Lu Ping entered the multi-treasure pavilion with a nervous heart. An old man greeted him with a smile. "Little fellow Taoist, welcome to our pavilion. May I ask what you need?" Lu Ping calmed himself down and bowed to the old man. "Greetings, old senior. This junior wishes to buy an offensive magic tool. It's my first time here, so I don't know much about it. I hope senior can give me some pointers." It wasn't that Lu Ping was a shallow person, but that Lu Ping really didn't know much about magic tools. The multi-treasure pavilion had always been reputable, and even a blood-refining realm cultivator like him had heard of it. That was why he asked the old man for advice. If he tried to hide it and pretended to know something he didn't know, it would only make the old man unhappy, and he would be the one to suffer. The old man chuckled, obviously satisfied with Lu Ping's performance. He said, "Little fellow Taoist, this way please." Lu Ping followed the old man to the side of the first floor. This was where the low-grade magic tools were displayed. He picked out 3 magic tools, a sword, a seal, and a fan. He said, "These 3 magic tools are not bad among the low-grade magic tools." After that, he looked at Lu Ping and continued, "Little fellow Taoist has a solid foundation. You won't have to worry about running out of energy like other 7th-layer blood-refining realm cultivators." When the old man looked at him, Lu Ping felt a chill run down his spine. It was as if he was seen through by the old man. Could this be the divine sense that only blood condensation realm cultivators have? Lu Ping became even more cautious and said respectfully, "Please give me some pointers, senior." The old man nodded and said, "This sword is called Lightning Speed. Its attack power is the lowest among the 3 magic tools, but its attack speed is the highest. It is flexible, and compared to the other 2 magic tools, it requires the least amount of arcane energy. This seal is called Landslide. It is the most powerful, but it requires the most arcane energy." After that, he looked at Lu Ping and continued, "With little fellow Taoist's current level of spiritual energy, it should be enough. This 3rd magic tool is called Flame Fan. It can spit out spiritual fire to injure enemies. Its quality is between the 2 magic tools. May I know which magic tool little fellow Taoist is interested in?" Lu Ping thought to himself, "I can barely control this magic tool, so why would I care about its flexibility? I only want to injure my enemies in one strike. So I'll forget about this sword and this fan. Just this mountain-shaped magic tool is enough." The old man kept looking at Lu Ping with a smile. Seeing that Lu Ping had come back to his senses, he knew that Lu Ping had made up his mind, so he asked, "Which magic tool do you want?" Lu Ping said, "Thank you for your pointers, senior. I've already made up my mind. I want this landslide. May I ask how much this magic tool is worth?" The old man stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Little fellow Taoist has a good eye. This landslide is enough for little fellow Taoist to use until the middle stage of foundation establishment. Little Taoist, since this is your first time entering this pavilion, this old man has decided to give you a 10% discount. You only need to pay 45 spirit stones. Lu Ping was stunned. Although it was his first time buying a magic tool, it didn't mean that he didn't know its price. Ordinary low-grade magic tools were only worth around 30 spirit stones. This was the first time Lu Ping had seen a magic tool worth 50 spirit stones. Looking at the old man's expression, Lu Ping recalled the evaluation of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion he heard from many cultivators. He clenched his teeth and said, "I'll buy it." Chapter 4. In the small house in the side courtyard, Lu Ping recalled the power of the landslide seal when he tried it out in the wild. He couldn't help but smile wryly. The landslide seal was indeed powerful, but once it was used, the spiritual energy stored in his bloodline would be reduced by half. This was really a new trick. There were only 3 months left until the competition. The rest of the time should be spent on cultivation. Of course, he couldn't neglect the cultivation of spells either. After all, the competition was not just about cultivation. Fortunately, he still had a lot of spiritual stones and medicinal pellets left, which was barely enough for this month's cultivation. This was something that had never happened before. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. Lu Ping's cultivation did not progress as slowly as he had imagined. Instead, he had reached the mid-stage of the 7th layer. In Lu Ping's opinion, this was mainly because he had a breakthrough in his talisman crafting skills after his cultivation breakthrough. This allowed him to have enough resources for cultivation. Perhaps, the importance he attached to his foundation was also one of the reasons. It was always good to have a good foundation. Now, Lu Ping still stuck to his old habit of crafting a talisman every 3 days. After a month, he could maintain a success rate of 80 talismans. Half of them were mid-grade talismans, 15 high-grade talismans, and 7 top-grade talismans. All of them were made into blood talismans. Lu Ping went to the market at the end of the month to sell talismans as usual. Each time he would earn about 100 spiritual stones. Now Lu Ping felt like he was rich. Every day he would need a blood purification pellet and a spiritual stone. If it weren't for the fact that he could only take 1 pellet a day, the medicinal toxins would be left behind, which would affect his future cultivation. Lu Ping would rather use 2 blood purification pellets to cultivate. Over the past 2 months, all the disciples in the side courtyard had been preparing for the final assessment and the competition. Group 7 had also stepped up their cultivation under such a tense atmosphere. The oppressive atmosphere forced the disciples of Group 7 to use all the energy and potential they had accumulated over the past 5 years. One by one they succeeded in breaking through. The minimum requirement to become a Grade 3 disciple was the 6th layer blood refining realm. Initially there were 27 disciples in the 7th squad who were above the 6th layer, but in the past 2 months, 4 of them had broken through to the 6th layer. 2 of the original 6th layer disciples had also broken through to the 7th layer. This made Master Immortal Lu very excited. These were all his achievements. The more disciples that broke through to the 7th layer, the more rewards he would receive from the sect. The 2 who broke through the 7th level were the 11th and 12th disciples, Li Cheng and Zhang Zicheng. Ever since Li Cheng was surpassed by Lu Ping 2 months ago, he was very dissatisfied in his heart. This time he even said that he wanted to have a showdown with Lu Ping. Regarding this, Lu Ping treated it as a joke. Putting aside his cultivation level that was approaching the late stage of the 7th layer, Lu Ping was confident that he would not lose to any 7th layer blood refining realm cultivators in terms of spells and magical weapons. A mystic weapon was a common weapon used by blood refining realm cultivators for self-defense. But to Zhenling's sect, a mystic weapon was nothing more than trash. Every outer disciple had one. When Lu Ping broke through to Qi refining realm 7th layer, he obtained a high-grade mystic weapon, the 100 refined sword. On this day, Lu Ping and the disciples of Group 7 arrived at the Morning Sun Peak for their morning training. Yesterday, Lu Ping had just sold more than 10 talismans from the market and prepared a month's worth of cultivation supplies. He was in a good mood when he thought about the possibility of breaking through to the late stage of the 7th layer next month. After a round of practicing the blood condensation bone-melting fist, Master Immortal Lu arrived at Group 7's platform punctually with his 2 9th layer blood refining realm assistants. Master Immortal, Disciple Li Cheng wishes to challenge the 10th disciple, Lu Ping. I hope Master Immortal will approve. Master Immortal Lu frowned and looked at the person who spoke. It was the 11th disciple, Li Cheng. Although the Zhenling sect encourages all disciples to strive to be the best, the Rank 2 disciple ranking competition is just around the corner. Wouldn't it be a pity if you can't participate in the competition if you are injured? Of course, if you insist on competing, this immortal elder will not force you based on the sect rules. Li Qing did not understand the hidden meaning in Master Immortal Lu's words. He continued, I am willing to fight. I am confident that I will not be the one injured. Master Immortal Lu was displeased. No matter who was injured, Group 7 strength would be affected in the competition. If that happened, wouldn't I lose my cultivation resources as well? However, Jinling sect's rules were in place. Master Immortal Lu could not force this matter down. He could only say, be careful, the two of you. Master Immortal Lu's two assistants marked the location of the competition. Master Immortal Lu acted as the judge. Li Qing glared at Lu Ping and said, don't think that you're so great just because you entered rank 7 earlier than me. Today I'll let you know that I'm late by a month because I'm well prepared. You better give up my spot. Lu Ping chuckled and did not say a word. He took out his superior grade forged sword and made a stance. His actions spoke volumes. Li Qing did not back down. He also wielded a superior grade mystic weapon, the forged spear. He used the 100 battle spear technique that he copied from the side courtyard's library and attacked Lu Ping. Li Qing had completed his breakthrough a month ago. He was smart enough to know that he had to consolidate his cultivation base and practice his spells and mystic weapons. That was why he waited for a month before challenging Lu Ping. Lu Ping defended with the sword technique of the blood condensation bone melting fist. The blood condensation bone melting fist was actually a basic skill of Jinling side courtyard that could be practiced with both fist and sword techniques. Lu Ping had not learned any other mystic weapon skills. He only practiced fist and sword techniques together. Although it was slightly weaker than other skills, it was still a solid foundation. Moreover, this set of skills could stimulate the true spiritual energy in one's body and purify one's bloodline, even though the benefits were minimal. Li Qing's spear technique was imposing and his attacks were like a tidal wave. The spectating disciples cheered incessantly. On the contrary, Lu Ping's blood condensation bone melting sword technique was well practiced. He continuously dispelled Li Qing's attacks. Although he was on the defensive, his defense was stable. The disciples had practiced the blood condensation bone melting fist technique for many years. They were already tired of it, so why would they care about it? Only a few disciples in the first row watched Lu Ping's sword technique thoughtfully. A few 8th and 9th layer blood refining realm disciples and Master Immortal Lu's two assistants gathered together to discuss the match. Li Qing has accumulated a lot of experience. Even though he entered the 7th level late, he is still not someone that Lu Ping can compare to. I feel that Lu Ping might be able to turn the tables. Look at his impenetrable defense. He doesn't look anxious at all. It's obvious that he still has some tricks up his sleeves. What a joke. What tricks can a set of blood condensation bone melting fist technique have? Is there anything that we don't know? That's not necessarily the case. The foundation of his sword techniques is rather solid. Even our blood condensation bone melting fist might not be as imposing as his. This sword technique is just a basic skill. It's useless no matter how good it is. While the crowd was discussing, Master Immortal Lu remained silent as he watched the match. Deep down he was shocked. As a blood condensation realm expert, he could see things that ordinary people couldn't. This kid's moves actually have a hint of technique. It seems like there's no more suspense in this match. Chapter 5. Lu Ping slowly stopped his cultivation and exhaled a mouthful of light red air. This was the poison of the blood purification pill. Tossing the spirit stone aside, Lu Ping felt slightly excited as he sensed the power of his bloodline, which was about to break through to the late stage of level 7. In yesterday's match with Li Qing, Lu Ping found a flaw in Li Qing's defense during the 22nd move. He counterattacked and took the initiative. After 8 moves, he locked onto Li Qing's spear and slashed at Li Qing's wrist with his sword, forcing Li Qing to throw away his spear and admit defeat. In the blink of an eye, the offensive and defensive positions had been switched. Li Qing, who had been full of vigor just a moment ago, had been defeated in an instant. Not only were the disciples who had been cheering for Li Qing dumbfounded, but even the disciples who were ranked at the top and Master Immortal Lu's assistant were shocked. The disciples who were at the same cultivation level as Lu Ping looked at Lu Ping with even more vigilance. Lu Ping couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed like he was in the limelight this time. In the past, Lu Ping wouldn't mind making Li Qing suffer a little. However, when Li Qing challenged him, Lu Ping had already noticed something on Master Immortal Lu's face that Li Qing didn't see. Hence, he didn't go too hard on Li Qing. Sure enough, when Master Immortal Lu saw that both sides didn't suffer any injuries, He looked at Lu Ping with a much friendlier gaze. As usual, after Master Immortal Lu finished his morning training, he asked Lu Ping to stay behind to give him some guidance. This time, even the eldest and second disciples revealed envious expressions. One-on-one guidance, a special treatment. Only a few of his senior brothers were given a chance when they broke through to level 8. When eldest senior brother and second senior brother broke through to level 9, Master Immortal Lu was overjoyed and gave them another private guidance. As for the rest, only fourth senior sister, because of her family's close relationship with Master Immortal Lu, was given 2 private guidance opportunities. After calming down, Lu Ping quietly thought about what Master Immortal Lu had explained to him. In the eyes of most cultivators, the goal of cultivation was naturally to prolong their lifespans, or even to reach the illusory realm of longevity. However, having a long lifespan didn't mean that a cultivator could live peacefully until the end of his life. In order to ensure that no accidents happened on the path of a cultivator's pursuit of longevity, various spells were born. After a long period of practice and development, these techniques to protect longevity were divided into 4 realms: law, technique, force, and intent. Beginners learn all kinds of magic according to the instructor's requirements. They learn by copying, knowing the way but not knowing the reason. This is the state of magic. After that, practicing spells diligently, practice makes perfect, erasing the stereotype, gradually dispersing the aura of a heavy axe. The movements are suitable for one's body. This is known as the technique state. Master Immortal Lu's blood condensation cultivation had only reached the technique realm. Upon reaching the 3rd level, the cultivator would seek to understand the principles of using magic techniques. The combination of magic techniques and one's cultivation method would complement each other. When casting magic techniques, the cultivator would be able to maximize the power of their cultivation method through magic techniques, even surpassing the power of the magic techniques themselves. Cultivators at this realm, their words are the law, like the trend of the world, and cannot be challenged. This is the state of force. As for the highest state, intent, even Master Immortal Lu had only heard of it and didn't know how to explain it. Not only did Master Immortal Lu tell Lu Ping about the 4 realms of magic, he also patiently explained to Lu Ping his own cultivation experience of reaching the technique realm. After that, he answered some of Lu Ping's cultivation questions before stopping. 2 hours later, Lu Ping returned to his room under the envious gazes of the crowd. It was the same for the next 2 days. Time always flies when one is focused on cultivation. In the blink of an eye, it was the end of the month again. The advancement test for level 3 disciples would begin on the 2nd day, and the year-end competition for level 2 disciples would begin 3 days later. As usual, Lu Ping sold all the talismans he made this month at the side yard market. He weighed the bag of spirit stones in his hand and smiled in satisfaction. The assessment was only to check one's cultivation level, so 3 days was more than enough time. However, the grand competition was different. Moreover, this time, it happened to be the promotion competition that was held every 5 years. Not only were the disciples pumped up to compete, even the professors and immortal elders, for their own interests, were also participating in the competition. Moreover, rumor had it that Jinling would increase the rewards for the winners of the competition. It was precisely because of these reasons that Lu Ping's talisman business became even more prosperous. Naturally, Lu Ping wouldn't lose out. He immediately raised the price of his talismans, but the demand still couldn't meet the supply. Looking at the dozen or so spirit stones in his hand, Lu Ping's heart became lively again. After deducting the cultivation and other expenses, the remaining spirit stones could buy another magic tool. Another reason why he had this idea was that Lu Ping's cultivation level had already reached the late stage of the 7th layer. This was thanks to Master Immortal Lu's extra guidance. Of course, it also had to do with Lu Ping's 3 months of extravagant cultivation. As usual, Lu Ping prepared everything he needed for the next month's cultivation in the market. He even specially bought 5 spirit recovery pills to recover spiritual energy and 5 yuan recovery pills to heal injuries. Lu Ping was just about to walk towards the store of bountiful treasures when he suddenly heard a commotion in front of him. He quickened his steps and saw a dozen or so people gathered together, talking animatedly. Out of curiosity, Lu Ping walked up to see a 3rd-level female disciple selling a magic tool. This magic tool was a copper mirror. The side mirror had a Jinling symbol engraved on its side. It was clearly a Jinling product, and this often meant that even if the quality of the magic tool wasn't top-notch, it wouldn't be too bad. Lu Ping walked up and asked, "Senior apprentice sister, How many spirit stones are you selling this magic tool for? The female disciple heard this and glanced at Lu Ping. She discovered that Lu Ping was wearing a mask from the market, so she couldn't see his true face. She couldn't help but curl her lips as if disapproving of Lu Ping's cautiousness. She said, 55 spirit stones. Most defensive magic tools were a bit more expensive, but Lu Ping still felt that he should lower the price a bit. After all, this couldn't be counted as a fixed low-level magic tool. That's a bit too expensive. Magic tools are only sect standard and can't be considered very good. Moreover, Senior Apprentice Sister has probably used this magic tool for a long time. How about 40 spirit stones? The female cultivator glared at Lu Ping and said, 40 spirit stones. I might as well sell it directly to the store of many treasures. 50 spirit stones, that's more straightforward. If I didn't need it urgently, why would I sell it so cheaply? I've saved up a year's worth of sect contribution points for this. Lu Ping laughed and said, then I'll add another 5 spirit stones. 45 spirit stones. How about that? The female disciple hesitated and said, 48 spirit stones. I can't go any lower or I'll wait for someone else. Lu Ping turned his head and saw a few people hurrying over. They must have heard that a senior apprentice sister was selling magic tools in the market and rushed over. There were quite a few second-ranked disciples among them. Lu Ping also saw the 6th disciple of Group 7 among them, so he said, deal. The female cultivator took Lu Ping's spirit stones and said fiercely, if it wasn't for the fact that this senior apprentice sister wants a middle-rank magic tool and is worried that someone else will buy it, I wouldn't let you have it so cheap. With that said, she didn't look back and used her movement technique to rush towards the store of many treasures in the center of the market. Lu Ping put away the magic tool and looked back at the people rushing over. He quickly separated the crowd and left the market without looking back. Chapter 6. The advancement test would be over soon, so Lu Ping naturally wasn't worried about it. In the last month, another 3 disciples from Group 7 had broken through to the 6th layer. In total, there were 34 6th layer blood refining realm disciples in Group 7. However, looking at Master Immortal Lu's nonchalant expression, Lu Ping strongly suspected that one of the 3 disciples had forcefully consumed a large number of medicinal pellets and spirit stones to achieve the breakthrough, regardless of the medicinal toxins or the limits of their bloodline. Although they wouldn't lose the sect's guidance and nurture, such an extreme method would leave hidden injuries in their bodies. It would be much more difficult for them to break through to the late blood refining realm in the future. There were still 12 people who reached the 7th layer, but they didn't surprise Master Immortal Lu. However, 6th Senior Martial Brother's cultivation advanced to the 8th layer and he received 3 days of personal guidance from Master Immortal Lu. Lu Ping remembered seeing 6th Senior Martial Brother at the market a few days ago. 6th Senior Martial Brother was also here for the Copper Mirror. Lu Ping guessed that 6th Senior Martial Brother was in a hurry to find a magical artifact for the competition. As for whether 6th Senior Martial Brother already had a magical artifact, Lu Ping didn't know. Master Immortal Lu stood solemnly on the cliff in front of the platform. He looked at the 12 disciples who were preparing to participate in the competition and said, the sect will increase the rewards for this competition. All Grade 2 disciples who have reached the late blood refining realm will be rewarded with 20 spirit stones. The top 64 will be rewarded with 40 spirit stones. The top 32 will be rewarded with 20 pills that can increase one's cultivation. The top 16 will be rewarded with a low-grade magical artifact. And the top 8 will be rewarded with a blood condensing pill. Blood condensing pill. It's a blood condensing pill. It can increase one's chances of entering the blood condensation realm. In the past, only those who entered the top 4 received such an honor. The rumors are true. The sect will reward us handsomely this time. Master Immortal Lu was very satisfied with the effect he had created. It was as if he was the one who made the rules. He cleared his throat and saw that the disciples had turned their attention back to him. He continued, this is not the end. If you are able to enter the top 4, you will be rewarded with a mid-grade magical artifact. If you enter the final round, you will be rewarded with a core forging realm enlightened master's talisman treasure. Talisman treasure? It was actually a talisman treasure. The disciples looked at each other. This time no one said a word. They were all shocked. However, perhaps only the 9th layer blood refining realm 1st Senior Martial Brother and 2nd Senior Martial Brother had a chance. At this moment, the eyes of 1st Senior Brother Yao Yong and 2nd Senior Brother Du Feng were glowing with anticipation. Master Immortal Lu seemed to have expected this to happen. Looking at the 12 pairs of eyes staring at him, he recalled how he too had started out as a disciple of Jinling's side hall. Thinking about the purpose of this competition, he could not help but feel emotional. Lu Ping looked at the other disciples who were in high spirits. Although he couldn't hide the excitement in his heart, he couldn't help but wonder why the sect doubled the scope of the rewards this time and why the rewards were so generous. Lu Ping looked at Master Immortal Lu and noticed that he was slightly taken aback at first. Then there was a hint of doubt in his eyes. Master Immortal Lu might know something, but he might not know everything. Although Lu Ping was excited, he did not let the generous rewards get to his head. There were a total of 20 groups of level 2 disciples. There were about 200 disciples who had reached the late stage of the blood refining realm. Although they had not reached the late stage, they were among the top 10 disciples in their respective groups. With his late stage 7th layer strength, he could at most enter the top 64. If he added in the blood talisman, 2 mystic instruments, and the technique state spell that he was gradually getting familiar with, he might be able to enter the top 16. Of course, that was if he was lucky enough not to encounter a 9th layer blood refining realm disciple. The top 8, the blood condensing pill. This was Lu Ping's biggest motivation. Although he was quite wealthy, he was not confident that he could win against a 9th layer blood refining realm disciple. As far as he knew, Yao Yong and Du Feng had at least 2 mystic instruments, and they might even have mid-grade mystic instruments. 4th senior martial sister Shi Lingling was born in a cultivator family and had 2 mystic instruments. Although Lu Ping did not know about the other seniors, he did not dare to underestimate them. Moreover, this was only group 7. Unless he entered the 8th layer blood refining realm, he might have a chance. However, Lu Ping had only entered the 7th layer 3 months ago. Although he somehow managed to enter the late stage of the 7th layer, he never thought that he would be able to enter the 8th layer. Even senior martial brother Yao Yong, who was praised as a genius by Master Immortal Lu, took 2.5 years to reach the 8th layer. 4th senior martial sister Shi Lingling was only 13 years old when she entered the 7th layer, and it took her 2 years to reach the 8th layer. Now that she was 17 years old, she was already at the late stage of the 8th layer, but it was still a long way off for her to reach the 9th layer. Would he be able to enter the 8th layer? Lu Ping shook his head and decided not to dwell on this question anymore. The morning sun was just like the disciples of the True Spirit side yard. It contained a strong vitality as it broke free from the sky. Their joyful faces dyed the entire True Spirit side yard with a layer of different colors. The True Spirit Side Hall's Grade 2 Disciple Ranking Competition was held in the Side Hall Square. 9 arenas rose from the center of the square. 8 of the arenas formed a circle around a large arena in the center. Below the central arena, more than 200 Grade 2 disciples were divided into 20 teams. Each team had a different number of people, ranging from 14 to 15. Even the smallest team had 10 people. Each team was led by a blood condensation realm master immortal. The 8 arenas were already crowded with people. The Grade 1 and Grade 3 disciples of the True Spirit Side Hall, who were not qualified to participate in the competition, were here to watch the Level 2 disciples ranking competition. There were also some outer sect disciples. There were tens of thousands of people. Amidst the commotion, a clear voice shouted, "Disciples, silence." The entire square was dead silent. A middle-aged master immortal walked to the central arena, and the disciples below the arena started whispering again. Lu Ping recognized him. He was Master Immortal Wang of Group 1. All the Master Immortals of the Grade 2 disciples looked up to him. Rumor had it that this Master Immortal had already reached the late stage of the blood condensation realm. This was the last batch of Grade 2 disciples he would be leading. In the future he would be in charge of the Grade 3 disciples. Master Immortal Wang had a dignified look on his face. He walked to the arena and shouted, "Lead the Master Immortals to the central arena." All disciples welcomed the Dean, Perfected Master. Master Immortal Lu and the other 20 people flew to the arena. They bowed to the disciples and shouted in unison, "Welcome, Perfected Master." Haha. A burst of laughter could be heard. It wasn't loud, but everyone could hear it clearly. This is the disciple ranking competition that happens once every 5 years. Every time, I have to trouble everyone to wait here. This old Taoist is very sorry. When the laughter sounded, the Dean was still nowhere to be seen. When he started to speak, the crowd saw 3 beams of green light shooting in from outside the side hall. When he finished speaking, an old man was already standing on the central arena, followed by 2 middle-aged Taoists. From the beginning to the end, the voice in the crowd's ears didn't change at all. If they hadn't seen the old man flying over from afar, they would have thought that he had been standing on the arena all along. Chapter 7. The old man was dressed in a green Taoist robe. He was Zhenling Side Hall's dean, a core forging enlightened master Shen Yong. Taoist master Shen Yong had an amiable and approachable demeanor, earning him the respect of the Side Hall's disciples and master immortals. He stood on the stage with two middle-aged cultivators dressed in Taoist robes beside him. Taoist master Shen Yong smiled and said, "The disciples have worked hard in their cultivation, and the master immortals have contributed greatly." The master immortals quickly thanked him. Taoist master Shen Yong pointed at the two people beside him and said, "I believe you know these two, but I'm afraid the disciples below don't know them. Let me introduce them." He pointed at the tall and skinny cultivator on his left and said, "This is enlightened master Shen Su." He then pointed at the red-faced cultivator on his right and said, "This is enlightened master Shen Su." The disciples were shocked. There were actually two enlightened masters. These disciples were the only core forging enlightened masters in the side hall. Even Dean Shen Yong rarely saw them. Most of the disciples only saw him once every 5 years during the competition. This time there were actually 3 enlightened masters. How could the disciples not be excited? If they performed well in the competition and received the favor of any of the enlightened masters, they could immediately become an inner disciple and advance to the blood condensation realm. Lu Ping looked at the 3 enlightened masters on the stage. Although his heart was filled with admiration, there was still a trace of calmness in his heart. 3 enlightened masters attending a blood refining realm competition meant that the competition this time was indeed extraordinary. However, what Lu Ping couldn't understand was why a core forging enlightened master would pay attention to a competition between blood refining realm cultivators. After more than 200 disciples drew lots, they would fight in pairs. The competition would be held on 8 small arenas. The first round would determine the top 128 disciples. There would be 2 rounds a day, and on the first day the top 64 would be decided. A small barrier rose around the 8 small stages. Lu Ping knew that this was a type of array formation. It could prevent attacks from cultivators below the blood condensation realm from accidentally injuring the people outside the stage. Each stage would be presided over by a blood condensation realm master immortal. Enlightened Master Shen Yong didn't waste time and announced the start of the competition. The disciples went to the central stage to draw lots. Lu Ping didn't expect himself to be lucky enough to draw a bye, but he also didn't expect to draw an 8th or 9th layer blood refining realm senior. After all, more than half of the participants were in the 7th layer. Lu Ping's first opponent was a mid-stage 7th layer blood refining realm disciple from Group 12. This disciple looked even younger than Lu Ping. He was about 15 years old. He was tall and thin, with a chilly face that had a hint of pride. Li Sheng did have the right to be arrogant. He was only 15 years old this year, but he had already reached the mid-stage of the 7th layer blood refining realm. Not only was he talented in cultivation, but he was also as hard-working as the other disciples. Not only his family, but even Immortal Master Fong also praised him for entering the blood condensation realm. There were 5 geniuses among the grade 2 disciples. They were Group 1's Lin Sheng, Group 5's Zhao Lang, Group 7's Shi Lingling, Group 14's Leng Qian, and Group 18's Qian Fei. These 5 geniuses were known as the 5 talents. They were all in the 8th or 9th layer of the blood refining realm because they had all entered the 7th layer of the blood refining realm before the age of 14. Li Sheng had always thought of himself as the 6th prodigy, only behind the 5 of them. He heard that the sect had given him a generous reward for the competition, and his family had even prepared a high-quality low-grade mystic instrument and a large number of talismans for him. He was extremely ambitious, thinking that even if he encountered an 8th layer blood refining realm senior disciple, he would still be able to defeat them. Even ordinary 9th layer blood refining realm disciples wouldn't be a problem for him. Therefore, when this ordinary 16 or 17-year-old 7th layer blood refining realm disciple stood in front of him, Li Sheng naturally thought that this was a stepping stone for him to advance to the next round. Lu Ping looked at this teenager and smiled. He took out his high-grade mystic weapon and made the starting stance of the blood condensation bone refining sword. He then said to Li Sheng, "Junior brother, please?" Li Sheng saw that Lu Ping was actually using this basic sword technique. It was obvious that he was just an ordinary disciple without any family background. The disdain on his face deepened. Clang, clang. Li Sheng took out a top-grade mystic weapon and made the starting stance of a technique passed down in his family. He thought to himself, "Father said that this 24 violent wind swords is quite powerful in the blood-refining realm. An ordinary disciple without any family background like me probably hasn't even heard of this sword technique before." Lu Ping really hadn't seen this sword technique before. He looked at this minor repairs warrior who looked like a child showing off his toys and thought it was ridiculous. However, through this unfamiliar sword technique, he could sense the hidden danger within it. The top-grade mystic weapon in Li Sheng's hand flashed and a white light flashed. Lu Ping immediately felt a surge of transcendence energy hidden in the white light emitted by the mystic weapon. It was heading straight for his face. Even before the technique ended, his face was already hurting from the slash. Lu Ping calmly took the attack. He turned around and dodged the white light. The mystic weapon in his hand also slashed at Li Sheng's wrist with a sword chi. Li Sheng didn't care at all. Relying on the sharpness of his mystic weapon, he pushed Lu Ping's mystic weapon to the side. He made a hand seal with his left hand and chanted at the same time. A flame rose up. He was waiting for Lu Ping's mystic weapon to be pushed away and revealed an opening so that he could catch him off guard. Unexpectedly, when the two dermic armaments met, Li Sheng suddenly felt a strong transcendence power being transmitted to his dermic armament. For a moment he couldn't keep up. Not only did he not manage to parry the opponent's dermic armament, but he was also pushed back 2 steps by this force before he could resolve it. The flame spell in his hand was hit by this surge of transcendence energy and was easily dodged by Lu Ping. The flames that exploded were completely blown away by Lu Ping's simple clear breeze spell. The look of contempt on Li Sheng's face faded a lot. This person's transcendence energy was so strong that it was actually not inferior to his. It seemed that he would have to fight him. However, when he thought of the wealth in his storage bag, Li Sheng immediately felt a lot more confident. Lu Ping looked at the soybean-sized chip on the high-grade mystic weapon in his hand and couldn't help but smile bitterly. This mystic weapon had only been in his possession for 3 months and he had only used it twice. Yet it was already so heavily damaged. Li Sheng raised the mystic weapon in his hand and attacked again. He used the 24 gale swords, each sword faster and faster than the previous one. At the same time, the spells in his hand were more powerful than the previous one. Occasionally there were a few talismans mixed in as he attacked Lu Ping. For a moment, Lu Ping really felt a little flustered. The opponent's sword technique was like a passing gale, it was simply all-pervasive. There were also spells like the Flame spell, the Ice Seal spell, the Wind Blade spell, the Golden Sword spell, the Giantwood spell and other spells mixed in. When he finally managed to catch a breath with his solid foundation, before he could even counterattack, the opponent would send another talisman at him. Lu Ping looked at the lower grade and even the middle grade blood refinement talismans flying at him as if they were free. It was as if spirit stones were wasted in front of his eyes. In his heart he cursed the wastrel. Fortunately, this Li Sheng still has some sense and didn't treat the top grade talismans as nothing. Just as Lu Ping was sighing, an ice blade talisman exploded in front of him. The vast spiritual power fluctuations gave Lu Ping a fright. He wanted to slap himself. This was clearly a top-grade talisman. The cold air had already caused the hairs on Lu Ping's body to stand on end before the 3 crystal-clear ice blades hit him. Chapter 8. Lu Ping cursed himself for being a jinx as he took out a high-grade blood talisman from his cuff pocket, Vajra talisman, and patted it on his body. A golden radiance with traces of red lines emitted from Lu Ping's body, as if he was wearing a set of golden armor. 3 sparkling and translucent ice blades collided with the protective golden radiance one after another, and only an ear-piercing sound could be heard as the 3 ice blades turned into ice shards all over the ground. Although the golden radiance on Lu Ping's body had dimmed by more than half, but it still formed a thin layer around Lu Ping's body, tenaciously protecting Lu Ping's safety. Li Sheng originally thought that his high-grade talisman would certainly cause Lu Ping to defend with all his might, or even injure him, so that he could gain the absolute upper hand. Who would have thought that Lu Ping would also take out a high-grade talisman, counteracting his own talisman attack, making him unable to use any of the methods he had prepared for this talisman. It was as if his well-prepared punch had landed on cotton, making Li Sheng extremely depressed. Li Sheng intended to change his offensive and continue to pressure Lu Ping, but he suddenly discovered that the magic effect of his opponent's high-grade talisman had not disappeared, and a faint layer of golden radiance was still being emitted. How is this possible? When Lu Ping took out the talisman and patted it on his body, Li Sheng clearly saw that it was a high-grade talisman, and the magic effect of two high-grade talismans should cancel each other out, right? When Li Sheng's offensive was interrupted by two consecutive accidents, Lu Ping did not hesitate. Now, not only was he not hesitating, but he was also somewhat angry. The blood talisman was one of his trump cards, but he was forced to reveal it in the first round, not to mention how many spirit stones a high-grade talisman cost? 3. Then what about a high-grade blood talisman? A conservative estimate would be at least 5 spirit stones. This was the same as throwing spirit stones away in the water. In Lu Ping's 10 years of bitter cultivation, wasting cultivation resources was unforgivable. If it was said that Li Sheng's act of selling talismans as if they were worthless just now was to make Lu Ping unhappy, then now it was because he was angry out of humiliation. Taking advantage of the fact that the talisman's effect was still in effect and the opponent's attack was thwarted, Lu Ping used the art realm he had just recently comprehended. He swung the blood-melting bone-refining sword into a huge ball of light and smashed it towards Li Sheng. Lu Ping's cultivation level was higher than Li Sheng's, and he had a solid foundation. It was only because of his disadvantage in dermic armaments and Li Sheng's talisman tactics that Lu Ping was at a disadvantage. Now that they had the upper hand, the counterattack was stronger than the previous one. Li Sheng now fully understood what it meant to feel aggrieved. Just a moment ago he had the absolute upper hand and was feeling extremely satisfied. But in the blink of an eye, his offense and defense had switched, and he had become the one being suppressed. It was fine if he was at a disadvantage, but it wasn't like he didn't have a chance. After all, he still had several high-grade talismans and an artifact that he hadn't used yet. But the problem now was that he didn't have the time to activate that artifact. He was completely suppressed by his opponent's moves. It was indeed a complete suppression. Li Sheng couldn't understand. The blood-melting bone-refining sword was only a basic sword technique. How could it suppress his 24 violent wind swords? Not to mention that he was very familiar with the blood-melting bone-refining sword. How could his opponent use this basic sword technique so quickly? How could it be so powerful? Li Sheng was a little flustered. After all, he was still a child that wasn't even 15 years old. If he could keep his composure and observe Lu Ping's swordsmanship carefully, he would discover that Lu Ping's swordsmanship was very smooth, without the slightest flaw. Perhaps Lu Ping's switching between moves wasn't very standard, but the moment he switched between moves was very much in line with the situation he was in during the battle. It felt as if Lu Ping's swordsmanship was at his whim. It could be said that this sword technique was no longer the monastery's basic sword technique, but rather Lu Ping's own sword technique. This was the realm of technique. Breaking away from the standard sword technique, fusing it with one's own understanding, turning it into a sword technique. At this time the spectators could see that Li Sheng was about to lose. He no longer had any leeway to retaliate. His defeat was only a matter of time. After all, Li Sheng was a young genius. He had a bit of fame in the monastery, so there were still quite a few people watching him. In addition, there were also people from the 7th group that Lu Ping was in. Seeing Lu Ping's victory was in sight, they couldn't help cheering. Among them were 1st Senior Apprentice Yao Yong, 2nd Senior Apprentice Du Feng, and 4th Senior Apprentice Shi Lingling. 4th Senior Apprentice Shi Lingling said with a smile, "I didn't expect that 10th Junior Apprentice Lu Ping had also comprehended the realm of technique. I didn't see it during his last match with Li Cheng." Yao Yong said, "The last time they fought was short. The two of them only exchanged 20 to 30 moves before the victor was decided. Not to mention, Lu Ping had just comprehended the state of technique at that time. Otherwise, Master Immortal Lu wouldn't have given him special treatment right after his battle with Li Cheng." Shi Lingling nodded and said, "First Senior Apprentice is right. I remember that 1st Senior Apprentice and 2nd Senior Apprentice both comprehended the realm of technique when they were in the 8th layer of blood refining realm." Yao Yong said, "Indeed, but 4th Junior Apprentice also comprehended the realm when she was in the 7th layer. Moreover, she was only 15 years old at that time." Shi Lingling didn't deny it. Instead, she said, 10th Junior Apprentice brother's talisman should be a blood talisman. I didn't expect him to have such a talisman. How generous of him." Yao Yong said, "A high-grade blood talisman should be 2 to 3 times more powerful than an ordinary high-grade talisman. However, making this kind of talisman requires blood as a catalyst. True spirit cultivators like us rarely use this kind of talisman because our cultivation is in our blood." Shi Lingling giggled and didn't say anything else. Yao Yong said, "Let's go. This round is about to end. We still have to prepare for the second round in the afternoon." After saying that, the three of them walked towards Group 7's resting area. Du Feng didn't say a word from the beginning to the end. It turned out that the three of them had already finished their matches. In the middle of the arena, the leaders of the 20 teams gathered together and discussed spiritedly. This time Master Immortal Lu was quite satisfied. Whether it was the number of people in Group 7 who advanced to the late blood refining realm or the number of people in Group 7 who advanced to the late blood refining realm, they were the best among the 20 groups. Master Immortal Shen Yong praised him and gave him a generous reward. With this reward, he could advance to the late blood condensation realm and be one step closer to the core forging realm. Junior Apprentice Brother Lu's Group 7 has a great result this time. The one who spoke was Master Immortal Fong from Group 12. Senior Apprentice Brother Fong is too kind. Senior Apprentice Brother Fong's group is also not bad. There are 10 people in the late blood refining realm, Master Immortal Lu said slowly, but his eyes were shining brightly. Haha, you two don't have to be so polite. In the past competitions, every group would have to bet on a battle. It seems like there will be no exception this time. What do you all think? It was Master Immortal Wang from Group 1. The other Master Immortals also took the opportunity to clamor, "That's right, a battle." A battle. Same old rules. Each team will contribute 20 mid-grade spirit stones, and the Master Immortals from the 5 best teams will split the reward. What do you think? Sure, the team with the best result will get 30% of the spirit stones, and the team in 5th place will get exactly 1% of the spirit stones as the reward. What do you think? That's great. We'll need Chancellor Shen Yong to be the witness. All the Master Immortals talked at once, and in the blink of an eye, they had clearly explained the rules of the bet. Clearly this was not their first time playing this game. Master Immortal Shen Yong smiled and said, "This old Taoist will be the witness. But don't forget the task after the competition. Each team will have to pick a few disciples in the late Qi refining realm to participate in the sex trial." The Master Immortals' faces turned solemn, and they responded in unison. Chapter 9. Lu Ping didn't give Li Xing any more chances. Li Xing didn't even have the chance to take out his mystic artifact. He didn't even have the chance to use a high-grade talisman. He could only use a few mid-grade and low-grade talismans, but they couldn't even break through the golden aura around Lu Ping. In the end, Li Xing also recognized that Lu Ping's high-grade talisman was a blood talisman. Lu Ping was willing to spend spirit stones on this kind of talisman. It seemed like he had some spirit stones on him. Li Xing was stabbed in the shoulder by Lu Ping. The Master Immortal who hosted the competition had already cast a spell on Li Xing, blocking Lu Ping's mystic artifact. Lu Ping sheathed his sword and stood upright. The Master Immortal announced that Lu Ping was the winner and advanced to the next round. The second round in the afternoon was still against a 7th layer disciple. However, this disciple didn't have as much wealth as Li Xing. He only used a high-grade mystic artifact to fight Lu Ping. Lu Ping took the opportunity to familiarize himself with the technique, state, and easily entered the top 64. At night, everyone returned to the side courtyard under Master Immortal Lu's lead. On the first day of the competition, Group 7 performed well. The 12 7th layer disciples, with a bit of luck, all made it into the second round. Master Immortal Lu enjoyed the surprised looks from the Master Immortals. Unfortunately, in the second round, a few disciples drew unlucky lots and met a few tough opponents. Among the 12 disciples, the 7th, 8th, 9th and 11th disciples of the 7th layer were eliminated one after another. Even the 6th senior martial brother Guilin, who had just entered the 8th layer, was unfortunately matched against a 9th layer disciple from Group 1. In the end, the two of them used all their mystic instruments and high-grade talismans, and Guilin was defeated. Even so, Group 7, with 7 disciples in the top 64, was ranked 4th among the 20 groups. Group 1, with 9 disciples in the top 64, was ranked 1st, while Group 5 and Group 18 with 8 disciples, were tied for 2nd place. What surprised Lu Ping was that the 12th disciple, Zhang Zicheng, also entered the top 64. It seemed like even the 11th disciple, Li Cheng, might not be his match. Master Immortal Lu was in high spirits, and he commented on everyone's performance during the battle. Everyone felt that they had benefited greatly, and even the 5 people who had been eliminated were in a much better mood. Only then did Lu Ping realize that the 1st senior, 2nd senior and 4th senior had already reached the realm of technique. It seemed that there were many geniuses out there and he was nothing. The fact that Lu Ping had also comprehended this realm surprised all the other disciples except for the 1st, 2nd and 4th disciples. Li Cheng gnashed his teeth in hatred and his expression changed drastically. When Lu Ping returned to his residence, he was congratulated by a few disciples whom he got along well with. After exchanging pleasantries, Lu Ping carefully reflected on Master Immortal Lu's comments and explanations. He compared them with his own 2 battles and felt that he had learned a lot. Thus, he swallowed a blood purification pill and held a spirit stone in his hand to cultivate. The next day, Lu Ping woke up early in the morning. He felt that the spiritual energy in his bloodline had become denser, and he was 1 step closer to the 8th level. He was in a good mood. The courtyard was already crowded with people. When they saw the contestants from their respective groups, they cheered in unison. If they met a famous level 2 disciple such as 4th Senior Shi Lingling who was one of the 5 talents, the crowd would be even more excited, just like how Lu Ping chased after his idols in his previous life. Lu Ping's opponent in the 3rd round was an 8th level blood refining realm disciple, Yuan Zhan from Group 17. This made the disciples from Group 7 who had been paying attention to Lu Ping feel rather disheartened. Lu Ping's heart was also beating fast, but when he thought of the 2 mystic instruments in his arms, he immediately calmed down. Yuan Zhan was 21 years old and held a top-grade mystic weapon in his hand. This 16 or 17-year-old kid in front of him was very nervous at first, but now he suddenly calmed down. Did he know that he would definitely lose? Yuan Zhan smiled and the 2 of them bowed to each other. Under the command of Master Immortal Lu, Yuan Zhan used the soul flies in the dark and stabbed straight at Lu Ping's throat. Yuan Zhan fought for the initiative and used a killing move right from the start, without the slightest bit of hesitation or probing. Lu Ping did not dare to face Yuan Zhan's attack head-on. Yuan Zhan's attacks were faster and faster, and each sword was stronger than the previous one. It was like a flowing river. At the same time, Yuan Zhan's left hand was also making all kinds of hand seals, and he kept muttering incantations. One after another, spells flew towards Lu Ping. For a moment, Lu Ping was flustered. His body was hit several times by the spells, and a few holes were burned in his clothes. Ice shards were stuck in the bun on his head, and half of his left sleeve was cut off by the wind blades. His right ankle was still wrapped around by a withered vine that he had cut off. Fortunately, Lu Ping had a strong foundation, so the spells that were hit were weakened by half by Lu Ping beforehand. Otherwise, he would not have been able to last until now. On the central stage, Group 12's Master Immortal Fang saw that Lu Ping could only defend himself. He couldn't help but chuckle and say, "Senior Martial Brother Lu, it seems like your group's good luck ends here today." Group 12, led by Master Immortal Fang, originally had a similar result as Group 7. However, this year, Group 7 had 12 late blood refining realm disciples, and more than 30 of them had entered the Level 3 disciple assessment, far surpassing his own group. When he thought about how both of them were in the 6th layer of the blood condensation realm, and how Master Immortal Lu had obtained a large amount of cultivation resources, it was only a matter of time before he entered the 7th layer. On top of that, Li Sheng, who was quite strong in his group, was eliminated by Lu Ping yesterday. Master Immortal Lu couldn't help but feel a little jealous. Master Immortal Lu smiled and said, "My cultivation is still a level lower than yours, it's only natural that I lose." Although he looked indifferent, his eyes were focused on Lu Ping's match. In the late blood refining realm, every step was a hurdle. Even though Lu Ping's swordsmanship had reached the realm of technique, his transcendence energy was too far away, and his spells had yet to reach the realm of technique. Lu Ping gritted his teeth. For the sake of the sect's generous rewards, he couldn't care less. He took out 2 high-grade blood talismans with his left hand, slapped a protective talisman on himself, and threw a golden sword talisman at Yuan Zhan. Yuan Zhan sneered and said, "I've been waiting for you. You're not the only one with a blood talisman." As he said that, he also threw out a blood talisman and a few water swords flew out from it. The water swords collided with the golden swords and none of them hit their target. At the same time, the top-grade mystic weapon in his hand struck out, 7 stars shine, at Lu Ping. Lu Ping tried his best to defend himself and deflected 5 of the attacks, but the remaining 2 struck the silver light barrier around him. The silver light barrier trembled violently and was on the verge of collapsing. Yuan Zhan threw out another giant wood technique, and Lu Ping blocked it with a Vajra shield spell. Still, his transcendence energy was insufficient, and the giant wood that he missed smashed into the silver light protecting him. Lu Ping used the 3 suns opening tie, and 3 consecutive sword strikes shot out 3 sword chi. The sword strikes were natural, and Lu Ping counterattacked without any jerkiness. After winning an opening, he quickly slapped an ice shield talisman on his body. Yuan Zhan snorted. So this is swordsmanship that has reached the realm of technique? Sure enough, the moves are sharp and fast, but it's all in vain because I don't have enough transcendence energy. Yuan Zhan made 2 consecutive sword strikes and cut off 2 sword chi. At the same time, a yellow light appeared in front of him. It was an ordinary high-grade talisman, the Earth Wall technique. The 3rd sword strike hit it and it only shook a little. Lu Ping was now quite annoyed. Since it was a competition of talismans, then let's do it properly. He waved his left hand and 3 upper-grade blood talismans flew towards Yuan Zhan, the Falling Stone technique, the Fire Crow strike, and the Water Binding technique. Chapter 10. Lu Ping attacked with 2 blood talismans. This time, it was Yuan Zhan's turn to curse him for being a wastrel. The disciples below the stage were also in an uproar. This guy had used 4 blood talismans in such a short period of time. Yuan Zhan's Earth Wall technique was just an ordinary talisman. It could not withstand the attack of the blood talismans. Yuan Zhan quickly used another Earth Shield technique talisman. At the same time, he used his only remaining high-grade blood talisman. The talisman turned into a fire dragon and swallowed the Fire Raven talisman. At the same time, Yuan Zhan's right hand released several sword chi in succession, breaking the other water binding technique talisman. At this point he had no time to block the falling rock technique talisman. 3 huge rocks that weighed more than 1,000 pounds smashed onto the 2 defensive talismans on Yuan Zhan's body. The 2 talismans were smashed into pieces. Yuan Zhan was also pushed back by the huge force. Seeing that this was a rare opportunity, Lu Ping continued to attack. He used his technique, swordsmanship in succession. At the same time, the spells in his left hand were coordinated with the swordsmanship in his right hand. One after another, the spells were released smoothly. They were almost as fast as the speed of the swords. On the stage in the center, Master Immortal Lu saw that Lu Ping had instantly gained the upper hand. At the same time, the spells in his left hand were also extremely fast. Master Immortal Lu couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, attracting the attention of the surrounding masters. He actually mastered the technique state in a battle. How rare. One of the Master Immortals said. Both his swordsmanship and spells have reached the technique state. It won't be easy to determine the winner of this battle. Another Master Immortal said. Only Master Immortal Fong didn't look happy. He snorted in his heart. His face was calm but the corner of his eyes kept twitching. No one knew what he was thinking. Lu Ping suddenly gained the upper hand and mastered the technique state. His morale was high and he kept attacking. Yuan Zhan, on the other hand, had a higher cultivation level so he could barely hold on. Yuan Zhan was angry and frustrated at the same time. Initially, he had the upper hand, but in the blink of an eye, the situation had taken a turn for the worse. It seemed like he had to use his trump card. Initially, Yuan Zhan wanted to use this trump card to fight against the 9th layer blood refining realm cultivators, but now he couldn't care less. Amidst the exclamations of the crowd, a silver longsword floated above Yuan Zhan's head. Amidst the silver light, a sharp aura was pointed straight at Lu Ping. Lu Ping immediately felt as if his face had been cut by a small knife and it hurt. Dharma artifact. It's an Dharma artifact. Amidst the exclamations of the crowd, Yuan Zhan smiled ferociously and continuously channeled his magic power into the long sword. When Lu Ping saw Yuan Zhan take out his Dharma artifact, his face was solemn, but he did not panic. If he had a Dharma artifact, it wouldn't be strange for others to have one as well. Lu Ping attacked Yuan Zhan with spells to prevent him from injecting spiritual power into the magic tool. At the same time, he secretly injected his own magic tool, the Copper Mirror. As the two of them were locked in a stalemate, the disciples below the stage held their breaths. Even the Master Immortals in the center of the stage had their attention focused on them. In the blink of an eye, the silver sword above Yuan Zhan's head turned into a beam of light, flashing past everyone's eyes as it flew towards Lu Ping. The crowd felt sorry for Lu Ping. They thought they would be able to enjoy a good show of someone challenging a higher-level opponent, but they didn't expect Yuan Zhan to have a Dharma artifact as a backup. Just when the crowd thought that Lu Ping would lose for sure, they heard a loud ding. The disciples thought that the host Master Immortal had blocked the attack of the Dharma artifact, but when they turned their heads, they saw a copper mirror hovering in the air in front of Lu Ping, blocking the silver flying sword. Another Dharma artifact. Both of them had Dharma artifacts. This was going to be interesting. The disciples below the stage were instantly in high spirits. Even Master Immortal Lu was stunned for a moment, but then he was overjoyed. Yuan Zhan thought that victory was in his grasp, but he didn't expect Lu Ping to also have a Dharma artifact, a defensive one at that. Damn it! Yuan Zhan cursed under his breath. He withdrew the silver flying sword and infused his spiritual energy into it, preparing for the second attack. Blood-refining realm disciples didn't have divine sense, so they couldn't control the Dharma artifact to attack or defend. They couldn't change the Dharma artifact freely, so they could only use it like Yuan Zhan. Now Yuan Zhan could only hope that he could defeat Lu Ping in terms of spiritual energy. Lu Ping also hurriedly withdrew the copper mirror and prepared to block the second attack. At the same time, he took out 2 high-grade blood talismans and prepared for it. Just as Yuan Zhan was about to launch the second attack, Lu Ping used the copper mirror to block the attack and shot out 2 blood talismans. Yuan Zhan didn't expect Lu Ping's spiritual energy to be so strong. It was almost on par with his 8th layer cultivation. He was caught off guard by the 2 blood talismans. He hurriedly injected his remaining spiritual energy into the magic weapon and threw it out. At the cost of destroying the magic weapon, he managed to block one of the blood talismans. However, he was powerless to block the second blood talisman. He could only watch helplessly as the blood talisman turned into 3 wooden thorns and stabbed towards him. A spell was cast, which turned into a silver shield and blocked Lu Ping's blood talisman. The host Master Immortal shouted, "Group 7 Lu Ping wins." Lu Ping let out a long sigh of relief. That was close. He didn't expect to be almost eliminated in the top 64. He couldn't help but smile bitterly when he remembered that he still wanted to enter the top 16 before the competition. After getting off the stage, Lu Ping was naturally congratulated by his seniors and juniors. It turned out that his battle was the longest. No matter who won or lost, the rest of the contestants had already finished their battles. The round of battles in the morning was already quite intense. Many disciples with strong strengths had begun to reveal their talents, and the appearance of magic tools was no longer new. There were also many disciples with good strengths who had drawn lots to fight each other in advance. After the intense battles, although the spectators had a feast for their eyes, they also felt endless pity for the disciples who had lost. Zhao Lang and Chen Fei, who were part of the 5 talents, faced off against 2 famous 9th-layer blood-refining realm disciples. Even though both of them gave it their all and each of them had 2 mystic instruments, they still lost due to insufficient spiritual energy. The one who eliminated Chen Fei was the 2nd senior martial brother, Du Feng. Senior martial brother Yao Yong won with ease. He defeated a disciple who had just reached the 9th-layer blood-refining realm with only a low-grade mystic instrument. During the battle, Yao Yong's mystic instrument and mystic instrument had both reached the state of technique. Without using a single talisman, he easily defeated his opponent. Then there was 4th senior sister Shi Lingling. With her 8th-layer blood-refining realm cultivation, she fought against a 9th-layer disciple. She was also in the technique realm of weapon and magic. She used 2 mystic artifacts and a few high-grade talismans to defeat her opponent, saving the reputation of the 5 talents from falling. Only 4 people from Group 7 were left in the top 32. They were 1st senior brother Yao Yong, 2nd senior brother Du Feng, 4th senior sister Shi Lingling and Lu Ping. The rest of the disciples were eliminated. Among the top 32, more than half of the disciples were in the 9th-layer blood-refining realm. Other than Lu Ping, the rest were all 8th-layer blood-refining realm disciples. Suddenly, Lu Ping became the center of attention. Lu Ping, who had always kept a low profile, was not used to it. Master Immortal Lu, who was in the center of the arena, was also one of the people who was praised. With 4 disciples in the top 32, even if all the disciples were eliminated in the next round, he would still be in the top 5 of Group 7. Before the 4th round of the competition began, Lu Ping had a bad feeling. As expected, when the matchups were announced, the Master Immortal in charge of drawing lots shouted, "Group 7 Lu Ping versus Group 14 Ling Qian." Chapter 11. As soon as the match was announced, everyone in Group 7 sighed and looked at Lu Ping pitifully as if saying, "Senior, your luck has come to an end." Lu Ping could feel it clearly. Li Cheng and the others even had a gloating expression on their faces. Shi Lingling, who was wearing a fiery red dress, walked to Lu Ping and giggled, "10th Junior, do your best. I have faith in you." His words made Lu Ping's face flush red, and the disciples around him burst into laughter. First senior martial brother Yao Yong also walked over and said, "Do your best. Junior's strength is already quite extraordinary. Even if you lose this match, no one can say anything." Second senior martial brother Du Feng still did not say anything. He only nodded at Lu Ping as he walked past. These three were the strongest in Group 7 and formed a small team. If it was not for the fact that Shi Lingling did not challenge him, the third senior martial brother would already be hers. This time the three of them greeted Lu Ping together. Obviously they acknowledged Lu Ping's strength. Lung Qian's cultivation level was at the 9th layer blood refining realm, a level higher than Shi Lingling. The two of them were known as the two beauties among the grade 2 disciples because not only were their cultivation levels high, but their beauty was also at the level of femme fatale. There were close to 1,000 grade 2 disciples, but only 5 of them had reached the late blood refining realm before the age of 14. They were known as the 5 talents. Among the 5, 2 of them had reached the 9th layer. They were Group 1's Lin Sheng and Group 14's Lung Qian. Although Lung Qian had just reached the 9th layer less than a year ago, it was still a testament to her strength. Unlike Shi Lingling's cheerful attitude, Lung Qian's face was solemn, giving off an unapproachable feeling. However, it just so happened that this expression caused all the disciples to rush forward and fight to curry favor with her. However, Lung Qian always maintained an indifferent attitude towards all of them. When Lu Ping walked up to the stage, Lung Qian, who was dressed in white, was already standing on the stage. According to the rules, Lu Ping bowed and said, "Senior, after you." Then he took out his superior grade dermic armament and got into a stance, ready to fight. Lung Qian was also a little curious. Looking at this dark horse disciple, he was indeed a little different. When other disciples came up to the stage, they would always humbly say a few words to her and put on a fake expression. But this guy was different. He was ready to fight the moment he came up. What she didn't know was that Lu Ping had seen too many beauties in his memory, to the point where he was immune to them. Although the beauty in front of him was pleasing to the eye, Lu Ping had never had a good impression of women like Miju Shirtai. With a wave of Lung Qian's hand, a top-grade dermic armament, the fairy sword, appeared in her hand. With a wave of her hand, she executed the fairy sword techniques. "Where do you come from?" A sword gleam flickered as it slashed towards Lu Ping's right shoulder. Again Lu Ping used the blood-melting bone-refining sword to block the attack. The two of them exchanged a few blows. After testing each other's strength, Lung Qian took the initiative to attack first. She tightened her grip on the long sword in her hand, and at the same time she executed several spells to complement the attack of the longsword. Lu Ping cursed in his heart. Another technique state in both weapon and spell. Geniuses nowadays are really worthless. Looking at the girl in front of him who was about the same age as him, but had a cultivation level 2 levels higher than him, Lu Ping's joy of finally comprehending the technique state instantly turned into a puddle of water. In the eyes of the crowd, Lu Ping being on the defensive seemed so reasonable. At this moment Lu Ping felt a little sullen. He was at a complete disadvantage. Even after he had consecutively used 2 superior grade blood talismans, he had only bought himself a little time to catch his breath. He didn't even have a chance to counterattack. I lost just like that? Lu Ping wasn't willing to give up. Little did he know that Lung Qian was also quite surprised. Even the peak 8th layer blood refining realm disciple who fought with her in the last round did not last so long under her attack. Initially she thought that this dark horse was just a disciple who was lucky. Now it seemed that he had his own unique points. Not to mention the fact that he had comprehended the technique state in both weapon and spell at the 7th layer. Just from the timing of throwing the blood talismans, he had a very precise grasp of the rhythm of the battle, even better than her. Master Immortal Chen and her team once said that precise grasp of the rhythm of the battle was the foundation of mastering the technique state. Although this foundation was still a long way from mastering the technique state, it was still a foundation of a towering building. Was she not as good as this 7th layer blood refining realm disciple? Lung Qian gritted her teeth. Looking at Lu Ping who was at a disadvantage but still able to defend himself, Lung Qian couldn't help but feel annoyed. For some reason she intensified her attacks. For a moment, sword chi and spells flew everywhere. In the eyes of the audience, Lung Qian seemed to want to end the battle as soon as possible. Their spirits rose and they cheered for Lung Qian in unison. Just when the crowd was cheering for Lung Qian, a clear and melodious voice sounded, "Lu Ping, do your best." There was a strong sense of defiance in the voice. The crowd cursed under their breath. Who was this person? She was obviously looking for a beating. Looking at the source of the voice, it was Shi Lingling who was wearing a red muslin. So it was senior sister Shi. For a moment, hundreds of cold gazes melted like snow under the sun. It was so gentle that it gave people goosebumps. At this time Shi Lingling was drenched in sweat. It was obvious that she had just finished a battle. She ignored the stares from the crowd and continued to cheer for Lu Ping. It turned out that Shi Lingling had encountered an experienced 9th-layer blood-refining realm disciple. Even though she tried her best, the disciple was much stronger than her. In the end, the disciple even took out a mid-grade mystic artifact that only 9th-layer blood-refining realm cultivators could barely use. That was why Shi Lingling was no match for him and was eliminated from the top 16. After getting off the stage, Shi Lingling learned that Yao Yong and Du Feng had entered the top 16. She rushed to Lu Ping's place, but she didn't expect to see a group of people cheering for Lu Ping. She was unhappy. Lu Ping's opponent was none other than Leng Qian. Leng Qian and Shi Lingling were both known as the twin geniuses, but her cultivation base was a level higher than Shi Lingling's. This made the proud and arrogant Shi Lingling very unhappy. But this time, Leng Qian's victory was already in her grasp, and she would be able to enter the top 16. This made Shi Lingling even more uncomfortable. As the crowd cheered, the jealousy of the little girl flared up. Shi Lingling ignored everything else and started cheering for Lu Ping alone. Leng Qian was anxious because she couldn't defeat Lu Ping. Looking at Lu Ping's impenetrable defense, she felt a headache coming on. Leng Qian knew that Lu Ping had a defensive mystic instrument. She wanted to force it out with a quick attack so that she could defeat him with her mystic instrument. However, she didn't expect Lu Ping to be like water in a sponge. The more she thought he was dry, the more water would drip out under her pressure. In the end, Leng Qian decided to attack with her mystic instrument. It was just a little more effort. Besides, she didn't only have one mystic instrument. A hammer-shaped mystic instrument flew out from Leng Qian's interspatial pouch. It instantly grew to the size of a house and flew towards Lu Ping, causing the crowd to gasp in shock. The crowd looked at the ferocious weapon and then at the delicate young lady. For a moment they felt like they were in a different world. Even Shi Lingling was in disbelief when she saw Leng Qian's mystic instrument. Lu Ping was in danger. Chapter 12. Lu Ping was no longer in the mood to marvel at Leng Qian's mystic instrument. Right now he felt as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him and his life was hanging by a thread. Lu Ping could even sense that the master immortal presiding over the arena was ready to rescue him. In a moment of desperation, Lu Ping took out his Dharma artifact, the copper mirror, and poured his spiritual energy into it. At the same time he shot out 2 high-grade blood talismans towards Leng Qian, intending to obstruct her. Clang! After several loud sounds, Lu Ping's copper mirror was almost knocked away by the iron hammers. Even Lu Ping felt as if he was hit in the chest by a heavy object, causing him to retreat to the edge of the arena. Fortunately, Lu Ping's talismans attracted Leng Qian's attention. For a moment, Leng Qian couldn't follow up with her second attack. Otherwise, even if Lu Ping could receive it, he would still be thrown out of the arena. Raising his head, Lu Ping almost fainted from anger. He saw a shield-like Dharma artifact floating in front of Leng Qian, blocking the spells formed by the blood talismans. As expected, it was a dual Dharma artifact. Although Lu Ping had long guessed that Leng Qian would have 2 Dharma artifacts, he still had a trace of luck before his guess was confirmed. Lu Ping had used up a lot of his spiritual energy after fighting for a long time. It was a pity that he wasn't allowed to take pills to recover spiritual energy. Otherwise he could have used Dharma artifacts to fight with her. Seeing that his attacks were ineffective, Lu Ping focused on pouring his remaining spiritual energy into the copper mirror to block Leng Qian's Dharma artifact attacks. Clang. After another sound, Lu Ping blocked Leng Qian's attack again. At the same time, the blood in his body flowed rapidly, absorbing the surrounding spiritual energy to replenish the spiritual energy in his veins. Although it was a drop in the bucket, it was better than nothing. Seeing that Lu Ping had stopped attacking and was only defending with his Dharma artifact, Leng Qian immediately waved her sword and attacked Lu Ping again. Lu Ping cried out in pain and dodged to the side. For a time, the iron hammers in the sky continued to strike down, and Lu Ping dodged left and right under Leng Qian's sword, looking like a mouse in a very sorry state. At first, the spectators burst into laughter. Seeing that Lu Ping had blocked Leng Qian's magical weapon attacks 3 times in a row, and had even dodged Leng Qian's longsword attack, the laughter gradually died down. Is he really a 7th-layer blood-refining realm cultivator? After fighting for such a long time, how could he use the magic tool 3 times in a row? What a deep spiritual force. The battle had been going on for half an hour. More and more people had gathered below the stage. Now, only the battle between Lu Ping and Leng Qian had not ended. Lu Ping was extremely furious. When had he ever been beaten to such a sorry state? What's more, the one who beat him up was a beautiful woman in front of thousands of people. The longer Lu Ping persisted, the more unwilling he was to fail, and the greater the anger in his heart grew. He could only speed up the circulation of his bloodline to absorb the spiritual energy outside his body. At the same time, he activated every blood vessel in his body to absorb every strand of spiritual energy in his body. Lu Ping's heart was thumping so fast that it would stun anyone who saw it. Seeing that Leng Qian's magic tool was about to hit him for the fourth time, the bronze mirror floating above Lu Ping's head was already on the verge of collapse. However, Lu Ping still did not give up. He seized the time and injected every bit of spiritual force in his body into the bronze mirror. With a loud bang, the bronze mirror fell to the ground and the iron hammers bounced back. He blocked it, he actually blocked it. The spectators secretly exclaimed in their hearts and broke out in cold sweat for Lu Ping. Unknowingly, the spectators had been attracted by Lu Ping's strength and perseverance, forgetting that most of them were originally here for Leng Qian. Unfortunately, the magic tool fell to the ground. This meant that the spiritual force had been exhausted, and the spectators sighed loudly. Ah! At this moment, several surprised exclamations came from the center of the arena. The spectators turned to look at the center of the arena, then followed the gazes of the elders to look at Lu Ping. At this time, Lu Ping's eyes were wide open as he stared at Leng Qian. The bronze mirror that had fallen to the ground trembled, then slowly floated up again. If the spectators below the arena had reached the blood condensation realm and cultivated their divine sense, they would have discovered that a spiritual force vortex had formed around Lu Ping. Strands of spiritual force flew towards Lu Ping from all directions and were absorbed into his body. Breakthrough, a breakthrough in cultivation, a breakthrough in a battle of magical powers. Lu Ping felt his heartbeat suddenly slow down, but every beat was strong and powerful. His blood vessels suddenly became wide and tough. Countless capillaries extended out, sending spiritual force to various parts of his body that had not reached before. Then the absorbed spiritual force was stored in his blood vessels, tempering his flesh, skin, and bones. The dried-up spiritual force in his blood vessels was gradually replenished. Leng Qian didn't know how to describe her feelings. She admitted that she was impressed by this person's unyielding spirit, but he still had to lose. She had no choice and so did he. His originally expressionless face became even colder at this moment. The iron hammer in midair struck down once again. Amidst the exclamations of the crowd, the copper mirror that had just floated a foot high suddenly leaped up like a spring that had been pushed to the bottom, blocking the iron hammer once again. Before the spectators could react, they saw a small seal fly out from Lu Ping's chest. It instantly grew to a size of several meters and whistled towards Leng Qian. Leng Qian's expression changed. She didn't expect Lu Ping to have a breakthrough in his cultivation, didn't expect Lu Ping's counterattack to be so sharp, and didn't expect Lu Ping to have another magic tool. At the same time, this magic tool called Landslide was so powerful that it broke her black tortoise shield in one strike. At the same time, she saw 3 high-grade blood talismans fly out from Lu Ping's hands when he used Landslide. Leng Qian's spiritual force was also depleted from using magic tools continuously, especially when she blocked Landslide. The power of that attack was close to that of a mid-grade magic tool. Leng Qian had a pained expression on her face. How did he get such a magic tool? In a hurry, Leng Qian used all her strength to send out a sword aura and destroyed one of the talismans. The remaining 2 talismans were no longer able to block Lu Ping's attack. The hosting immortal blocked the 2 talismans. Leng Qian stared blankly at the opposite side. At this time, Lu Ping was sitting on the arena and began to consolidate his cultivation as if there was no one else around. I was defeated just like that? It was too much for the eyes to take in. The spectators below the arena only quietly watched everything that happened. Only now did a loud boom sound rang out. Turning defeat into victory, this was actually the result. The spectators felt that it was unexpected, but at the same time, they felt that everything was within reason. They accepted it with a clear conscience, and their hearts were suddenly filled with lofty sentiments. Never giving up, this was a battle of magical powers, this was the mentality of an expert. When the spectators looked at the arena again, Leng Qian had already walked down the arena. Whoosh whoosh, a few figures rushed up the arena. It was Yao Yong, Du Feng and Shi Lingling. The three of them formed a triangle and surrounded Lu Ping, protecting him. When the spectators looked up, they realized that Master Immortal Lu was already standing in the air above the arena. In the middle of the arena, Master Shen Yong sighed. With such spirit as a disciple, there's no need to worry about the sect's prosperity. Beside him, Master Shen Su said, "That girl is also persevering. Not bad." Shen Su said, "There were dozens of magical powers battles in 2 days. These two are not the only ones who are not bad." The three of them looked at each other and laughed loudly. Chapter 13. In Zhenling Side Hall's Grade 2 Disciple Group 7's residence, in Lu Ping's room, a pair of eyes suddenly opened in the dark room. Lu Ping stretched out his finger and a flame appeared. He flicked it onto a lamp and the dark room was instantly lit up. The room wasn't big, only about 10 feet in length and width. The furnishings in the room were simple and crude, with only a few daily necessities. It was clear that Lu Ping prioritized cultivation. Half a month had passed since the grand competition, and Lu Ping's 8th layer blood refining realm cultivation had finally stabilized. Lu Ping still had a lingering fear when he recalled what happened during the grand competition. That day, Lu Ping was lucky enough to break through at the last moment and block Leng Qian's attack. Then he hurriedly took out the mystic instrument, Landslide, and with the help of a few high-grade blood talismans, he defeated Leng Qian. However, the spiritual energy that Lu Ping had just accumulated was also depleted. Without the guidance of spiritual energy, his breakthrough was like a building without cement. It was on the verge of collapse. Once his cultivation collapsed, Lu Ping would either fall back to the 7th layer or suffer severe injuries that would take years to recover. This was why Lu Ping didn't even look at the result of his last attack. He fell to the ground and desperately circulated his mystic art. Fortunately, it wasn't too late. Master Immortal Lu took out a precious top-grade essence rejuvenation pill to prevent his cultivation from collapsing. However, Lu Ping couldn't participate in the grand competition on the 2nd day and could only forfeit. For the next half a month, Lu Ping went into closed-door cultivation to recover from his injuries and stabilize his cultivation. Lu Ping was afraid that this breakthrough would leave behind some hidden injuries that would affect his cultivation in the future. Therefore, he carefully used his arcane energy to comb through his body several times to ensure that he wasn't affected. Half a month later, Lu Ping came out from his closed-door cultivation. Not only did his cultivation stabilize, but his foundation was also strengthened. Although Lu Ping was disappointed that he had to stop in the top 16, when he thought about it, he realized that he wouldn't even be able to pass Leng Qian's test. Now that he had obtained the top 16's reward, it was already a huge gain. Thinking of the reward, Lu Ping felt a burst of excitement. He took off a small and exquisite blue pouch from his waist. This was the storage pouch. Lu Ping had seen it on Li Sheng and Leng Qian during the tournament. There was a space in the small pouch that could store a large amount of things. Moreover, it was easy to access. Lu Ping's eyes were filled with envy. Initially, he wanted to buy one from the market square after the competition, but he didn't expect that the prize of the competition would be delivered in a small interspatial pouch. This saved him yet another sum of spirit stones. Lu Ping channeled his spiritual energy into the storage bag. The storage bag could be used as long as he channeled his spiritual energy into it. Of course, once he reached the blood condensation realm, he could also use his divine sense to carve an array formation on the storage bag. Only the owner of the storage bag could use the storage bag. For now, Lu Ping could only use the storage bag in the simplest way. Crush. The prizes of the grand competition were poured onto the ground in front of Lu Ping. The late blood refining realm disciples who participated in the grand competition would receive 20 spirit stones. The top 64 would receive 40 spirit stones, and the top 32 would receive 20 medicinal pellets. After Lu Ping advanced to the 8th layer, the blood purification pellet that he used previously was no longer as effective. Therefore, he changed it to the blood essence pellet that contained more spiritual energy and was more suitable for 8th layer blood refining realm cultivators. As for the prize for entering the top 16, Lu Ping specifically requested for a flying mystic tool. He already had an offensive mystic tool, the landslide seal, and a defensive copper mirror. He just so happened to lack a flying mystic tool for escaping. Lu Ping had a feeling that the sect must have some ulterior motive for suddenly increasing the scope and intensity of the rewards without explaining the reason to the disciples. Lu Ping didn't believe in the excuse of, the disciples of the side halls worked hard and achieved great results, so the sect specially increased the rewards. Although there had always been rumors that the disciples of the Jinling sect improved faster than the disciples of the other sects in the past few decades and became stronger, even if this was true, it was only slightly better than the other sections. It was far from the point where the sect would increase the intensity of the rewards. These things were still far from the point where Lu Ping could come into contact with them. Right now, Lu Ping could only make use of every opportunity to increase his strength. As for what he would have to pay for the rewards, Lu Ping couldn't care less. This time, Group 7's results had greatly improved, and Master Immortal Lu had profited greatly. After Lu Ping was eliminated in the top 16, Yao Yong and Du Feng entered the top 8 and received the blood-condensing pill. After that, Du Feng encountered a disciple at the peak of the 9th blood-refining realm. After using a low-grade defensive mystic tool and a mid-grade mystic tool, Du Feng unfortunately lost. Yao Yong, on the other hand, eliminated Group 1's Lin Sheng and entered the top 4. Unfortunately, he didn't advance any further. At this point, Group 7's performance in the competition came to an end. Although Master Immortal Lu was disappointed that Yao Yong didn't make it to the finals and that Lu Ping didn't make it to the top 8, Group 7 still ranked 3rd out of the 20 groups. They received 80 mid-grade spirit stones from the bet. After deducting the 20 spirit stones from the bet, they made a net profit of 60 mid-grade spirit stones, which was equivalent to 6,000 low-grade spirit stones. This was a considerable amount of wealth even for a blood condensation cultivator. After Lu Ping finished his closed-door cultivation, Master Immortal Lu, who was in a good mood, went to the cultivation platform and shared his cultivation insights with the newly promoted level 3 disciples of Group 7 for 3 days straight. In a short time, the disciples of Group 7 learned a lot. One morning, after Lu Ping had finished his cultivation, Master Immortal Lu called out to him. Since Lu Ping's cultivation had reached the 8th blood-refining realm, he was supposed to receive 3 days of personal guidance from Master Immortal Lu. Previously, because Lu Ping needed to recover from his injuries and consolidate his cultivation, he didn't receive any personal guidance. Now that Lu Ping was recovering well, he couldn't wait even if Master Immortal Lu didn't call out to him. Group 7 would be promoted to a level 3 group in the next half a year, and Master Immortal Lu would still be the leader. This time, Group 7 had performed well, so some of its disciples might be added to the group with fewer disciples. However, it would only be a small portion, and it was unlikely that they would be late blood-refining realm disciples, unless Master Immortal Lu was out of his mind. Lu Ping was still the 10th senior disciple, but he was already recognized as the 3rd strongest disciple in Group 7, second only to Yao Yong and Du Feng. Even Shi Lingling wasn't a match for him. Regarding this, Shi Lingling didn't say anything. After all, during the competition, Lu Ping fought Ling Qian, who was 2 levels higher than him, with his 7th blood-refining realm cultivation. It was said that he was praised by the core forging realm enlightened masters. Even if there were people who weren't convinced, they wouldn't come out to challenge Lu Ping at this time. While Lu Ping was recuperating, Zhang Zicheng successfully challenged Li Cheng and became the 11th disciple. Shi Lingling also defeated the 3rd disciple. Currently, there was a saying among the grade 2 disciples of Zhenling Side Hall, 4 heroes, 5 talents and 7 ferocious. It was aimed at the top 16 in the competition, and Lu Ping was listed as one of the 7 ferocious. Lu Ping was stunned for a while. Chapter 14. It was said that the 4 talents, 5 talents and 7 ferocious had another meaning. The 4 talents were the top 4 in this year's competition, and Yao Yong was one of them. The 5 talents were the 5 youngest cultivators in the top 16. 4 of them were women, and they were also the only 4 women who made it into the top 16. Shi Lingling was furious about this. She personally went to find the only man among the 5 talents, a cultivator who had just reached the 9th layer of blood refining realm. She defeated him in front of everyone and took away his title of 5 talents. The rest were the 7 ferocious. Some busybodies even ranked Lu Ping first among the 7 ferocious. Lu Ping didn't care about this at all, but he couldn't do anything about it. Lu Ping respected Master Immortal Lu very much, especially after he entered the late stage of the blood refining realm. Master Immortal Lu had guided Lu Ping meticulously. When he broke through and got injured during the competition, Master Immortal Lu protected him and used a precious top-grade essence recovery pill to stabilize his injuries, saving Lu Ping from the brink of collapse. Master Immortal Lu's 3-day lecture was very informative. Lu Ping learned a lot and he was even a little shocked. On the first day, Master Immortal Lu taught Lu Ping about cultivation, including the problems one would encounter in advancing from the 8th layer to the 9th layer, and the various situations one needed to pay attention to. Master Immortal Lu explained them one by one, including the various preparations for the blood condensation realm. If the gap between blood refining realm cultivators of the same level wasn't obvious, then the blood condensation realm was a watershed. The difference lay in the cultivation technique cultivated by each cultivator, the cultivation resources possessed, the wisdom, determination and courage to face difficulties and even luck. This was a path that required one to advance bravely. A little bit of hesitation could narrow the path of cultivation or even cut it off. After the first day's lecture, a question echoed in Lu Ping's mind: what is the meaning of cultivation? Lu Ping thought about it for the whole night. Thousands of reasons for cultivation flashed in his mind. Finally, he stopped hesitating and his eyes became clear again. On the second day, when Master Immortal Lu asked, Lu Ping only had 2 words: longevity. Master Immortal Lu asked, "Is that the only reason? Is there any other reason?" Lu Ping shook his head and said, "In the beginning, the thoughts in this disciple's mind were numerous and complicated. No matter which one it was a feasible reason. But in the end, only this one was the most practical and the most immortal. All the other reasons will disappear with time, but this is the only reason that will exist forever." Master Immortal Lu laughed heartily and said, "What a good, since the beginning of time. You are a promising student." After saying that, he looked at Lu Ping with a complicated expression. There was joy, jealousy, reminiscence, and bitterness. What Lu Ping didn't know was that this was a mental test set by the Zhenling side courtyard for disciples who had reached the 8th layer. Every cultivator's goal, origin, and reason for cultivating were different. In fact, every cultivator had many different thoughts. Cultivators might not notice it now and might even think it was making a mountain out of a molehill. But as their cultivation level increased and their mental state grew, every thought would turn into an obsession, and every obsession would become a hindrance to their future cultivation. Thousands of years later, the reason for cultivating might be worn down with the passage of time. It might even become unrealistic. If these thoughts got tangled too much, they might even turn into inner demons and threaten the cultivator's life. Only by establishing an unchanging and stable belief in cultivation would a cultivator be able to go further down the path of cultivation. Lu Ping didn't know about this now. Perhaps after many years, as Lu Ping's cultivation increased, he would realize the importance of Master Immortal Lu's question. The second day's content was about the experiences of blood refining realm cultivators in breaking through to the blood condensation realm, as well as the cultivation methods of the blood condensation realm. This part left Lu Ping speechless. Looking at Lu Ping's expression, Master Immortal Lu smiled and said, "Why? Do you feel that cultivating is difficult now?" Lu Ping nodded. "Although I'm determined to continue no matter how difficult it is, I didn't expect it to be like this." Master Immortal Lu asked, "Do you know how many chances a blood refining realm cultivator has to enter the blood condensation realm?" Lu Ping answered, 1 in 100. Master Immortal Lu asked again, "Do you know about core forging realm cultivators?" Lu Ping shook his head. Master Immortal Lu said, 1 in 1,000. Every step in the core forging realm is fraught with danger. Every step is related to the final success of cultivation. Even I don't know much about it. Zhenling has tens of thousands of outer disciples, including the side disciples. But there are only a few thousand blood condensation realm disciples. This is because the lifespan of a blood condensation realm cultivator is twice that of a blood refining realm cultivator. Core forging realm cultivators have a lifespan of 500 to 800 years. Even I have never seen the legendary Dharma manifestation realm cultivator, Laozu. I only know that such an expert exists in our sect. At this time, Lu Ping's heart was already surging with excitement as he listened to the stories. His heart was filled with endless yearning for those experts. Master Immortal Lu saw Lu Ping's expression and knew that he was already distracted. He said, "That's all for today. I'm tired. Just remember what I've said today." On the third day, the content of the lecture was about the ways of the cultivation world, things to take note of, and the situation of the cultivation world. There were some things that even Master Immortal Lu knew very little about. On the contrary, the more Lu Ping listened, the more questions he had. Master Immortal Lu stopped Lu Ping from asking any more questions. He said, "The cultivation world is vast. Even I don't know everything. I can only teach you the basics. You'll have to figure it out yourself in the future." After the lecture, Master Immortal Lu took out 2 jade slips and said, "These 2 jade slips, one of them records all kinds of treasures that can be used in the cultivation world. They are the summaries of the sect's seniors who have traveled the world over the years. Even though it's not complete, it's enough for a blood-refining realm cultivator like you. The other jade slips contain the records of the cultivation world seniors. It's essential for you to travel. Lu Ping took the 2 jade slips and said in a low voice, Master Immortal, does the sect require us disciples to go on missions? Otherwise, why would they make such thorough preparations? Master Immortal Lu was taken aback. He laughed and said, You're a smart one. But you're not entirely right. The sect has always had a rule that all disciples who have reached the 8th layer of the blood-refining realm must travel. Even though there are no hard and fast rules, the sect has always done their best to prepare their disciples for missions. This has always been the case. There's nothing special about this time. After all of you are the future hope of the sect. Who knows, one of you might even become a Dharma adept in the future and become a pillar of the sect. Even though there are other matters that have intervened this time, I'm not too sure about the specifics. Just wait for the sect's news. Although Master Immortal Lu's words confirmed Lu Ping's suspicions, Lu Ping's doubts only deepened. Lu Ping walked out of Master Immortal Lu's cottage. As he recalled Master Immortal Lu's words, he couldn't help but chuckle. Even Master Immortal Lu didn't know much about such matters. It was obvious that it was the doing of a core forging realm enlightened master or even more powerful cultivators. How could he, a mere blood-refining realm cultivator, possibly be plotted against by these powerful cultivators? Even if he did, with his current cultivation level, all he could do was obediently listen to them. How could he jump out of their trap? The only thing he could do was to cultivate diligently. This way, he would have a higher chance of surviving the schemes of these powerful cultivators. Chapter 15. Third-ranked disciples rarely cultivated in the courtyard. Most of them would go out to explore the world, broaden their horizons, search for fortuitous encounters, complete sect missions and so on. Even disciples who hadn't reached the 8th layer of blood-refining realm, after cultivating for a year, they would still have to accept sect missions to accumulate rewards for their future path of cultivation. This was also the reason why third-ranked disciples were rarely seen in the side halls other than the end-of-year competition. The Junling sect had a long history, and it knew that it was hard to raise a pillar in a greenhouse. It gave its disciples freedom and space to fight on their own. After all, the inheritance of a sect depended on its elites. After receiving Master Immortal Lu's warning, Lu Ping had been cultivating diligently for the past 6 months and preparing for his journey. After reaching the 8th layer, Lu Ping's charm crafting skills had improved again. Now low-grade charms were rare in his charm crafting. Most of the charms he crafted were mid-grade and high-grade charms. Even for top-grade charms he could only craft one every 3 to 5 days. Now Lu Ping's blood charms were filled with top-grade charms. Speaking of which, during the last competition, Lu Ping had insisted on not using the few top-grade talismans he had. He had kept a trump card for himself. After all, once he used a top-grade talisman, it would be hard to keep his talisman forging skills a secret. A top-grade blood talisman's power was almost on par with an early blood condensation realm spell. It was hard to guarantee that no one would use Lu Ping's cultivation path to talisman forging. This was also because Lu Ping did not participate in the quarterfinals. Otherwise he might not be able to keep this trump card. But then again, the reward for advancing to the quarterfinals was a blood-condensing pill. He might as well give up this trump card for the sake of the blood-condensing pill. But that was the truth. Lu Ping could only comfort himself this way. The blood-condensing pill. Lu Ping had always been brooding over it. The improvement in his charm crafting skills meant that Lu Ping's spirit stones would increase tremendously. However, the medicinal pellets were replaced with the more effective blood essence pellets, so the price was naturally higher. Although there were rewards from the competition and the benefits of being an 8th layer blood refining realm disciple, the number of spirit stones in Lu Ping's interspatial pouch only increased slightly. Lu Ping's cultivation had grown steadily over the past half a year. However, it was impossible for him to advance to the 9th layer in a short period of time like he did at the 7th layer. After all, Lu Ping had accumulated a lot of spirit stones when he was at the 6th layer. Today was the end of the month market. Lu Ping wore a mask and set up a stall in the market to sell talismans. Lu Ping's talismans had gained some fame in the market. Moreover, in the past half a year, Lu Ping had been stockpiling top-grade talismans for his own use. The number of high-grade talismans on his stall had greatly increased, attracting more and more cultivators to buy them. Most of the time, Lu Ping's talismans were sold out. As expected, as soon as Lu Ping put up his talismans, he was surrounded by cultivators in 2s and 3s. At this time, a burly man in his 30s walked from the east side of the market towards Lu Ping. When he reached the stall, he squatted down and picked up a few high-grade talismans. He looked at them and said, "Brother, your talisman crafting skills are very high." After saying that, he looked at Lu Ping and did not say whether he was going to buy them or not. Lu Ping looked at the other party and did not deny that he was the one who made these talismans. He would come here every month, so these things could not be concealed from the people who had the intention. So he calmly said, "Fellow Taoist is overpraising me. May I ask if fellow Taoist wants to buy talismans?" The burly man laughed and said, "Brother, how about we make a deal? I want to buy all of your talismans. What do you think?" Lu Ping was surprised for a moment and said, "Of course, these talismans are worth a total of spirit stones." When the burly man saw that Lu Ping did not understand his meaning, he quickly said, "I didn't make it clear. What I mean is that I want to invite brother to be a full-time talisman crafting master of the Cultivator Sharing Union. In the future, the Cultivator Sharing Union will take care of all of brother's talismans. Brother won't be short of spirit stones. What do you think?" Lu Ping did not expect that he would encounter such a situation. The Jinling sect had a long history and was a powerful sect. The surrounding market had become a gathering place for all kinds of rogue cultivators. These rogue cultivators were a mix of good and bad people, forming gangs. It was not the first time that Lu Ping had encountered such a situation, but it was the first time that he had encountered such a situation. However, if a professional talisman crafting master were to encounter a group with comparatively upright conduct, then they would be rather respected and have a high income. If they were to encounter a group that harbored evil intentions, then once they entered the group they would be controlled by them. If it was light, then they would become a talisman crafting slave cultivator. If it was heavy, then they would be killed, robbed of the talisman crafting technique. As a promising disciple of the Zhenling side hall, Lu Ping naturally did not have the thought of becoming a rogue cultivator. He immediately rejected, "Fellow Taoist, I'm really sorry, but I have no intention of joining your union." The burly man's expression changed. "What? Are you looking down on my Cultivator Sharing Union? My Cultivator Sharing Union has 18 rogue cultivators, and all of them are at least in the 8th layer of the blood refining realm. Our union leader is a blood condensation realm expert." His words were filled with threat. Lu Ping was someone who had seen core forging realm enlightened masters from afar. Why would he care about such trivial things? He immediately replied stiffly, "I'm really sorry, I'm a disciple of the Jinling sect. I have no intention of joining your union." Lu Ping did not want to cause trouble, so he could only use the name of the Jinling sect to scare the burly man away. Sure enough, when the burly man heard that Lu Ping was a disciple of the Jinling sect, the ferocious expression on his face froze. He said embarrassedly, "So you're a disciple of a big sect. It's only natural that you look down on us, a small rogue cultivator union. I'll take my leave then." With that he turned and left. Lu Ping did not mind at all. He continued to buy the rest of the talismans and exchanged the spirit stones for cultivation pills and some cultivation supplies. Then he strolled around the city square and bought some miscellaneous items. Recently, the blood refining realm's high-level disciples were planning to hold a small trade fair. Lu Ping's fame had risen recently, so he was also invited. Lu Ping was also quite interested in the trade fair, so he agreed. Recently, he had been saving up spirit stones in case he ran into something he liked but couldn't afford to buy it. Even though he didn't have much hope of finding something that caught his fancy, Lu Ping didn't have much hope. Lu Ping was also cautious. He asked the surrounding cultivators about the Cultivator Sharing Union. After all, the burly man from the Cultivator Sharing Union had come directly to Lu Ping. Obviously, he had some understanding of Lu Ping beforehand. No one else had heard of this. Later, he heard from a cultivator that this Cultivator Sharing Union had only recently arrived in the city square near the city square of Jinling. It was said that this group of cultivators had high cultivation among low-level rogue cultivators. They were brave and fierce, hunting demonic beasts and exploring for cultivation resources. As soon as they arrived, they befriended the outer sect disciples of Jinling and quickly gained a foothold among the rogue cultivators around Jinling. After strolling around the city square and not finding anything useful, Lu Ping left the city square and returned to the courtyard. Although Lu Ping now had a flying artifact, it was a waste of spiritual energy. Lu Ping was not ready to show off like a nouveau riche. Naturally, he could only use the light body technique and rush back to the courtyard. Chapter 16. On the way back to the side courtyard, Lu Ping had to pass through a forest. After Lu Ping entered the forest, he took out a talisman from his storage pouch and slapped it on his body. Lu Ping's figure blurred for a moment, then disappeared without a trace. The invisibility talisman was the simplest kind of invisibility talisman that could be crafted by a blood-refining realm cultivator. It could only conceal one's body. If a blood condensation realm cultivator was here, they would be able to find out where Lu Ping was in the blink of an eye. Even an experienced blood-refining realm cultivator could find traces of Lu Ping through the traces left behind. Not long after, the silhouettes of two cultivators could be seen shuttling through the cover of the rocks and trees. They were well hidden, but their speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they arrived at the forest where Lu Ping was. The two stopped. One of them was the burly cultivator that Lu Ping saw in the market, and the other was as thin as a bamboo pole. The tall and thin cultivator looked left and right and said, "This person walked here and the traces disappeared. It seems that he has already discovered us and erased the traces he left behind." The burly cultivator fiercely said, "He's so young but he's quite smart. I've asked around, this brat's talisman crafting is quite famous in the market. I originally planned to capture this brat to make talismans for everyone and interrogate him about Jinling, but I didn't expect him to slip away." The tall and thin cultivator frowned and said in a displeased tone, "Don't talk nonsense. We were only hired by someone to gather information. If it wasn't for the fact that we urgently need someone proficient in talisman crafting, why would we make a move on Jinling's disciple? Jinling isn't someone our cultivator sharing union can afford to offend." The tall and thin cultivator smiled embarrassedly and said no more. The tall and thin cultivator carefully looked at the traces around him and said with uncertainty, "Maybe this person didn't leave and only used an invisibility talisman to hide in the forest." The burly cultivator said disapprovingly, "So what if he's right next to us? That brat is just an 8th layer blood refining realm minor repairs cultivator. He's only been cultivating for a few years, yet he dares to attack us, an 8th layer blood refining realm cultivator, a 9th layer blood refining realm cultivator and 2 other cultivators?" As soon as the burly cultivator finished speaking, he felt a fluctuation of spiritual energy behind him. He turned his head in shock and saw a huge seal rising into the air. It grew to several meters in size and smashed towards the burly cultivator at lightning speed. There were 2 large characters engraved on the bottom of the seal. "Landslide." The tall and thin cultivator shouted, "Not good," and quickly shot out a high-grade talisman towards the exposed Lu Ping. He formed a hand seal and muttered an incantation. It was the bursting flame technique. At the same time, a flying sword flew out from his storage pouch and continuously injected arcane energy into the flying sword. The tip of the sword was pointed at Lu Ping with the intention of killing Lu Ping in one strike. This was the method of besieging the besiegers to rescue the besiegers. A red light flashed on Lu Ping's body. A top-grade blood talisman turned into a Vajra shield, and stood in front of Lu Ping to protect him. At the same time, another top-grade talisman turned into 3 sharp swords and flew towards the burly cultivator. Lu Ping was determined to kill one of them first. The burly cultivator was worthy of being someone who often rolled on the edge of life and death. Although he was careless and was suddenly attacked, he still took out a bottle-shaped magic tool. It spouted out a huge wave and rushed towards the landslide. However, the landslide still broke through the huge wave, and with a loud dang sound, the bottle-shaped magic tool was knocked away. Affected by this, the burly cultivator spat out a mouthful of blood and was seriously injured. The 3 sharp swords flew through the air. The burly cultivator didn't care about the chaotic arcane energy in his body. He took out a high-grade talisman and slapped it on his body. It turned into a wooden wall in front of him. At the same time, he took out a staff-shaped magic tool. Before he could use it, the wooden wall in front of him was pierced by the sharp swords. The 3 sharp swords didn't stop and directly stabbed towards the burly cultivator. The burly cultivator's face immediately paled. He cried out, "Top-grade blood talisman," and waved his staff to shatter 2 of the sharp swords. The 3rd sword pierced through his heart under the horrified gaze of the burly cultivator. The lanky cultivator already had a bad premonition when Lu Ping ignored his attack and continued attacking the burly man. But the arrow was already knocked on the bowstring and he didn't have time to think. The bursting flame spell in his hand turned into a fireball and flew towards Lu Ping. The burly man's cry for help sounded and the lanky cultivator's heart sank. However, the flying sword mystic instrument in his hand still followed closely behind the burly man and attacked Lu Ping. Sure enough, the Vajra shield formed by Lu Ping's top-grade talisman was hit by the lanky cultivator's high-grade talisman and the bursting flame technique of the technique realm. Only then did it dissipate. Immediately after, a bronze mirror expanded to the size of a few feet. With a loud bang, it blocked the flying sword Dharma artifact that was flying over. In just an instant, the burly cultivator was dead. Lu Ping and the lanky cultivator were in a stalemate. The hunter and the prey had switched roles. The lanky cultivator glared at Lu Ping viciously as if he wanted to eat him alive. He said, "You're so young but you're so calculative. What a vicious heart." Lu Ping smiled indifferently and said, "If I didn't do that, wouldn't I have become the one lying on the ground?" Good. The lanky cultivator's heart trembled. This was Jinling's territory after all, and his opponent wasn't weak. His killing intent faded and he wanted to retreat. He said, "I've experienced your methods. The cultivator-sharing union will definitely repay you." Having said that, he wanted to retreat. "You want to leave? Not so easy." Lu Ping shouted and attacked the lanky cultivator with the mystic weapon in his hand. The lanky cultivator did not back down. He blocked Lu Ping's attack with his mystic weapon. At the same time he scolded, "Brat, even if you have 2 mystic weapons, you can't stop me if I want to leave, let alone your 8th layer cultivation." Lu Ping did not answer. He directly cast Landslide, and smashed it at the lanky cultivator. The lanky cultivator cursed under his breath. His flying sword also flew into the air to block the landslide. The landslide was heavy and powerful, but it consumed a lot of arcane energy. Although the flying sword wasn't as strong as the landslide, it was more agile. Not to mention, the lanky cultivator was a 9th layer blood refining realm cultivator, so he was able to withstand Lu Ping's landslide. After fighting for a while, the lanky cultivator decided to retreat. Putting aside the fact that this Jinling sect kid's magic power was so strong that his level 8 cultivation was able to fight against the lanky cultivator's level 9 cultivation, the two of them were fighting near Jinling sect. There was no telling if any Jinling sect cultivator would pass by and the lanky cultivator would die. The more the lanky cultivator thought about it, the more he wanted to retreat. There were a few times he wanted to retreat, but Lu Ping persisted. It was as if he knew what the lanky cultivator was thinking and was waiting for the Jinling cultivator to pass by. It seemed that it was impossible to retreat in one piece. The lanky cultivator was determined. After making up his mind, dozens of talismans flew out from his storage pouch. There were high, middle, and low-grade talismans. They all flew towards Lu Ping, causing Lu Ping to panic. He quickly added 2 top-grade blood talismans on himself and dodged several times. Only then did he barely block the lanky cultivator's attack. Lu Ping looked up and saw that the lanky cultivator had already retreated in the direction he came from. Lu Ping waved his hand and a top-grade talisman turned into a fine needle and flew towards the lanky cultivator's back. The lanky cultivator used a backhand spell to block the needle, but he did not stop. Even if he was injured, he had to leave. A few of the needles that were not blocked by the spell nailed into the lanky cultivator's back. The lanky cultivator grunted and staggered. Then he ran even faster. Lu Ping watched as the lanky cultivator ran further and further away. He gave a snort and thought, "You think you can run?" A small boat suddenly appeared beneath his feet. It was the flying magic artifact that Lu Ping had obtained in the grand competition. His magic power surged and the small boat flashed with white light. The distance between him and the lanky cultivator was reduced by half. The lanky cultivator was secretly cursing Lu Ping when he suddenly felt a gust of wind behind him. He turned around and saw a large seal covering the sky above him, pressing down on him. Chapter 17. Lu Ping looked at the skinny cultivator who had been smashed into a pile of mud and vomited. He reluctantly grabbed the skinny cultivator's interspatial pouch and used an earth elemental spell to bury the skinny cultivator. Then he took the burly cultivator's interspatial pouch and burned the corpse with a fireball. Lu Ping took out a jade bottle from his interspatial pouch, poured out an essence-replenishing pellet and swallowed it. His almost depleted arcane energy quickly recovered. Lu Ping raised his head and looked around. The forest was quiet in the evening. Then he ran back to the side courtyard without looking back. After Lu Ping disappeared into the forest, 2 people appeared in the sky. They stood in the air, a symbol of the blood condensation realm. The 2 looked at the messy forest and smiled at each other. Then they turned around and flew back to Jinling's mountain gate. When Lu Ping returned to the side courtyard, he couldn't wait to open the storage pouch of the two cultivators. Looking at the pile of items in front of him, Lu Ping felt refreshed. The fatigue from the previous battle was swept away. From the looks of it, not all rogue cultivators were cash-strapped individuals. Judging from the two's actions today, the cultivator-sharing union must have committed many murders and robberies to be able to amass so much wealth with their blood-refining realm cultivation. First was the spirit stones. The two cultivators had a total of more than 300 spirit stones. 2 of them were mid-grade spirit stones. This was the first time Lu Ping had obtained a mid-grade spirit stone. As Lu Ping's cultivation increased, his wealth also increased. At the same time, the consumption of various cultivation methods also increased. Even though Lu Ping worked hard on talisman crafting, he only had a small amount of savings. These 300 spirit stones were undoubtedly a windfall. Second was the pills. The burly cultivator had 2 bottles of blood essence pills. There were a total of 28 pills, which was exactly what Lu Ping needed for a month. The tall and skinny cultivator was a 9th layer blood refining realm cultivator, so the most suitable pills for him were the blood refining pills. There were also 2 bottles of 40 pills in total. The blood refinement pill was a better pill for blood refining realm cultivators than the blood purification pill. To be honest, Lu Ping could use it as well. However, with his 8th layer blood refining realm cultivation, it would be hard for him to fully absorb the energy from the blood refinement pill. Part of it would be wasted, and the thrifty Lu Ping would never accept it. Other than that, there were also several kinds of medicinal pills that could heal injuries and restore magic power. It seemed that the medicinal pills for healing and restoring magic power that he needed to prepare for this experiential learning had finally been obtained. In this way he could save quite a lot of spirit stones. Lu Ping's little abacus made a crackling sound. Next was the Dharma artifact. One was the jade bottle magic artifact of the burly Han cultivator, while the other was the flying sword magic artifact of the lanky cultivator. Without saying a word, Lu Ping picked them up and started refining them. Even though he couldn't use all 4 of them at the same time with his current arcane energy, there were countless variations in a battle. How could he know which one was the most suitable to use? His landslide was most suitable for sneak attacks. It was used to catch the opponent off guard. Once the battle reached a stalemate, the large amount of arcane energy required to use landslide would limit his performance. The battle in the forest was proof of that. When he was in a stalemate with the tall and skinny cultivator, although his seal was powerful, in the time it took for him to attack twice, the tall and skinny cultivator had already summoned his flying sword 3 times. If it wasn't for that, he would have completely suppressed the tall and skinny cultivator a long time ago. The items that took up the most space were the spiritual herbs used for alchemy, the ores used for smithing, and the valuable items obtained from the slain demonic beasts. All of them were worth quite a lot of spirit stones. Perhaps selling them to the sect in exchange for some contribution points would be a good choice. A sect also needed to be managed, especially a sect that had existed for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. Its various systems were more complete, and contribution points was one of the most common methods. Disciples could use contribution points to exchange for items that weren't available in the outside world or were worth far more than their own. This way, not only could the cultivator benefit, but it could also strengthen the sect. Lu Ping even saw 2 types of blood essence grass and black sieve vine that were required to concoct the blood condensation pill. It was said that 24 types of 500-year-old spiritual herbs were required to concoct the blood condensation pill. As long as a disciple gathered 8 of them, they could exchange for a blood condensation pill. One could imagine how Lu Ping felt when he saw the 2 types of spiritual herbs. This was a quarter of a blood condensation pill. Of course, Lu Ping could also exchange them for contribution points. However, not everything could be exchanged with contribution points. The blood condensation pill was one of them. These pills that were related to the rise and fall of the sect could only be exchanged with raw materials. This was different from the market. There were also a few jade slips that recorded spells, knowledge, and so on. Lu Ping skimmed through them. Lu Ping copied them onto the Jinling jade slip that Master Immortal Lu gave him. They complemented each other and were of some use. However, one of the jade slips caught Lu Ping's attention. The jade slips recorded a lot of information about Jinling. Most of the people in the jade slips were blood refining realm disciples, and the few blood condensation realm master immortals had only heard about it. There were even records of the Jinling side courtyards competition. There were even records of him being called one of the 7 ferocious beasts. There were many things that even Lu Ping didn't know. Lu Ping recalled that in the forest, the burly cultivator said that someone had hired the cultivator sharing union to gather information about Jinling. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that someone wanted to harm the sect? However, he quickly dismissed this thought. How could it be possible? What use was the information of these blood-refining realm disciples? The foundation of a sect was still those core-forging realm enlightened masters and avatar Laozu. Even the blood condensation realm master immortals were just some branches and leaves of the sect. However, Lu Ping changed his mind. If someone really wanted to harm the sect, even if it was just a few blood-refining realm disciples, he was still a blood-refining realm disciple. He would still have to report this matter to the sect. He just hoped that the sect wouldn't confiscate the things he obtained from killing people. Lu Ping had been living in the Zhenling side courtyard since he was 6 years old. It had been 10 years since then. Naturally, he had a strong sense of belonging to the sect. Even if he had a soul that was different from others, he was still a person who knew how to repay kindness. After Lu Ping finished organizing his gains, Lu Ping told Master Immortal Lu everything that had happened the day before. At the same time, he also passed the jade slip that recorded the Jinling incident to Master Immortal Lu. Master Immortal Lu did not comment on Lu Ping's account. He took the jade slip from Lu Ping's hands and said without even looking at it, "What's the use of a fly for personal gain? It's just a small matter. Don't bother yourself with it. Focus on your cultivation and prepare for the training." Lu Ping nodded and was about to leave when an item flew out from Lu Ping's waist. It was Lu Ping's identity token. Master Immortal Lu took it in his hand and tossed it to Lu Ping. "I'll record this merit for you. You can leave now." When Lu Ping came out, he took a look at the token. There were already 10 contribution points on it. Lu Ping's heart leaped with joy. 20 contribution points could be exchanged for a low-grade mystic instrument. That was half a mystic instrument. However, he already had 4 low-grade mystic instruments. If he wanted to exchange them, he would at least exchange them for a mid-grade mystic instrument for when he reached the 9th layer of the blood-refining realm. However, it would cost him 50 contribution points. From Master Immortal Lu's tone, Lu Ping had a feeling that the sect already knew about this matter. However, he wasn't sure. The schemes of these big shots were not something that he could figure out at the moment. To think that he was worried that the loot he obtained from killing people would be confiscated. He never thought that these master immortals were all high and mighty. How could they possibly be interested in his loot? He was being too petty. Chapter 18. After leaving Master Immortal Lu's place, Lu Ping went to the alchemy lab to exchange the spirit herbs for contribution points. Then he went to the Qi refinement pavilion to hand over the ores and demonic beast raw materials. With that, his contribution points shot up to 40. He only needed 10 more contribution points to exchange for a mid-grade mystic instrument. He recalled the level 3 disciple he met in the market. That disciple spent an entire year to obtain 50 contribution points, and he even had to sell the spirit stones he earned from selling the mystic instruments. Now Lu Ping was almost there in one day. It seemed like the saying, "A horse is not fat without grass at night, and a man is not rich without a windfall." In the blink of an eye, another half a year had passed. The time for training was finally here. In the past 6 months, Lu Ping had finally stabilized his cultivation at mid-stage 8th layer blood refining realm thanks to the abundant supply of spirit stones. Such was the nature of cultivation. The further one advanced, the harder it would be to cultivate. After he broke through to the 8th layer, he did not dare to slack off for even a moment. He used up all the medicinal pellets and spirit stones to cultivate to the fullest. But even after a year, he only managed to advance from the 8th layer to the mid-stage of the 8th layer. In the past, disciples would choose their own missions from the sect, either alone or in groups. Most of the missions were to hunt sea beasts in the sea, hunt demonic beasts on islands, collect spiritual herbs, collect ores, and so on. There were many kinds of missions. However, this time was different. Master Immortal Professor, a level 3 disciple, was leading the group. Other than the disciples of the 8th layer blood refining realm and above, there were also 20 disciples of the 8th layer blood refining realm and above. The 20 groups left through the teleportation portal in the courtyard. None of the disciples knew what their mission was. When Lu Ping walked out of the teleportation portal, he was already on an island. He could faintly hear the crashing sound of the waves not far away. Group 7 and Master Immortal Lu, a total of 21 people, rested for the night under the guidance of the Jinling Island's Master Immortal. The next day the group gathered under a rock on the island. Master Immortal Lu and Master Immortal Du, who had been waiting for them last night, announced the mission to them. Master Immortal Lu's face remained expressionless as he looked at the eager expressions on the disciples' faces. He said coldly, "This is the mystic great island on the border of our sect, Blackflower Island. Group 7's training destination is 500 miles away from here." An outer disciple who was familiar with the place immediately reacted and whispered, "Xianhua Island? Isn't that the southernmost Xianling sect's Xianling Island?" Another 500 li to the south is Xianling sect's territory. At this point, the disciple's expression changed. "Don't tell me I have to do this mission in Xianling sect's territory? Could it be that the two factions are going to start a war? No matter what, Xianling sect is the strongest force in the Northern Sea. I'm afraid this training won't be easy." What's there to be afraid of? I heard that Xianling sect has declined a lot these years. Our sect is not afraid of them. Listening to the discussions around him, Lu Ping was puzzled. Was the sect really going to provoke Xianling sect's tiger whiskers? Master Immortal Lu's face remained cold as he looked at the disciples' expressions. He continued, "After investigation, a group of cultivators called the Cultivator Sharing Union was ordered by Xianling sect to spy on our sect's secrets. They have plotted to rob and kill our disciples many times." At this point, Master Immortal Lu's gaze inadvertently swept past Lu Ping. He continued, "After the incident they escaped to the border of Xianling sect and our sect. They are now hiding on Xianling sect's mystic great island, Xianqi Island. Therefore, our mission this time is to occupy Xianqi Island, kill the cultivators from the Cultivator Sharing Union, and protect our sect's dignity. Those who offend us, Xianling sect, will be killed." The disciples had been nurtured and educated by Xianling since they were young, so they had a strong sense of belonging to Xianling. Even Lu Ping's blood was boiling after hearing Master Immortal Lu's harsh words. Master Immortal Lu was pleased to see the disciples' high morale. He pointed to Master Immortal Du beside him and said, "This is the Master Immortal stationed at Xianhua Island. He and I will be leading this mission. All disciples will work together to destroy the remnants of the Cultivator Sharing Union." Above the boundless sea, an artifact the size of a large ship sped across the surface of the sea. In the blink of an eye, it had disappeared, leaving only a white mark on the surface of the sea. This large enchanted item that Immortal Du had taken out truly shocked the monastery's disciples. Although it was only a middle-grade enchanted item, this kind of large enchanted item that could carry many people was extremely rare. Even a top-grade enchanted item might not necessarily be able to exchange for it. Master Immortal Du looked at the envious expressions of the disciples and smiled helplessly. "This is an artifact that our sect has prepared for this mission. I am not generous enough to own such an artifact." The big ship did not choose to fly in the air. Although it was fast, it consumed too much magic power. Moreover, there was a battle coming soon. Sailing on the sea, although its speed was halved, it was only 500 miles of sea, so it would be able to arrive in an instant. Unlike the nervousness and excitement of the disciples, Lu Ping had too many doubts in his heart despite his calm expression. The Cultivator Sharing Union was just a group of rogue cultivators. There were less than 20 of them, and their leader was only at the early blood condensation realm. The rest of them were only at the blood refining realm. Even if they were lucky enough to rob a few Xianling disciples, how could they succeed so many times without being discovered by the sect? If they were discovered, how could they escape Xianling's pursuit and arrive at Xianqi Island? One had to know that the Xianling side courtyard was none other than the encampment of Xianling's sect. There were countless experts there. How much strength would it take to escape from such a colossus? How could the sect be so sure that the Cultivator Sharing Union was hiding on Xianqi Island? Why would they risk becoming enemies with Xianling sect? Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. Unless this was a deliberate move by the sect, but what was the sect's goal? Could it be that the sect really had the strength to challenge Xianling sect? Lu Ping felt a headache coming on. He couldn't see that level and didn't know what the elders of the sect were thinking. He could only be a chess piece. Perhaps even these two immortals were just chess pieces. Looking at Master Immortal Lu and Master Immortal Du's calm expressions, Lu Ping decided to prepare for the battle on the island. Judging from the two immortals' expressions, there shouldn't be any mistakes in this mission. Fortunately, Lu Ping had a premonition and was well prepared this time. He touched his interspatial pouch and couldn't help but feel a little heartache. It seemed like he wouldn't be able to keep his belongings this time. Hopefully he would be able to reap some rewards. Battles were fatal, even for cultivators. As for Lu Ping's own safety, what a joke. How could he die? Lu Ping didn't even think about it. Lu Ping gradually calmed himself down and activated the blood refinement spirit transmuting art, trying his best to adjust his condition. A towering shadow in the distance grew clearer and clearer. The training ground was about to arrive. On Xianqi Island, a fierce battle was about to begin. Chapter 19. Although Xianqi Island was about the same size as Xianhua Island, Xianqi Island was filled with mountains that pierced through the clouds and cliffs. Just as everyone was marveling at the beautiful scenery of Xianqi Island, Master Immortal Lu frowned and said, "They've discovered us." Master Immortal Du, who was surprised by the range of Master Immortal Lu's powerful divine sense, also sensed something and said, "That Zhao Lingqiao fellow is quite clever." He hid directly in the island's protective array formation. Aside from the mortals on the island, all the cultivators are also gathered there. It seems like they are not completely unprepared. Master Immortal Lu chuckled and said, "We never intended to ambush them." "That's good too." The two smiled at each other and flew towards the island together. The disciples followed behind them. Some flew in the air with the help of magic tools, some ran on the ground with the help of spirit movement talismans, and some even used light body techniques to run towards the center of the island. Lu Ping added a spirit movement talisman to his body and ran past a mountain pass. In the distance he saw a blue light screen that looked like an upside-down bowl, covering a building. This must be Xianqi Island's protective formation. As he ran, Lu Ping suddenly felt the spiritual energy around him fluctuate. He saw a giant axe grow several meters long, its blade glinting with a cold light. With a whistling sound, it chopped towards the light screen. Just as the giant axe was about to hit the light curtain, a small orange flag suddenly flew out from the middle of the array formation. It expanded to about 10 feet in the air and fluttered in the wind. Suddenly, a cloud of yellow sand flew out from the yellow flag and rushed towards the giant axe, reducing its speed of descent and trying to push it out of the range of the array formation from the side. However, the giant axe took advantage of the situation and was extremely powerful. Before the yellow flag could push it away, the giant axe had already struck the blue light screen, causing it to tremble. This was because the giant axe's power had been greatly reduced and the yellow sand was pushing against it, preventing it from hitting the center of the formation. At this time a flying sword was summoned. It flashed in the air and appeared above the formation. An iron umbrella suddenly flew out from the light screen. With a loud ding, Lu Ping's ears went numb. Sparks flew on the surface of the umbrella, and the flying sword returned empty-handed. This time, Lu Ping clearly saw that it was Immortal Master Du's hand. In that case, the huge axe should be Immortal Master Lu's magic weapon. The person in the formation reacted well. It seemed like there were two blood condensation realm cultivators inside. At this time, Junling's disciples had also arrived. Without any instructions, they all took out their own magic tools, magic weapons and talismans, and attacked the formation together. All sorts of weapons flew out from the array formation to intercept the incoming attacks. However, the array formation was huge and there was no way it could cover everything. There were still quite a number of magic weapons that smashed onto the light screen, and the color of the light screen gradually faded. A flustered and exasperated voice could be heard from within the formation. "Du Zichao, you attacked my Xianqi Island for no reason. Are you trying to start a war between our two sects?" Master Immortal Master Du laughed and said, "Zhao Lingqiao, the cultivator sharing union harmed my Junling disciples, and you actually dared to take them in? Was it Xianling sect's idea?" A rough voice came from the formation. "Junling, you're slandering us. My cultivator sharing union only has a dozen or so rogue cultivators. Why would we provoke you, Junling? If you want to blame someone, you can always find a pretext to accuse them." A cold sneer could be heard. Master Immortal Master Lu said unhurriedly, "What a joke. My sect has concrete evidence. How can I allow you to deny it? You must be the boss of the cultivator sharing union, Jianghu. Today I'll let you know the dignity of my Junling sect. Zhao Lingqiao, if you insist on protecting our fugitives, don't blame us for not showing mercy. In the future, our sect's elders will speak to your Xianling sect about this." As he spoke, his hands did not slow down at all. He swung the giant axe 3 times in a row and twice hit the light barrier. Zhao Lingqiao knew that his sect was in the wrong regarding the cultivator sharing union incident, but Junling was just using it as an excuse to make a fuss. Zhao Lingqiao was afraid that today's matter would not end well, so he no longer tried to argue with Junling. He only ordered the island-guarding disciples to defend against Jinling's attacks. Lu Ping used the flying sword he obtained from the battle in the forest. The flying sword dodged an intercepting mystic instrument, knocked away a high-grade mystic instrument, and hit the light barrier. The tip of the sword only sank 3 inches into the light barrier before it was bounced back. It was a stark contrast to the 2 master immortals who were able to shake the light barrier with ease. A blood condensation realm cultivator was already so much stronger than a blood refining realm cultivator. What would happen when core forging enlightened masters fight? Lu Ping couldn't help but let his imagination run wild. As for Laozu, who was in the avatar realm, Lu Ping hadn't thought about it yet. Just as Lu Ping was lost in his thoughts, he heard Xianling Sec's Zhao Lingqiao shout from within the array formation. The mystic instruments that were constantly defending the array formation suddenly changed their direction. They no longer entangled with Jinling's attacks, but attacked Jinling's disciples instead. This sudden change in situation caused many disciples to be caught off guard, and a few disciples were injured in the process. Lu Ping even saw 2 of the island-guarding disciples following Master Immortal Du fall to the ground. It was obvious that they would not survive. Even Lu Ping was taken aback. Although Lu Ping had held back, he had a solid foundation. He was very familiar with the flying sword, and his attack speed was much faster than cultivators of the same level. Even a 9th-layer cultivator would not be able to match his speed. That was why he was able to dodge the mystic instruments that were coming for him. After this counterattack, Lu Ping was also noticed. 2 mystic instruments suddenly attacked Lu Ping. Fortunately, Lu Ping reacted in time. With a strange cry, the flying sword in his hand danced and deflected a whip-like mystic instrument. At the same time, he took out the copper mirror from his storage pouch and blocked a bead mystic instrument's sneak attack. Xianling Sec's sudden change in attack style caused a lot of trouble for Jinling. Fortunately, Jinling had the advantage in numbers. Even though Xianling Sect had the geographical advantage, they could only be suppressed. It was only a matter of time before the array was broken. Xianling Sect could only rely on the advantage of the array to deplete the arcane energy of Jinling's disciples. Initially, the Jinling disciples still had the intention to hold back, but Xianling Sect's counterattack had infuriated them. In an instant they unleashed all kinds of attacks. Lu Ping also threw out the talismans that he had saved up during his training. The talismans turned into various kinds of fireballs, wind blades, golden swords, giant logs, and boulders. Among them, there were even 2 high-grade ice blade talismans, which attracted the attention of the surrounding cultivators. The limelight was a little too big. Impulsiveness was the devil. Lu Ping cursed under his breath. The color of the array became lighter and lighter until it was almost transparent. Finally, under the attack of Master Immortal Lu's giant axe, it shook a little and popped like a bubble. Lu Ping quickly tidied up the items on his body. It was time for close combat. Chapter 20. The moment the formation was broken, 2 streaks of light flew out from it. Master Immortal Lu and Master Immortal Du, who were standing in the air, flew to meet them. Immediately, all kinds of spells and artifacts collided with each other, creating a deafening sound. Fortunately, the 4 of them fought further and further away from Shenqi Island, allowing the disciples to breathe a sigh of relief. Everyone shouted and rushed into the buildings on the island, each looking for an opponent and fighting in pairs. Lu Ping was originally furious, wanting to settle the score with the cultivator who used the bead to attack him. But what made him speechless was that Xianling Sect had very few disciples to begin with. Including the rogue cultivators from the cultivator-sharing union, there were only 30 of them. Including Jinling and the disciples stationed on Shenhua Island, there were more than 40 of them. Moreover, Lu Ping was looking for someone for revenge, so he avoided the first battle. Now he had no opponents. Lu Ping watched as his seniors fought bravely against the enemies. Just as he was wondering which disciple he should help, he suddenly saw a figure flashing past behind one of the pavilions. Of course, Lu Ping would not let him go, but seeing that the other party was moving stealthily, he quietly followed behind the person. The black-robed man in front was clearly very anxious. The pavilion was built high up in the col and the black-robed man directly ran towards the bottom of a cliff in the distance. When he reached the cliff, he took another turn. At the end of an artificially flattened piece of land was a mine. Tens of mortal miners were sitting at the entrance of the mine. Clearly they knew what had happened outside and there was some worry on their faces. However, battles between cultivators generally did not involve mortals. Thus they did not run around and simply sat there waiting for the result. When the person in black saw that the miners did not run away, he was overjoyed, but he quickly asked, "Where are the spirit stones we obtained in the past 5 days?" A person who looked like the leader of the miners quickly came forward and handed over 2 storage pouches. The person in black quickly snatched the storage pouches from the leader's hand and opened them. His face lit up with joy and he turned to leave. When the black-clothed man turned around the cliff, he was still immersed in the joy of his unexpected fortune. Suddenly he felt a murderous aura, and a chill came from above his head. He looked up and saw a black object smashing down on his face. Before the person in black could show despair, he was smashed 3 feet into the ground by the landslide. Lu Ping was also surprised. This person was not prepared at all. Just how many spirit stones could make a cultivator lose his guard in a dangerous situation? Lu Ping put away the landslide. This thing was definitely good for killing and robbing. It seemed that when his cultivation was higher, he would have to upgrade this magic artifact to suit his needs. Lu Ping picked up the 2 interspatial pouches and the black-clothed cultivator's own interspatial pouches. He looked around to make sure no one was around and quickly checked the 3 interspatial pouches. The black-robed cultivator's pouch contained a low-grade Rui Jade artifact, more than 60 spirit stones, 2 bottles of cultivation-enhancing pills used by 9th-layer blood-refining realm cultivators, a few jade slips, a map of Xianqi Island and its surrounding seas, and the rest were miscellaneous items like spirit herbs and spirit wealth. When Lu Ping opened the remaining 2 storage bags, before Lu Ping had time to rejoice, he knew that things had gotten serious. It wasn't that the number of spirit stones inside wasn't small, but there were way too many. More than 1,800 spirit stones. Lu Ping heard it clearly from the corner. This was the output of 5 days. On average, more than 300 spirit stones could be dug out in a day. This was a small spirit mine. Spirit ores were like gold to mortals to cultivators. As far as Lu Ping knew, in the cultivation world, 95% of the spirit mines discovered in the past tens of thousands of years were mini mines, more than 3% were small mines, and less than 2% were medium mines, large mines, and even the legendary giant mines. Only 12 large mines had been discovered, and only 6 giant mines had been discovered. For a small mine, a sect with a Dharma ancestor would have to send a core forging perfected master to fight for it. For a medium mine, only a Dharma ancestor would have to fight for it. In the end, 2 or 3 sects would have to work together to develop a medium mine. Only a large sect would be able to monopolize a medium mine, just like Shenling sect in the Northern Sea. As for large mines and giant mines, Lu Ping had never heard of who owned them or which region they belonged to. Such spirit mines were definitely developed in cooperation, but he didn't know how many sects shared the profits. Mines with an average output of less than 200 spirit stones per day were mini mines. Those with an average output of less than 500 spirit stones per day were small mines. Those with an average output of less than 1,000 spirit stones per day were medium mines. As for the output of large and giant mines, even Lu Ping didn't know. Perhaps only the Laozu who participated in the sect's activities would know. Lu Ping didn't know why Xianling sect only sent blood condensation cultivators to guard such an important spirit mine. Perhaps they didn't want to attract attention. Jinling probably didn't know about this either. Otherwise he wouldn't have attacked Xianqi Island so carelessly. One had to know that on a few small islands only a core forging enlightened master would work for them. At most, they would send a few blood condensation disciples to work for them. But this small spirit mine was enough to turn the 2 sects against each other. No matter what Jinling's motive was, there must be a core forging enlightened master behind him. The matter of the spirit mine couldn't be hidden anymore, so Xianling sect had to take measures in advance. Otherwise, the core forging enlightened masters from Xianling sect would definitely kill them before Jinling could act. However, he couldn't just hand over the spirit stones in his hands for nothing. He had to think of a way. After figuring out the cause and effect, Lu Ping had to come up with an excuse to hide this windfall. As the saying goes, a quick wit comes out of an emergency. After quickly covering up the traces of a fight, Lu Ping pretended to have just discovered this place. He turned the corner and saw the miners at the entrance of the cave. With a curious expression he asked, there's actually a mine here. May I ask what kind of spirit stone is produced here?" The rest was simple. On the way back, Lu Ping searched through Xianling sect's island base. Unfortunately, these disciples must have packed up their belongings before Jinling attacked. There was nothing left. Lu Ping only found a few stalks of 100-year-old spiritual herbs in a place that looked like a pill concocting facility. He estimated that they were worth at least 100 spirit stones. There was even a 500-year-old spiritual herb that could be used to concoct the blood condensation pill. This made Lu Ping very excited. When he returned to the front, Junling had already gained the upper hand. Lu Ping helped his seniors clean up the remaining enemies. Then he and Junling's disciples watched the battle between Master Immortal Lu and Master Immortal Du, Zhao Lingqiao, and the Cultivator Sharing Union's leader, Zhang Jiha. Looking at the crowd watching the battle in the sky with reverence, Lu Ping's mind was elsewhere. The blood-refining realm disciples hadn't cultivated their divine sense, so they couldn't benefit from the battle at all. They were only there to watch the show, but everyone was enjoying it. An idea came to Lu Ping's mind. He took out the map he obtained from the black-clothed cultivator and looked at it in an inconspicuous place. The moment he looked at it, the greed in Lu Ping's heart was ignited. Chapter 21. The map showed the location of Xianqi Island, the mini-islands, and the sea under its jurisdiction, as well as the production areas of various spirit ores, spirit herbs, spirit materials, and other cultivation necessities. Lu Ping raised his head and looked around. Seeing that everyone was still admiring the battle between the four blood condensation experts, he secretly found the corpse of a Xianling sect disciple that was similar to him. He stripped off his clothes and burned the corpse with a fire. Then he used a disguise technique to make his face blurry to the eyes of mortals. Following the directions on the map, he ran to other parts of the island. The reason why every sect wanted to expand their sphere of influence was to increase their cultivation resources. Apart from some natural spirit ores and spirit herbs, other renewable resources had to be cultivated. Therefore, every suitable place within the sect's territory had to be used to cultivate these cultivation resources. The local immortal masters would guide the mortals to cultivate these resources and share the resources with the sect. At the same time, they would protect the safety of the area. 10 miles east of the cliff facing the sun, there were 3 mu of spirit fields. 300 caddies of spirit grains were harvested. The output of these things was really low. Lu Ping muttered to himself as he ran to the next place. 18 miles southeast of the spirit wood garden had just handed over 10 stalks of spirit wood. The rest were useless. What bad luck. 20 miles south of the back mountain, there was a fine copper mine. Fine copper was a large spirit or used to forge low-grade magic tools. There were 100 roughly refined ores. In the shade of the west side of the mountain, there was a spirit herb garden. There were dozens of mature spirit herbs. Most of them were used to concoct late blood-refining pills. There was only a single 500-year-old spirit herb that was used to concoct common blood condensation pills. He had already looted the spirit stone mine in the north. There were still a few places that he hadn't visited yet. If he looted too much, it would be too obvious and raise suspicions. There probably wouldn't be anything good left. Besides, the battle between the four was about to end soon. Not including the spirit stone mine, the remaining items were probably worth close to 1,000 spirit stones. Thinking about the 3,000 spirit stones he had earned on this trip, Lu Ping was excited. It seemed that he could enter the blood condensation realm faster. This trip had taught Lu Ping the consequences of having a low cultivation. He didn't even have the right to know. He could only follow behind others and risk his life. He probably wouldn't even know why he died. Xianqi Island had a radius of 60 miles. This trip took Lu Ping a lot of time. When Lu Ping was about to reach Xianling sect's encampment, he heard a loud bang in the air, followed by 2 screams. Cultivator Sharing Union's leader Zhang Jiha's voice came from afar. Lu Ziyuan, you entered the late blood condensation realm. Despicable. Not long after Lu Ping returned to the camp, Master Immortal Lu and Master Immortal Du returned. Master Immortal Du looked tired, but Master Immortal Lu looked fine. It seemed like there was a huge difference between mid and late blood condensation realm. Seeing that everyone was present, he asked, "Did you manage to eliminate the enemies? What were the casualties of our disciples?" Senior Yao Yong stepped forward and said, "Only 2 of them managed to escape. I think they'll be crippled as well. The rest were all executed. 5 of our juniors died and 13 were injured. Most of them were cornered by the enemy, and both sides suffered heavy casualties." Master Lu let out a long sigh. "You must have thought that victory was in your grasp, right?" Everyone was shocked. Master Lu had hit the nail on the head. Master Lu continued, "In a battle of life and death, no matter when, where, and who, you have to give it your all. Why are you still in the mood to be complacent? Do you want to die too late?" Master Du, who was standing at the side, saw that Master Lu's face was already filled with anger. He quickly tried to smooth things over. But after this, all of you should remember this lesson. Remember it well in the future. The disciples hurriedly nodded in agreement. Master Lu continued, that Zhao Lingxiao has been killed by Master Du and me. Zhang Jihai used the blood spirit escape technique to escape with severe injuries. He won't be able to fully recover without a few years of careful recuperation. You can say that we have completed most of our training. It's getting late, so rest early today. Tomorrow all of you will split up and go to the smaller islands under Shenqi Island to expel or kill the Shenling sect disciples. From now on, Shenqi Island will belong to us, Shenling sect. The disciples were all excited. They excused themselves and went to find a place to rest. When Lu Ping saw the two master immortals walking towards the pavilion, he felt that he shouldn't let everyone know about the spirit mine. Hence, he quickly followed them and waited for the two master immortals to enter the pavilion. Then he slowly stepped forward to greet them. He heard Master Lu say from inside the pavilion, "Come in." Lu Ping entered the pavilion and saw that the two master immortals were already sitting cross-legged on two praying mats, smiling at Lu Ping. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. He thought that the two master immortals already knew what he had done. Master Immortal Du laughed. "When Brother Lu and I returned to the pavilion, we noticed that you were hesitating behind us. Do you have anything to say?" Only then did Lu Ping realize that his plan hadn't been exposed. He took a deep breath and told the two master immortals the story he had prepared beforehand. "What? A small spirit mine?" Master Immortal Lu was shocked. "Brother Lu, be quiet. What did that person look like? Did you see his face clearly?" Master Immortal Du was obviously more composed than usual. That person was dressed in black. It was the uniform of Xianling sect's outer disciples. He was extremely fast, and by the time I reached the bottom of the cliff, he had already disappeared. When I turned a corner, I realized that it was a spirit stone mine. I imprisoned the miners in the cave and didn't dare to make a sound. I hurriedly reported to the two master immortals. Master Immortal Lu finally recovered from his shock. "You did well. But from now on, this matter must not be publicized." Lu Ping hurriedly nodded. Master Immortal Du smiled bitterly. "I'm afraid that the other resources on the island have already been looted by that person." Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. Master Immortal Lu continued, "Those are just some superficial wealth. As long as the garden is not destroyed, it will be fine. It's only a matter of time before it recovers. Even 10 times the value of those things can't compare to the spirit stone mine. If anything goes wrong, it will be a huge loss." Master Immortal Du nodded. "Fortunately, enlightened Master Chu is on Shenhua Island. We need to send the message quickly. It's only 500 miles away. We'll arrive in no time." Master Immortal Lu said gravely, "I'm afraid that this matter is also out of Martial Uncle Chu's control. I'm afraid that he will have to report this to his superiors." Master Immortal Du shook his head. "That's not something we should worry about. Fortunately, this raid was successful. Even if there were a few survivors, they wouldn't be able to send the message as quickly as we did. It's a good chance for us to make the first move." As he finished speaking, he took out a talisman. Lu Ping recognized it as a sound transmission talisman. However, it was a talisman that could only be refined by a blood condensation cultivator. The surface of this talisman was golden in color, and it was clearly made by a core forging enlightened master. Sure enough, after Master Immortal Lu said a few words to the talisman, he tossed it out. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared without a trace. Chapter 22. Just as Lu Ping retreated, he found a place to study the map again. Suddenly, a blinding red light flew from the north and arrived above Shenqi Island in an instant. An overwhelming pressure enveloped the entire island. Then, as if it had discovered something, the red light disappeared into the pavilion. A commotion broke out among the disciples, but Lu Ping knew it was enlightened Master Chu, the finale of this mission. When Lu Ping was in the pavilion, he already knew that Jinling had come prepared. The spies were just an excuse. However, the appearance of the spirit stone mine seemed to complicate the situation. A moment later, two master immortals rushed out of the pavilion and gathered the disciples. Enlightened Master Chu has ordered all disciples to depart immediately and attack the surrounding seas and islands of Shenqi Island. If you encounter any Xianling cultivators, kill them without mercy. If you are no match for them, especially if you encounter the leader of the cultivator sharing union, Zhang Jihai, send out the signal immediately. Master Immortal Du and I will be there soon." The disciples nodded in agreement. This time no one dared to delay. Everyone took out their mystic instruments and flew towards the surrounding areas of Xianqi Island. The direction Lu Ping chose was the southeast. There was a mini island about 100 miles away from Xianqi Island. On it was a mini mine that produced about 60 spirit stones a day. According to Xianling sect's rule of collecting spirit stones once every 5 days, that was 300 spirit stones a day. Apart from Xianqi Island, this was one of the most important locations. However, he didn't know how strong the cultivator station there were. Lu Ping stuffed an essence replenishing pill into his mouth. "Even if I'm a peak 9th layer blood condensation realm cultivator, I still have to fight them." The islands in the sea were divided into 4 levels. Those with a circumference of 10 miles were called small islands. Those with a circumference of 50 miles were called small islands. Those with a circumference of 100 to 200 miles were called medium islands. Those with a circumference of 500 miles were called large islands. And those with a circumference of 1,000 miles were called large islands. Jinling was one of the most powerful sects in the North Sea region, and even Jinling only had a large island as its headquarters, which was about 700 miles in circumference. However, there was a large spirit vein on the True Spirit Island, which had been cultivated by Jinling for tens of thousands of years, and was more than enough for Jinling's current development. Lu Ping used the flight-type artifact Small Spirit Boat and arrived at the miniature island called Yellow Jade Island in just the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Lu Ping deliberately flew to a high vantage point to look down at the island and found that it was relatively peaceful. Because it was night time, there were only a few fishing fires left in the mortal's residence. Lu Ping pondered for a moment, then he took out the Xianling sect disciple uniform and put it on again. Then he rushed towards the location marked on the map. He knew that the residence of the disciples stationed on the island was definitely not too far from the Spirit Stone mine. Just as Lu Ping was about half a mile away from the location marked on the map, a cold voice came from behind a rock in front of him. "Who are you and what are you doing here?" Lu Ping secretly thanked his lucky stars. If it wasn't for the Xianling sect uniform, there was a high chance that the person hiding behind the rock would ambush him. Lu Ping pretended to be anxious and said, "Senior Marshal Brother, it's me. Master Immortal Zhao Lingqiao has an urgent matter, and he ordered me to inform Senior Marshal Brother to come to Xianqi Island as soon as possible." "Oh," the person replied, then asked, "Do you know what it is?" Lu Ping cursed under his breath, then continued to make up a story. Master Immortal Zhao said that Jinling might attack Xianqi Island, so he ordered the Senior Marshal brothers stationed on the surrounding islands to return as soon as possible. Master Immortal Zhao has already sent a cultivator from the Cultivator Sharing Union back to the sect. The person behind the rock finally walked out and said, "I was wondering why you were in such a hurry to rush to my residence. So that's why." Lu Ping looked at the cultivator walking towards him and was secretly pleased with himself. However, when he heard the cultivator's words, his heart tightened. "So Senior Marshal Brother has been following me all this time." The person shook his head and said, "It's a type of warning talisman scattered around Huangyu Island. After you arrived on the island, you activated the talisman and I knew." Looking at the approaching cultivator, Lu Ping smiled and said, "So that's how it is. And here I thought Senior Marshal Brother had reached the blood condensation realm and cultivated a divine sense." The person shook his head and smiled bitterly. "How could it be so easy? It took me a lot of effort to gather a few spiritual herbs to refine the blood condensation pill. I don't know when I'll be able to gather the rest." Hearing this, Lu Ping was overjoyed. He said, "If that's the case, then die." Before he could finish speaking, a sword ray had already slashed towards him. The friar was caught off guard. In his shock, he only had time to throw out a supreme-grade dermic weapon. He exclaimed, "You're not a disciple of our sect. Who are you?" Lu Ping's voice was stern. "The person who will take your life." As he spoke, he didn't give the cultivator a chance to catch his breath. Another 2 supreme-grade blood talismans flew out. The friar's dermic weapon was cut in half by Lu Ping's sword. Lu Ping's attack left a half-foot-long gash on his body. The friar had just taken out a pagoda-shaped dermic weapon, but before he could activate it, 2 blood talismans knocked it down. The power of a supreme-grade talisman was second only to a blood condensation cultivator's attack. Lu Ping stabbed at him again, forcing him to take out his dermic weapon from his storage bag. The friar could only form hand seals and cast 4 to 5 spells in an attempt to slow down Lu Ping's attack. Lu Ping casually slapped a supreme-grade protective blood talisman on his body. He no longer cared about defending and only focused on attacking. Seeing that his spells were useless on his opponent, the friar couldn't help but curse in despair. Supreme-grade blood talisman, you're despicable. He didn't know whether to curse Lu Ping for using blood talismans or Lu Ping for tricking him into attacking him. Just as he finished cursing, Lu Ping had already taken his head with another slash. Looking at the spurting blood, Lu Ping still felt a little uncomfortable even though he had already taken a few lives. He took 2 storage bags from the cultivator's body and quickly left. He went to another place on the island to collect a few dozen caddies of spirit grains. There were some spiritual materials in other places, but it wasn't time yet. It was pointless to go there. Lu Ping simply turned around and flew to another island. On the way, Lu Ping looked at his spoils of war. There were 160 spirit stones in the storage bag. The cultivator stationed on the island could get 20% of the island's resources. The cultivator must have taken out his share. 60 caddies of spirit grains were only 20 spirit stones. On the other hand, the cultivator's interspatial pouch contained some good stuff. The tower-shaped mystic instrument was actually a mid-grade defensive mystic instrument, which left Lu Ping speechless. Fortunately, Lu Ping reacted quickly and blasted the mystic instrument away with the blood charm before the cultivator could cast it out. Otherwise, the battle would have been much more difficult. This solved his problem of changing into a 9th-layer blood-refining realm cultivator. Although he could use a mid-grade mystic instrument now, it was still quite difficult. This was also because his arcane energy was more abundant than ordinary people. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to think about using a mid-grade mystic instrument. A low-grade offensive mystic instrument, a mace, looked very mighty. 3 bottles of supreme-grade medicinal pills for 9th-layer blood-refining realm cultivators, blood vigor pills. These pills were much better than the ones Lu Ping had seen before. 3 stalks of 500-year-old spiritual herbs were required to concoct the blood-condensing pills. Although Lu Ping had obtained 2 of them before, it didn't affect his ability to exchange them for blood-condensing pills and Jinling. Among the 24 types of 500-year-old spiritual herbs required to concoct the blood-condensing pills, as long as he gathered 8 of them, he could exchange them for a blood-condensing pill. There were close to 200 spirit stones. Guarding a spirit stone mine was indeed a lucrative job. Not only could he use the best medicinal pills for cultivation, but he could also save a lot of spirit stones. There was also a talisman crafting jade scroll. To be able to craft a rare talisman like the warning talisman, this Xianling sect cultivator must have a high level of talisman crafting skills. Lu Ping placed the jade scroll on his forehead. Lu Ping knew how to craft most of the talismans inside. There was also a summary of the cultivator's talisman crafting experience. Finally, there was the method of crafting the warning talisman that made Lu Ping salivate. Lu Ping was not in the mood to count the other spiritual materials and miscellaneous items. Chapter 23. Xianqi Island had 16 smaller islands under its jurisdiction. After leaving Huangyu Island, Lu Ping flew towards the east. That was the furthest island under Xianqi Island's jurisdiction, Huangli Island. This time, Zhenling sect had the absolute advantage in the purge of Xianling sect's disciples. There were too many wolves but not enough meat. Everyone knew this was an opportunity to make a fortune, and no one wanted to fall behind. Other than Huangyu Island, there were other islands that were more lucrative than Huangli Island. However, by the time Lu Ping went to other islands, there would only be scraps left. Hence, he might as well try his luck on Huangli Island. According to the map, Huangli Island was one of the more desolate of the 16 islands. Normally, it could only be used as a spiritual grain production base. Fortunately, there were a few spots with dense spiritual energy. 5 mu of spiritual fields were opened up, and every 3 months, a batch of spiritual grains could be harvested up to 500 gene of spiritual grains. Lu Ping could be said to be filthy rich, but he still couldn't bear to part with the meat on the leg of a mosquito. 15 minutes later, Lu Ping arrived at Huangli Island. He quickly swallowed an essence-replenishing pill to recover his arcane energy. In just 2 short days he had been eating essence-replenishing pills like jelly beans. Indeed, spirit stones were spent like water in battle. The one guarding Huangli Island was a Xianling 8th-layer blood-refining realm disciple. Without a word, Lu Ping thrust his flying sword towards his chest. Before the disciple realized why this fellow disciple wanted to kill him, he could only roll to the side in panic. However, his shoulder blade was still pierced by Lu Ping. There was no suspense in what happened next. This Xianling sect disciple was severely injured. Whether it was his cultivation, his magical equipment, or his wealth, he was no match for Lu Ping. His only fate was to die. Lu Ping's harvesting skills had improved a lot over the past few days. In just 2 hours he had already harvested 5 acres of spirit grains that were divided into 7 or 8 areas on the island. From this fallen Xianling sect disciple, Lu Ping didn't gain much. After all, he was only an 8th layer Xianling sect disciple, and he was sent to this remote island to plant spirit grains. It was obvious that he wasn't welcomed by the sect. There were only a few dozen spirit stones in the storage pouch, and only a low-grade flying knife as a magic weapon. Unfortunately, he was killed before he could use it, and Lu Ping took advantage of it in vain. Some of the medicinal pills were normal as well. He had the same cultivation level as Lu Ping, but he was actually using the blood purification pill that Lu Ping had already eliminated long ago. However, the 50 kilograms of spirit grain inside was not bad. There were also some miscellaneous spiritual materials that were not worth much spirit stones. Lu Ping was too lazy to count them and put them back into the storage bag. After a night of running and fighting, Lu Ping felt very tired. Seeing that there were only a little more than 2 hours left until dawn, Lu Ping decided to rest on Huangli Island for a while to recover his spiritual energy and spiritual energy. 4 hours later, the sky was bright. The mortals on the island had already started their daily routine, and they didn't know that Huangli Island had changed. Lu Ping let out a long breath and slowly stopped cultivating. He felt the spiritual energy in his blood vessels getting stronger. He was slightly excited. Fighting was indeed an effective way to improve. His 8th layer Xianling cultivation had reached its peak. It seemed that after this mission he would be able to break through to the late 8th layer. At this moment he heard the rumbling of thunder from afar. Lu Ping was surprised. Although the weather over the sea was unpredictable, the sound of thunder was also strange. Originally, Lu Ping didn't plan to pay attention to it. But after cultivating for a while, he was suddenly interrupted by the sound of hurried footsteps. He heard the calm voice of a middle-aged man say, reporting to Immortal Elder, the fishermen on the island were suddenly attacked by sea beasts. The nets of several fishing boats were torn apart by the sea beasts. Some of the smaller fishing boats were also knocked over. More than 10 fishermen have already been eaten by the sea beasts. Please, Immortal Elder, save them. Lu Ping originally planned to return to Xianqi Island immediately. He didn't want to meddle in this matter. But after thinking about it, Xianqi Island would soon be under Jinling's rule. He could also make a name for the sect in advance. Lu Ping grew up in the True Spirit faction and felt a sense of belonging to Jinling. Lu Ping followed the middle-aged man to the harbor. When everyone saw that the Immortal Elder had been replaced, they didn't dare to say anything. Instead, they cheered at his arrival. Several fishing boats outside the harbor had already sunk. Many of the fishermen who had fallen into the sea had been rescued, but many had been dragged into the water by the sea beasts. There were a few bloodstains on the surface of the water. There were also a few fishing nets that had been scattered by the sea beasts and dragged around by the sea beasts. The islanders who had gathered on the shore cried out in alarm. Lu Ping was flustered by the cries. He activated his magic boat and made a white wave on the surface of the sea. In the blink of an eye, he arrived outside the harbor. Lu Ping threw 2 flying swords and a flying dagger into the sea. The 3 magic weapons pierced back and forth. Immediately, the sea was dyed red with the blood of the sea beasts. Huge carcasses of the sea beasts floated to the surface. Lu Ping threw a few ice thorn talismans and golden dagger talismans towards the fishing boats that were running around. The golden dagger talismans cut the ropes of the fishing nets while the ice thorn talismans pierced into the sea, bringing up another flower of blood. When the fishermen of Huangli Island saw that the Immortal Elder had easily resolved a disaster, they couldn't help but sing praises for Lu Ping loudly. The fishermen on the rescued boats were even more grateful to Lu Ping. For a moment, Lu Ping was at a loss as to what to do. Lu Ping wanted to show off for Jinling. He raised his voice and shouted, "I am a disciple of Jinling. From today onwards, Huangli Island will be under Jinling's rule. Our sect will naturally protect the islanders." Sure enough, the islanders didn't have any dissatisfaction with the change of sect. They simply agreed in unison. At this moment, a muffled thunder resounded from afar. Only now did Lu Ping realize that it wasn't thunder. Perhaps someone was fighting. These sea beasts were probably frightened by the fight and fled in all directions. The fishermen of Huangli Island were caught in the crossfire. Lu Ping's mind shuddered. Who else would know how to fight at this moment? He quickly cast a sound amplification spell and shouted towards the fishing boats outside the harbor, "Quickly return to the harbor. Everyone on the island return to your homes. Beware of trouble." Nobody dared to question Lu Ping. One after another they returned to their boats. Just as everyone on the island was evacuated, a blood-red light was flying towards the direction of Huangli Island. Behind the blood-red light, a fleeing light was hot on its tail. When the fleeing light got closer, Lu Ping realized that the cultivator in the blood-red light was Zhang Jihe, who had escaped earlier. A loud shout came from the fleeing light behind. "Is that martial nephew Lu in front?" Quickly stopped the remnants of the cultivator sharing union. It was Master Immortal Du Zichao. Lu Ping felt bitter in his heart. That Zhang Jihe was an early blood condensation realm expert. Even though he was severely injured, he was still not someone that an 8th-layer blood refining realm cultivator like him could handle. "I'll just have to risk it. At most, I'll be heavily injured once. As long as I can hold on for a while, Master Immortal Du will be able to catch up." Seeing that the blood-red light was getting closer and closer, Lu Ping raised his right hand. An iron seal flew up and spun in the air. It grew to a size of several meters and smashed towards the blood-red light. At the same time, a bronze mirror floated above Lu Ping's head. His left hand only had enough time to strike out a supreme-grade diamond blood talisman. Then he heard the cultivator sharing union's leader, Zhang Jihe, shouting angrily from within the blood-red light, "You're courting death." An unstoppable surge of arcane energy surged towards him, sending landslide flying backwards. The bronze mirror above his head flickered, and the golden diamond blood talisman instantly turned transparent. Lu Ping felt a tightness in his chest. For a moment he couldn't summon his arcane energy. He had to take a few steps back before he could recover. Chapter 24. Lu Ping was frightened by Zhang Jihe's attack and almost suffered internal injuries. How could a heavily injured blood condensation cultivator be so powerful? Little did he know that Zhang Jihe was furious. He thought that a casual attack from him would be enough to kill this 8th-layer blood refining realm minor repairs cultivator. He didn't expect that this cultivator's cultivation level was so high that not only was he unharmed, he even managed to block Zhang Jihe's attack. Master Immortal Du, who was behind him, shouted out of desperation. He didn't expect Lu Ping to actually block Zhang Jihe's attack. Just as Zhang Jihe paused for a moment, Master Immortal Du's high-grade flying fish sword pierced through Zhang Jihe's back. Zhang Jihe had no hope of escaping and could only turn around to face the attack. Lu Ping knew that he had ruined Zhang Jihe's plan. He was worried that Zhang Jihe would be driven to desperate measures and that Master Immortal Du would order him to block Zhang Jihe's attack again, so he had already retreated far away. However, Lu Ping was overthinking. Zhang Jihe was already an arrow at the end of its flight. He had used the blood escape technique twice with injuries and was already at the end of his rope. A moment later, Lu Ping heard a blood-curdling scream in midair. Zhang Jihe had been killed by Master Immortal Du with a single strike. Lu Ping hurried forward and reported to Master Immortal Du what had happened since yesterday. Master Immortal Du gave him a few words of praise and then briefly explained to Lu Ping how he killed Zhang Jihe. It turned out that a disciple who was training yesterday had coincidentally encountered Zhang Jihe on a small island. Before this disciple died, he released a signal and Master Immortal Du happened to be the closest to him. After rushing over, the two of them engaged in a fierce battle. Zhang Jihe was already heavily injured and was no match for Master Immortal Du, so he had no choice but to use the blood escape technique again. Unfortunately, Master Immortal Du was prepared this time and chased after him. In the end, he was blocked by Lu Ping and died. In the end, Master Immortal Du took out a jade scroll and said, "This scroll records Zhang Jihe's blood escape secret technique. This secret technique is quite useful in preserving one's life. This time, you were able to block Zhang Jihe's attack and save me a lot of trouble. Take this jade scroll." Lu Ping was very excited. Secret skills could become more powerful as one's cultivation increased. Although there was always a certain price to pay for using secret skills, every secret skill was a means to kill enemies and save one's life. It was never a bad thing to have more skills. In the last ranking tournament, the top 8 had received a secret technique as a reward. Lu Ping had been brooding over the fact that he did not participate in the top 16 battles. Now he felt much better. Master Immortal Du looked at Lu Ping's excited expression and said, Elder Chu has ordered that the disciples must return to Xianqi Island as soon as possible after completing their mission. You can return with me. The flying speed of a blood condensation realm cultivator was indeed amazing. Thanks to Master Immortal Du, Lu Ping used a quarter of the time that Lu Ping took to return to Xianqi Island. At this time there were many changes on the island. The island's protective array formation had been activated by Jinling once again. Moreover, it seemed to be even more powerful than before. Jinling cultivators of the blood condensation realm flew across the sky from time to time. The entire Xianqi Island was filled with a murderous aura. The disciples who were originally excited about completing their mission were also affected by the atmosphere. The excitement on their faces disappeared. Lu Ping found the other members of Group 7. Through Shi Lingling, who returned first, he learned that 3 more blood condensation realm cultivators had arrived on the island last night. Everyone was shocked by the arrival of 3 more blood condensation realm cultivators. Are we really going to start a war with Xianling sect? First senior martial brother Yao Yong asked in confusion. Who knows? It seems like they won't need us anymore, Shi Lingling said. Lu Ping knew the reason, but he was not stupid enough to explain it to them. While everyone was talking, they saw 3 core forging stage enlightened masters flying over from outside the island and landing in the pavilion. Everyone was dumbfounded and looked at each other in dismay. 7 core forging realm enlightened masters. After a while, Shi Lingling smiled bitterly and said, "Looks like something big is going to happen." Everyone was silent. Sure enough, in the afternoon, Master Immortal Lu came to inform them that the mission was completed ahead of schedule. The disciples were to return to Zhenling Side Hall as soon as possible to reflect on their experiences and improve their cultivation. Including the disciples stationed on Xianhua Island, there were a total of 40 people who participated in the mission. When everyone returned to Xianhua Island, only 32 people were left and half of them were injured. There were a total of 8 disciples in Group 7 who were at least in the 8th layer of the blood refining realm. The 8th senior martial brother, who had just broken through to the blood refining realm after the grand competition, had died in the mission to eliminate the disciples that Xianling had stationed on Mini Island last night. Even though the surviving disciples had gained a lot from the mission, the remaining 7 people in Group 7 were still in low spirits. After returning to the side hall, Lu Ping went into his cultivation room and started his closed-door cultivation. Lu Ping might not have gained the most out of the 40 disciples, but he was also one of the ones who gained the most. More importantly, his cultivation was on the verge of breaking through after 2 days of training. The level 3 disciples were no longer forced to cultivate by the Master Immortal, and they could use their time freely. 7 days later, with a sufficient supply of medicinal pellets, Lu Ping finally entered the late stage of the 8th layer. He began to slowly accumulate arcane energy and advance to the 9th layer. After finishing his closed-door cultivation, Lu Ping sorted out the miscellaneous items he obtained from the mission and sold them in the market. Although these spiritual herbs, spiritual materials, and miscellaneous ores were not worth much, there was a lot of them. Lu Ping got his hands on 220 spirit stones. He then replenished himself with a large number of blood purification pills, vitality recovery pills, spirit recovery pills, and other elixirs to recover arcane energy, healing pills, and other daily necessities. He spent all the spirit stones he had on hand. At this time, the other teams that went out for training began to return one after another. The returning disciples made the side hall's market bustling with activity. At the same time, all kinds of news about the mission spread in the side hall. Another 7 days passed, and Lu Ping sold a few hundred caddies of spirit grains in the market. Based on the exchange rate of 1 spirit stone for 3 caddies of spirit grains, Lu Ping earned another 300 spirit stones. Other than buying medicinal pellets and talisman papers, he also bought 20 blood spirit pills that could replenish blood essence. In the blink of an eye, he spent 200 of the 300 spirit stones he got. At this time, the news about Jinling's mission spread in the market and the side hall. Almost all of the participants were Xianling sect and its affiliated forces. The 20 teams and the disciples from the other sects had conquered 17 small islands and their affiliated islands belonging to Xianling sect, Soaring Feather sect, Songlang sect, and the other 2 sections. The other 3 small islands that had not been conquered had also caused heavy casualties to the cultivators stationed on those islands. At the same time, Jinling accused Xianling sect in the North Sea Alliance of instructing its disciples to disguise themselves as rogue cultivators, forming the Cultivator Sharing Union, Cultivator Sharing Association, and the other 4 groups to infiltrate Jinling and the other sects' territories to spy on information and hunt down other sects' disciples. At the same time, Songlang sect, Jade Sword sect, and the other 4 sects also produced the relevant evidence to support Jinling. Naturally, Xianling sect refuted with all their might, saying that Jinling was a thief crying thief, and that it was an excuse to invade Xianling sect and the other 4 sections. They also called on the other sects in the North Sea Alliance to condemn Jinling and the other sects for their sinful behavior. For a time, the North Sea Alliance's sects were in conflict. Chapter 25. None of these disturbances had any effect on Lu Ping. He continued with his cultivation as if he was detached from the world. Other than making a trip to the market every 7 days to sell his gains and buying cultivation supplies, he didn't waste any time. Another 7 days passed. Lu Ping had sold a batch of mid-high grade talismans and over 100 refined copper ores to the store of Bountiful Treasures Pavilion. That earned him another 200 spiritual stones. Since he had enough cultivation supplies, he didn't buy anything this time. At the same time, Jinling and its affiliated forces were attacked by Xianling sect in the west and east. Since Jinling was well prepared, although both sides suffered losses, Jinling didn't lose the 10 islands that Jinling and Xianling sect occupied. Only the north and south side, where Xianling and Jinling faced each other, were strangely calm. At the same time, the upper echelons of both sects continued to squabble in the North Sea Alliance. Both sides formed their own cliques. Although Xianling sect was the traditional leader of the alliance, Jinling sect had the upper hand in terms of morality and justice. Thus, they won the sympathy of the neutral sections. Another 7 days passed, and Lu Ping received an invitation to a trade fair organized by the disciples and outer sect disciples. The main purpose of this trade fair was to exchange information and promote cultivation. It would be held in a month's time. Lu Ping thought about it and decided to go and have a look. At this time, there was news that Jinling and Xianling sect had already fought on the border of the north and south side the day after Xianqi Island was occupied. Both sides were core forging enlightened masters, which was why both sides didn't make it public. There was also news that there was a tsunami and thunder at the place where the fight happened. This was a natural phenomenon that could only be caused by a battle between core forging enlightened masters. Someone provided further evidence that the 7th group of the True Spirit Side Hall, which had conquered Xianqi Island, had hurriedly ended their trial and returned to the side hall on the 2nd afternoon. Why had the 7th group finished the trial 7 days earlier than the other groups? There was also a rumor that Xianling sect had sent 2 core forging enlightened masters to Xianqi Island, but when they returned, their faces were pale and haggard. It was obvious that they were heavily injured. What kind of power could injure 2 core forging enlightened masters? It would require at least 4 core forging enlightened masters of the same cultivation level. The strange calm in the southern sea was probably because both sides were mobilizing their forces. As one of the parties involved, Lu Ping naturally understood the truth of the matter better than most people. However, he only understood a little more. Although the Spirit Stone mine was an accident, it was obvious that both parties had deeper arrangements and backups. However, Lu Ping had a feeling that the two sides wouldn't fight. At most, they would settle the matter peacefully. Although he didn't know the reason, judging from the peaceful expressions on the faces of the immortals in the side hall, there wasn't the slightest trace of solemnity during a war. Another 7 days passed. Lu Ping looked at the set of top-grade early warning talismans that he had just made in front of him. This early warning talisman was extremely difficult to make. This was the first time Lu Ping had successfully made a set of top-grade early warning talismans after obtaining the production method. This set of early warning talismans consisted of a primary talisman and 8 child talismans. It could roughly monitor the situation within a mile around him. Although it wasn't as detailed as Divine Sense, it still had some special features that Divine Sense couldn't. Unfortunately, this child warning talisman only had the production method for blood refining realm cultivators. Otherwise, when he obtained Divine Sense, he would have a better production method. The two could complement each other and it would be a good choice. At this time, there were rumors of battles between core forging realm enlightened masters on the east and west sides of the sea. Xianling sect had retaken 3 islands, but Xianling sect still firmly occupied 14 islands. Among them, Jinling alone occupied 9 islands. Another rumor said that something strange had happened in the southern sea. One day the sky alternated between clear and dark, but there wasn't a single cloud in the sky. The fishermen who went fishing didn't encounter any wind or waves. On the contrary, the sea beasts that usually wreaked havoc were all gone. The fisherman had a good harvest that day. Another 7 days passed, and a blood-red shadow suddenly appeared in the forest behind the side hall. From the shadow, a young man about 17 or 18 years old appeared. It was Lu Ping. Lu Ping's face was unusually pale, as if he had just recovered from a serious illness. However, his expression was one of excitement. "I've finally mastered the blood escape technique. These days I've been eating so many blood spirit pills to replenish the blood essence I've used to cultivate the blood escape technique." At this time, both Junling and Xianling sect suddenly fell silent. Even their affiliated forces had stopped fighting. For a moment, the North Sea cultivators who had been paying attention to the situation were at a loss as to what to do. Lu Ping thought about how Junling had mobilized 7 core forging realm enlightened masters in an instant. With such ample preparation and resolute attitude, Junling's sect would definitely hold back for fear of harming the innocent. It seemed that this conflict would most likely be resolved peacefully. However, it was likely that Junling wouldn't let go of the spirit mine. In other aspects, Junling would also have to take a step back. Another 7 days passed. Lu Ping carefully organized all the mystic artifacts he had on him. There were a total of 7 low-grade mystic artifacts: the Iron Seal Landslide, the Copper Mirror, the Flying Knife, the Mace, the Jade Scepter, the Flying Sword, the Jade Bottle, and a mid-grade mystic artifact, Mountain Suppressing Pagoda. After some consideration, Lu Ping eliminated the Flying Knife, the Mace, the Jade Scepter, and the Flying Sword. Instead, he carefully refined the remaining 4 mystic artifacts. At the same time, he decided to exchange them for a mid-grade Flying Sword mystic artifact in preparation for his breakthrough to the 9th layer blood refining realm. At this time, the news of the peace talks between Xianling sect and Junling had already spread. Since Junling had the moral high ground, he would definitely take over the 14 islands as a fait accompli. On the other hand, Xianling sect would try its best to shirk its responsibility and rely on its powerful strength and alliance to put pressure on Junling. Now both sides' focus was on the 14 islands. Another 7 days passed. Lu Ping had spent 2 months digesting the results of the 2 days of training. Naturally, the results were to Lu Ping's satisfaction. At the same time, the sect also distributed the rewards according to each team member's contribution and performance. Hiding the fact that he killed the cultivators outside the spirit mine, Lu Ping killed 2 Xianling sect disciples and received 20 contribution points. Assisting his teammates in killing 3 Xianling sect disciples earned him 15 contribution points. This was an excellent result. After all, Junling had the upper hand when they took over Xianqi Island. It wasn't easy for them to gain the upper hand in the encirclement. At the same time, there were 2 hidden rewards. Assisting Master Immortal Du in killing Zhang Jiha and discovering and reporting the news of the spirit mine in time. For some reason, Master Immortal Du also hid the first reward. These 2 rewards gave Lu Ping 20 contribution points each. Adding on the fact that he reported the cultivator sharing union to Master Immortal Lu Ping now had a total of 85 contribution points. In order to participate in the trade fair between the side hall and the outer sect disciples, Lu Ping organized his belongings. He had about 3,200 spirit stones, and this was the result of consuming a large amount of spirit stones in the past 2 months. 5 stalks of 500-year-old spiritual herbs for concocting blood-condensing pills. 1 stalk of 500-year-old spiritual herb for concocting blood condensation realm pills. 4 unused low-grade mystic artifacts. A large amount of blood refining realm pills. 3 bottles of the best quality blood vigor pills used by 9th layer blood refining realm cultivators. About 100 different kinds of top-grade blood talismans, accumulated over the past 2 years. There were also 50 top-grade talismans, 100 high-grade talismans, 7 sets of high-grade warning talismans, and 2 sets of top-grade blood talismans. There were also some miscellaneous items used for cultivation. Lu Ping was fully prepared for this trade fair. All he had to do was wait for the day to come. Chapter 26. 12 Fangs of a Late-Stage First-Order Demonic Beast, Sharp Fang Fish. They are used to refine low-grade magic tools. I wish to exchange them for 2 bottles of cultivation pills for the 8th or 9th layer of blood refining realm. Lu Ping couldn't help shaking his head in disappointment as he watched a monastery disciple display his harvest from the trial. At the same time, he was exchanging for the cultivation resources he needed. Originally, Lu Ping had held some hope for this trade fair. He thought he would be able to exchange for some of the things he needed. However, this trade fair only had a third of the participants, and all of them were displaying things that Lu Ping didn't need. No wonder only 80 or 90 out of the 150 monastery disciples and outer sect disciples participated in the trade fair. That was especially true of the famous 9th layer blood refining disciples from the monastery and outer sect. Not even a single one of them showed up. It wasn't that these things weren't good. After all, which disciple didn't have any harvest from the trial? Who would take out something that was unpresentable just to embarrass themselves in front of others? However, Lu Ping was now rich. He had long since turned his nose up at these things that were considered precious by ordinary blood refining realm disciples. While the ordinary blood refining realm upper echelon disciples were still haggling over a low-grade mystic instrument, a bottle of medicinal pellets, or dozens of spirit stones, Lu Ping had long set his sights on mid-grade mystic instruments, blood-condensing pellets and other higher-grade items. Just as Lu Ping was about to leave, a rather famous 9th layer disciple walked onto the stage. He took out a 500-year-old spirit grass that was used to refine blood-condensing pills, causing the disciples below to gasp in surprise. Lu Ping also straightened his back and listened attentively to this person's request. Concocting blood-condensing pills requires a 500-year-old spirit grass, fragrant astringent grass. I wish to exchange it for pills for the 9th layer of blood refining realm. The higher the grade, the better. An outer disciple who knew him couldn't help but ask, "Senior apprentice Brother Su, why did you take out this spirit grass? If you have 8 of them, you can exchange them for blood-condensing pills from our sect." Senior apprentice Brother Su looked at the crowd and smiled. "I already have some ideas about the blood-condensing pills. Now, I just need to improve my cultivation." Senior apprentice Brother Su enjoyed the envious gazes from the crowd. "Is there anyone who wants to exchange for it?" The crowd finally regained their senses. It was clear how important the blood-condensing pills and the blood condensation realm were to the blood-refining realm disciples. Everyone started to estimate their own wealth to see if they could get this precious spirit grass. "Senior apprentice brother, can I exchange it with spirit stones?" "Senior apprentice brother, can I exchange it with other items of similar value?" Senior Marshal Brother Su frowned and said, "I'm sorry, I only want medicinal pills. I don't need spiritual stones or anything else." "Senior brother, I have 3 bottles of blood cleansing pills with a total of 30 pills. If it's not enough, I'll make up for it with spirit stones. How about that?" The disciple who spoke quickly borrowed spirit stones from the surrounding disciples. "Blood purification pills? That's a pill used by cultivators in the 6th or 7th layer of blood refining realm. Senior brother, I have 3 bottles of blood essence pills and 6 bottles of blood purification pills. What do you think?" "I'm sorry, I need at least 6 bottles of blood essence pills for the 8th and 9th layer blood refining realm. Blood purification pills are of little value to me." As soon as Senior Apprentice Brother Su finished speaking, the chaotic crowd quieted down. Only a few people were still borrowing pills from the surrounding disciples, hoping to gather the required amount. Looking at the chaotic scene below the stage, Senior Brother Su was a little disappointed. It wasn't that no one could afford this spirit grass, but the problem was that there weren't that many pills in such a short amount of time. Even if someone managed to gather all the pills, he was afraid that in the future, this person would not have enough pills, and it would affect his cultivation. "Senior Apprentice Brother Su, what do you think of this pill?" A 17-year-old disciple stood up and tossed a jade bottle to Senior Apprentice Brother Su. Senior Apprentice Brother Su caught the bottle and opened it. His eyes lit up and he quickly asked, "Junior Apprentice Brother, how many of these pills do you have? If you have enough, I'll trade with you." Lu Ping smiled and said, "I was lucky to get this 1 bottle, but I can add 3 more bottles of blood essence pills in exchange for Senior Apprentice Brother's fragrant astringent grass. What do you think?" When Senior Apprentice Brother Su heard that there was only 1 bottle, he was disappointed. However, when he heard that Lu Ping could take out enough blood essence pills, he was satisfied. He said, "In that case, this spirit grass is yours, Junior Apprentice Brother." When the crowd saw that Lu Ping had traded for a spirit grass, they were shocked by Lu Ping's wealth and wondered what kind of pills Lu Ping had used. 1 bottle was equivalent to 3 bottles of blood essence pills. Naturally, that bottle was the best pill for blood refining cultivators, the blood vigor pill. Lu Ping ignored the crowd's discussion and directly went up to trade with Senior Apprentice Brother Su. At the same time, he whispered to Senior Apprentice Brother Su, "I wonder if Senior Apprentice Brother Su has any more spirit grass to refine the blood condensing pill?" I can use 6 more bottles of blood essence pills to trade. Although senior apprentice brother Su was shocked by Lu Ping's generosity, he could only smile helplessly. He said, "These spirit grass are not easy to obtain. I only managed to collect 3 of them before. Because I already know how to refine the blood condensing pill, I used 2 of them to trade for a magic tool and a pill. This is the last one." Helpless, Lu Ping could only return to his seat. Previously, Lu Ping had easily obtained 5 spirit grass to refine the blood condensing pill, so he didn't think that these spirit grass were very precious. However, the craziness of the exchange this time shocked Lu Ping. Only now did he realize the true value of the 5 spirit grass he had. But he had already obtained 6 of them, and the blood condensing pill was just around the corner. After the disturbance of the spirit grass, the exchange finally began to show some signs of improvement. Quite a few valuable items were placed on the stage, and the disciples below were all fighting over them. The atmosphere immediately became lively. Lu Ping also felt that his horizons had been broadened a bit. As expected, there were quite a few people who had made great gains during this experiential training. Lu Ping was also quite interested in some of the items on display. Unfortunately, none of those items were of use to Lu Ping. Finally, it was Lu Ping's turn to present his treasures. Everyone was looking at this monastery disciple who had obtained the fragrant astringent grass. They all wanted to see just what sort of treasure he would bring out. Lu Ping had originally come for the middle-grade enchanted tools, but by the time the exchange was over halfway, only a few low-grade enchanted tools had appeared. That made Lu Ping a bit disappointed. If he went up now to exchange for a middle-grade enchanted tool, then ignoring whether or not he would be able to obtain it, the attention he would gain would be too great. So Lu Ping changed his plans. Lu Ping directly took out a wooden box from his storage pouch. Opening it, he revealed a stack of talismans. 50 high-grade talismans. I hope to exchange them for iron of the same value. Chapter 27. Lu Ping's transaction could be considered as a large sum of money. After all, these 50 high-grade talismans were worth 150 spirit stones, which Lu Ping had saved over a long period of time. Even if he were to buy an ordinary mid-grade magic tool, it would only be 100 to 150 spirit stones. After Lu Ping finished speaking, the people below the stage were also puzzled. Fine iron can at most be used to refine mid-grade magic tools. With so many talismans, an ordinary mid-grade magic tool should be enough. Why is he exchanging it for so much fine iron? Could it be that this person wants to learn the art of refining? Lu Ping just quietly waited for the people below the stage to bid. He naturally had his own ideas. His favorite landslide was refined using a portion of the fine iron. Lu Ping wanted to upgrade it to a mid-grade magic tool. In addition to its attack characteristics, he would undoubtedly need a large amount of fine iron to upgrade it to the mid-grade. Originally, Lu Ping had a lot of fine copper ores on hand. It was barely enough to upgrade landslide. However, Lu Ping considered that the raw materials for landslide were all iron-type spirit ores. Therefore, he felt that it would be better to continue using iron-type spirit ores to upgrade it. Lu Ping waited on the stage for a while, but no one came forward to bid. Although there were many people below the stage who were interested in these 50 talismans, Lu Ping specifically stated that he wanted fine iron ores, which made these people feel quite helpless. At this time, they only heard a rough and loud voice say embarrassedly, "Hee, I don't know if this senior brother can use black iron ores to exchange for it?" When the people below the stage heard black iron ores, they were in an uproar again. This was a spirit ore that could be used to refine high-grade magic tools. Lu Ping's eyes lit up. Regardless of the people around him trying to dissuade him, he quickly said, "How much do you have? I want it all." A simple and honest-looking young man with a big beard stood up and threw his storage pouch to Lu Ping. He chuckled and said, "Although it's not much, you don't have enough talismans." His clear eyes coupled with his honest face were still very deceptive. When the cultivators around him saw that his companion wasn't muddle-headed, they no longer tried to dissuade him. They only looked at Lu Ping. Lu Ping looked at the black iron in the bag. It was more than enough to upgrade landslide to high grade. He pondered for a moment and said, "What else do you need?" The large man's eyes lit up and said, "Magic tool low grade is fine. But it must be handy. Also, add some spirit stones and talismans." Lu Ping looked at the cultivator that was half a head taller and said, "What do you think of this magic tool?" A mace mystic instrument flew out from Lu Ping's interspatial pouch and the bearded cultivator caught it. Seeing the mighty magic artifact, the bearded cultivator was overjoyed. He impatiently picked it up and brandished it a few times, causing the surrounding cultivators to flee in fear while swearing loudly. The bearded cultivator didn't pay attention to these people and only said, "Good, very good. The quality is considered high among low-level magic tools. This is it. I'll add another 50 spirit stones. Is that enough?" The friar was familiarizing himself with the magic tool in his hand. "It's enough." The friar was familiarizing himself with the magic tool in his hand. He said, "It's enough." The cultivators that came with him felt helpless. Lu Ping unexpectedly obtained something he was even more satisfied with. He walked down the stage and the trade fair continued. At this point, the trade fair had entered its second half. Cultivators with good items were constantly exchanging them for the items they needed on the treasure offering stage. The cultivators below the stage were also scrambling to buy the items they needed. There were even signs of competition to raise the prices, which intrigued Lu Ping. A small outer sect disciple trade fair was already so intense. Lu Ping heard that there would sometimes be auctions for blood refining cultivators. The items there were even more precious. How intense would it be? After that, Lu Ping spent another 50 spirit stones to exchange for a stack of 100 talisman papers. These were high-grade talisman papers made by a cultivator who specialized in talisman making. They could increase the success rate and quality of talisman making. Lu Ping even discussed a long-term partnership with him. When the trade fair was about to end, a female cultivator took out 2 bottles of blood-solidifying pills and said that she wanted to exchange them for top-grade talismans. This caused the trade fair to reach its climax. The blood-solidifying pill was a type of pill between the blood essence pill and the blood vigor pill. It was a good item that 8th and 9th layer blood refining cultivators would crave for. However, the female cultivator clearly stated that she would only exchange for top-grade talismans. This caused the cultivators present to complain. 2 bottles of blood-solidifying pills were enough to exchange for 30 to 40 top-grade talismans. How could an ordinary blood-refining cultivator have so many top-grade talismans? Even a blood-refining cultivator who specialized in talisman making would need a long time to save up so many top-grade talismans. In the end, the transaction was not successful. The female cultivator was quite disappointed. Before she left the stage, she glanced at Lu Ping. This was because Lu Ping was the only one who exchanged a large number of talismans at the trade fair, even if they were only high-grade talismans. It wasn't that Lu Ping wasn't tempted. It was just that he had already attracted a lot of attention at the trade fair. If he were to trade for 2 more bottles of blood-solidifying pellets, he would inevitably attract unwanted attention. Lu Ping pondered for a moment. After the trade fair ended, he did not hurry to leave. Instead, he waited until most of the people had left before he walked in the direction that the female cultivator left. Lu Ping's speed was slightly faster, and he soon caught up with the female cultivator. Seeing that there was no one around, he walked forward and said, "Senior Marshal Sister, please wait." The female cultivator turned around and saw that it was Lu Ping. She also guessed Lu Ping's purpose, but she still asked, "What do you want?" Lu Ping chuckled and said, "I think Senior Marshal Sister has already guessed it. I want to exchange for Senior Marshal Sister's blood-solidifying pills." The female cultivator's face lit up when she heard this and she eagerly asked, "How many top-grade talismans do you have?" Lu Ping did not directly answer but said, "Senior Marshal Sister's 2 bottles of blood-solidifying pills are worth around 170 to 80 spirit stones. Different top-grade talismans can be exchanged for 30 to 40 of them. However, I have been accumulating top-grade talismans for my own use, so I have turned them into blood talismans. In this case, I can only give Senior Marshal Sister 25 blood talismans." The female cultivator heard this, thought for a moment and said, "25 talismans? That's barely enough, let's do it." The 2 of them exchanged talismans and pills. The female cultivator looked at Lu Ping and said, "Junior Marshal Brother looks young, but I didn't expect your talisman making skills to be so high. My name is Hu Lily, I don't know Senior Marshal Brother's name. If there is any need in the future, I will still need Junior Marshal Brother's help." Lu Ping smiled and said, "My name is Lu Ping. If Senior Marshal Sister has any need in the future, you can come to the courtyard's Group 7 to find me." Hu Lily suddenly smiled and said, "So you are the leader of the famous 7 ferocious of the 3rd grade disciples. I have heard of your name for a long time." Lu Ping did not know that his name had already spread to the outer sect disciples. Hearing this, he smiled bitterly and said, "Senior Marshal Sister, please don't make fun of me. I was just lucky enough to win a few matches in the inner sect disciple competition. I'm really ashamed of myself. Hu Lili looked at Lu Ping's embarrassed appearance and couldn't help but laugh. Chapter 28. After returning from the trade fair, Lu Ping once again immersed himself in his cultivation. Although Lu Ping didn't spend much of his spirit stones in this trade fair, he managed to trade quite a lot of other items. Naturally, his gains were not small. Especially the 2 bottles of blood solidifying pills, which were equivalent to 40 blood essence pills. Moreover, these 20 blood solidifying pills could be consumed in 20 days, while blood essence pills of the same effect would take Lu Ping 40 days. In other words, Lu Ping's cultivation efficiency would be doubled if he used the blood solidifying pills. In the blink of an eye, another half a year had passed. Lu Ping was almost 18 years old. With the help of sufficient spirit stones and medicinal pellets, Lu Ping finally reached the peak of 8th layer blood refining realm and was about to reach the barrier of 9th layer blood refining realm. In this half a year, the biggest event was the reconciliation between Jinling and Xianling sect under the mediation of many sects in the North Sea Alliance. After Xianling sect's investigation, they finally found out the truth behind the spy case. Some blood condensation cultivators in Xianling sect had supported some rogue cultivator organizations to obtain cultivation resources through improper means. Because of this, Xianling sect expressed their deep regret for the losses caused to Jinling and the other 4 sects due to poor management. Xianling sect had already decided to imprison the cultivation of the few masterminds behind the scenes, make them servants for 30 years, and revoke their inner disciple status. Jinling and the other 4 sects agreed with Xianling sect's investigation, but stated that the 15 islands they occupied were to be used as compensation for Jinling and the other 4 sections. Jinling wanted to legitimize the fait accompli. Unfortunately, Xianling sect relied on its traditional power and the network of connections it had built up over many years to force Jinling sect to agree to the island battle, with most sects in the North Sea Alliance. The so-called island battle was a battle in which both sides would send 15 blood condensation disciples to draw lots. Each battle would use an island as the wager, and the winning side would obtain the ownership of the island. Under strong diplomatic pressure, Jinling and the other 4 sects were forced to agree to the island battle. However, Jinling Island strongly requested to exclude Xianqi Island from the list. The reason was that Xianqi Island was located at the border between Xianling sect and Jinling sect's territories. Since Jinling was far weaker than Xianling sect, it needed to strengthen its defenses. Many sects began to support Jinling sect, using it to keep Xianling sect in check and balance to maintain the internal stability of the alliance. Soon the other sects inadvertently regretfully said, Jinling sect's strength, Jinling sect and Xianling Xian sect in the alliance sect and Xianling sect in Jinling Xianzheng Jinling sect was in sect. Not long after, a senior immortal from a side hall casually lamented, "Who asked our sect to be so weak? We have no say in the alliance and will be bullied if we fall behind." After these words were spread, the disciples of Jinling sect started to unite against a common enemy. Their hatred was directed towards the sects led by Xianling sect. Their passion for cultivation increased by leaps and bounds, and their cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. In the past half a year, Group 7 had gained 4 7th-layer blood refining realm disciples and 2 8th-layer blood refining realm disciples. Shi Lingling had also advanced to the 9th layer, and Yao Yong and Du Feng were about to reach the peak of the 9th layer. Both of them had blood condensing pellets and were already preparing for the blood condensation realm. From Lu Ping's point of view, the commotion outside seemed to be an act arranged by both sides. While everyone thought that Jinling had failed in challenging Xianling sect's authority in the North Sea Alliance, Lu Ping thought that Jinling had successfully shaken Xianling sect's position in the alliance. Although Xianling sect had forced Jinling to give in and accept the fact that they were going to fight for the island, Jinling's concession seemed to be a diplomatic victory for Xianling sect. However, Xianling sect's concession was on Xianling sect's occupied island. Moreover, Xianling sect did not gain much from this concession, especially since Xianqi Island, which had a small mineral vein, was excluded from the list of islands that Jinling was legally occupying. The other sects in the alliance were more than willing to see a balanced Xianling sect, not a dominant sect. Sure enough, another month passed. Under the supervision of many sects in the North Sea Alliance, the results of the island fight were out. Out of the 14 battles, Jinling won 9 times. Including Xianqi Island, Junling obtained 10 islands in this conflict. From Lu Ping's point of view, although the battles were small-scale, it also revealed a problem. Junling's blood condensation cultivators were generally stronger than Xianling sect's cultivators. Even though it was only a competition between a dozen or so people, it was impossible to not come to this conclusion. Perhaps this was also one of the reasons why Junling dared to challenge Xianling's sect. Lu Ping finally came to his own conclusion from the dazzling battle between the two sides in the North Sea Alliance. However, it was just his own opinion. Lu Ping laughed at himself. These matters would naturally be handled by the sect's Laozu. Right now, breaking through to the next realm was more important. In the cultivation room, Lu Ping sat quietly with a blood vigor pill in his hand. Lu Ping had been at the peak of the 8th layer for more than a month. Although the 9th layer was right in front of him, Lu Ping still could not break through. Lu Ping decided to give it a try with a blood vigor pill. All this while, Lu Ping was reluctant to use a blood vigor pill to cultivate. Even though Lu Ping's cultivation was much higher than other cultivators in the same realm, using a blood vigor pill was still an unnecessary waste. This time, in order to break through to the 9th layer, he couldn't care less. Lu Ping placed the blood vigor pill in his mouth. The pill melted in his mouth, turning into a powerful surge of spiritual energy in his abdomen. Then it was absorbed by his blood vessels. Complementing Lu Ping's continuous cultivation of the blood condensation spirit dissolving technique, the spiritual energy completely integrated into his blood vessels. His originally bright red blood instantly became a little brighter, and his heartbeat became slower but stronger. Under the dual effects of his heart and spiritual energy, the surging blood slowly expanded the blood vessels in his body. At the same time, many parts of his body that were not connected to his blood vessels were also unblocked. Under the influence of his blood, the rich spiritual energy penetrated into every part of his body, transforming it into a stronger physique. Some impurities that couldn't be removed from his body before were expelled out of his body. 9th layer blood refining realm. Lu Ping finally reached the blood condensation realm. He was only one step away from the blood condensation realm. Lu Ping looked at the Tianling mountain range where Junling was stationed. It looks like I have to make a plan for myself and speed up my preparations for entering the blood condensation realm. Chapter 29. Lu Ping suppressed his joy after reaching the 9th layer and spent an entire month stabilizing his cultivation. With the help of the remaining 2 bottles of blood vigor pills, Lu Ping quickly stabilized his cultivation and made great progress. The 9th layer was an important transition period between the blood condensation realm and the blood refining realm. For mortals to become cultivators, they had to first activate their own spirit bloodline. According to legend, all living beings in this world were descendants of the 7th patriarch, the creator of the world. Every living being had 7 types of spirit bloodlines. Only by activating these 7 bloodlines could they absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and gradually strengthen their spirit bloodlines. This was the blood refining realm. When a cultivator reached the 9th layer, the 7 types of spirit bloodlines would be fully activated. At this point, the cultivator would have to face the blood condensation realm. The so-called blood condensation realm was to choose one of the 7 bloodlines in the body to cultivate and expel the spiritual energy of the other 6 bloodlines. Then, the cultivator would become the dominant bloodline in the body and reach the blood condensation realm. After that, the cultivator would use the spirit blood of the same bloodline to make up for the deficiencies in the bloodline. Finally, the cultivator's bloodline would be completely integrated into the spirit bloodline. This was the process of cultivating in the blood condensation realm. When Lu Ping reached the 9th layer, it meant that he had to choose one of the 7 bloodlines as his main bloodline in the blood condensation realm. It was also known as the foundation bloodline. Although Lu Ping hadn't made up his mind yet, it was better for him to increase his cultivation to the peak of the 9th layer and obtain the blood condensation pill first. On this day, after Lu Ping finished cultivating, he went to the market and sold all the talismans he made recently. Then he bought 3 bottles of blood essence pills from Junling's elixir store. The 80 to 80 spirit stones he earned from selling the talismans were gone in the blink of an eye, and he still had to fork out a few dozen spirit stones. After entering the 9th layer of the blood refining realm, the number of medicinal pellets required for cultivation had increased significantly. This was especially true for the blood solidifying pellets and blood vigor pellets that were of a higher grade than the blood essence pellets. Although the blood essence pellets cost less, they contained less spiritual energy, which greatly slowed down Lu Ping's cultivation speed. Even so, the monthly expenses of medicinal pills still rose sharply. If it wasn't for Lu Ping having some wealth and only relying on selling talismans, he would have to face the same situation as the vast majority of cultivators, facing a lack of cultivation resources. This was the result of Lu Ping's improved talisman crafting skills, especially after he purchased high-quality talisman papers from the trade fair. Thanks to that, Lu Ping rarely failed in drawing talismans after he entered the 9th layer. Alchemy was truly a lucrative industry. After returning to Zhenling's side hall, Lu Ping received a notice to go to Master Immortal Lu to receive his mission for this year's training. When he arrived at Master Immortal Lu's cultivation room, Lu Ping realized that he wasn't the only one. The other 8 disciples of Group 7 who had reached the 8th layer had also arrived. After everyone arrived and bowed to Master Immortal Lu, Master Immortal Lu said joyfully, "Lu Ping has reached the 9th layer of the blood refining realm." "That's great. With this, our Group 7 now has 4 9th layer blood refining realm disciples. Our strength is no longer inferior to Group 1. Everyone was shocked to hear that Lu Ping's cultivation had improved so rapidly. Master Immortal Lu didn't elaborate on this and directly announced this year's training mission: stay on Xianqi Island for 3 years. For level 3 disciples of the side halls, they would have to carry out various missions assigned by the sect for the last 3 years. The conflict between Xianling sect and Jinling sect had calmed down, and Jinling had taken over Xianqi Island. Therefore, the 16 islands under Xianqi Island would need to be guarded by Jinling's blood-refining realm disciples. Since Group 7 had participated in the invasion of Xianqi Island, they were more familiar with this area of the sea. After leaving Master Immortal Lu's place, Lu Ping had a feeling that this mission would be full of twists and turns. Xianling sect had suffered a huge loss and lost a smaller vein. Lu Ping didn't think that Xianling sect would let Xianqi Island go so easily. He had to be prepared. After all, no one knew what could happen in the next 3 years. 3 days later, Lu Ping's group would depart for Xianqi Island. Lu Ping's time was tight. When he arrived at the market again, he first went to Jinling's crafting pavilion. Because of the missions he completed, Lu Ping now had 85 contribution points, enough for him to exchange for a mid-grade mystic instrument. The reason why he didn't exchange for one before was because the mystic instruments in the pavilion of smithing were relatively monotonous, unlike the variety in the market. Although the quality of the mystic instruments was guaranteed, they weren't particularly outstanding among the mystic instruments of the same grade. This time's mission was urgent, so Lu Ping didn't have time to go to other places in the market to exchange for magic tools. He could only come to the crafting pavilion to exchange for an ordinary mid-grade magic tool. A mid-grade magic tool would cost at least 50 contribution points. Those with better quality or special functions could even cost close to 100 contribution points. Lu Ping skimmed through the list. In the end, he felt that the most practical magic tool was still a flying sword. So, he spent 65 contribution points to exchange for a flying feather sword. Looking at Lu Ping's remaining 20 contribution points, he shook his head. It was really expensive. However, when he thought about how this magic tool would sell for at least 200 spirit stones outside, Lu Ping still felt that he made a profit. When Lu Ping passed by Jinling's elixir store, he thought for a moment and decided to go in to take a look. The elixirs in the elixir store were mainly targeted at blood refining realm disciples and low-level blood condensation realm cultivators. Lu Ping looked at the list of elixirs and saw that only the blood essence pill was suitable for him. Disappointed, he decided to leave. When the shop assistant saw that Lu Ping was about to leave, he casually asked, "Immortal Senior, are there no elixirs that are suitable for you?" Lu Ping was about to leave, but when he heard the shop assistant's question, he said, "I just want to exchange for some elixirs that are more suitable for 9th layer blood refining realm than the blood essence pill, but I don't need them here." The shop assistant smiled and said, "It's not that we don't have these things. Our shop owner has some connections. Because the supply is limited, he sells them to cultivators with connections or powerful forces. Ordinary cultivators can only exchange for the elixirs designated by the sect." Lu Ping suddenly understood. Jinling was a big business, how could they not refine these elixirs? Although these elixirs were better than the blood essence pill, they were still just elixirs for blood refining realm cultivators. How could a master alchemist like Jinling care about them? However, Jinling was also looking for benefits. Compared to other blood refining realm elixirs, the blood essence pill was undoubtedly the most suitable elixir. When Lu Ping saw the half-smile on the shop assistant's face, he quickly understood. He passed 10 spirit stones to the shop assistant and smiled apologetically. "This humble one doesn't know anything about this. Please enlighten me." The shop assistant accepted the spirit stones generously and passed the list of elixirs to Lu Ping. It seemed like he had prepared everything beforehand. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.